Look at this guy. He is glowing with enough dark energy to make a Discord moderator jealous. And right in front of him is a giant, 3-story tall Cyclops who definitely skipped leg day. Instead of running like a normal person, our guy just steps up, unloads a punch so mathematically disrespectful that it literally rips the giant into pieces and parts the sky like a Moses cheat code. But to understand how this absolute menace went from zero to deleting boss monsters with his bare hands, we need to go back to the dark, sweaty caves of the mining district. This is K. He spent his entire life swinging a pickaxe just to scrape up some glowing blue ink from the dirt. Luckily, he's got Nero, a living shadow ball, who is basically a walking cheat code for finding resources. K thinks this latest batch of ink is his golden ticket out of this depressing grayscale underground slums, because in this world, if you don't have color, you don't have rights. The elite of this society are called colorists, glorified superheroes who look like a K-pop group that got lost in a paint factory. The citizens treat them like absolute gods, believing these colorful elites are the only ones keeping their shiny city safe. Meanwhile, if you live in the Shadow District, your life is basically playing a simulator on permanent hard mode. So K walks up to the C-Rank Pioneering Corps board, hoping his hard work will finally pay off. Instead, he gets physically thrown down the stairs. The guards look at him like he just tried to pay for a Michelin star meal with Monopoly money. K holds up his hard-earned ink, screaming that he's got the qualifications. It's premium grade, literally glowing in his hands. But the recruiter just points a finger and says the quiet part out loud. You're colorless. See, in this world, your genetics decide your job before you're even out of the womb. The guy sparks up a little fire magic in his palm just to flex on our boy and reminds him that the pioneers are a special breed. Only the chosen ones get to leave the safety walls and enter the Black Lands. Outside the city, the world is wrapped in a thick, toxic fog filled with eldritch horrors that will eat you like a midnight snack. The pioneers risk their lives out there to bring back resources, making them the ultimate heroes. So the guard tells K to go back to the dirt where he belongs, and warns him that if he shows his face around here again, they won't just throw him out, they'll end him. K sits in the dirt, hugging Nero close to his chest, but he's not ready to give up yet. He looks at his pet and smiles, promising he'll become the greatest colorist this world has ever seen. It's a promise he made a long time ago. He tucks Nero back into his jacket like an illegal snack and heads back into the gloomy streets. He's walking home, wondering if there's anyone in this entire city who will give a colorless kid a real chance. He's checking his notebook of potential employers, and it is completely covered in red X's. It's another zero-income day. With no other options, he visits Mari's workshop. Mari is his childhood friend, a top-tier mechanic who actually treats him like a human being. She takes Nero, immediately seeing the defeat written all over K's face. She tells him the system is stupid and that K is easily stronger than half the pioneers out there. After all, he manages to sneak into the outskirts and bring back rare goods all the time. K admits he only survives because Nero is basically a living radar system. Mari smiles, handing him a fat stack of cash for the blue ink. She mentions that resource prices are skyrocketing, which is why the city keeps pushing for more pioneers. Then, she looks at K and asks if he's thought about her suggestion. K hesitates. That place is way too out of his league, but Mari slams a piece of paper on the table. For the S-Rank Dawn Pioneering Corps recruitment, K's eyes go wide. The S-Rank Corps? He always assumed they'd laugh him out of the room. Mari points out that this exam is strictly based on skill, not your background. She looks him dead in the eye, reminding him of his dream. Even when they were starving kids in the rain, they promised to support each other no matter what. This is his shot. K's resolve hardens, and a smirk finally breaks onto his face. He grabs the application form. He waves goodbye to Mari, promising to show them what a colorless can really do. He's walking down a quiet alleyway, looking at the flyer, when Nero suddenly starts growling inside his shirt. K looks down, confused. Nero never acts like this, unless a shadow steps out of the corner. A hand holds a glowing green wand. It's a discount Zorro who went to magic school instead of the gym. Before K can even react, a blade of wind slices straight across his chest, spraying blood onto the cold pavement. He collapses, gasping for air as two thugs look down at him like he's garbage. They casually talk about how nobody cares if a colorless dies in an alley. Nero cries out, squeezing his tiny body against K's bleeding chest. K's vision starts fading, and his only thought is telling Nero to run. But when he wakes up a few minutes later, he's staring at the green-haired bastard's ugly smile. He's being held by the collar over a massive vat of black sludge. The thug explains that when different inks mix together, they create highly toxic ink waste. It is so acidic that if a human falls in, their bones will dissolve in seconds. K asks why they're doing this. The thug laughs, explaining they saw Nero earlier. A creature that has the intelligence to follow human commands? The other thug holds up a cage. Nero is trapped inside, crying. K screams his pet's name, but he has zero leverage. He tries to punch the thug, but his weak, normal human fists do absolutely nothing. The thug sneers, saying Nero will fetch a fortune on the black market. A rare creature like that is wasted on a colorless loser. K feels the cold grip of regret. He was too careless, but losing Nero, his only family, over a couple of greedy thugs? Something inside K snaps. His eyes burn with pure rage. He reaches out and grabs the thug's arm with a death grip. Suddenly, black veins start crawling up K's hands, and the thug's face twists in horror. He screams that something is literally sucking the life out of him. Panicking, the thug throws K backward, letting him fall into the toxic vat. The thugs watch him splash into the pitch-black soup, thinking the problem is solved. Nero watches from the cage, his tiny heart breaking as his best friend sinks, but K isn't dissolving. The pitch-black ink starts swirling around him as he falls deeper into the abyss. His body won't move, and the toxic chemicals are screaming through his veins. He thinks of Mari, of his failures, of his entire pathetic life. Is it really going to end like this? No, he still has that promise to keep. Suddenly, a voice echoes in the dark. Why are you just standing there? K's eyes snap open. Who is talking to him? A torrent of dark thoughts floods his brain, telling him to stop hesitating and take his true color. And in that moment, K stops fighting the dark. He welcomes it. His hand reaches out into the vortex, absorbing the entire toxic ocean like a living black hole. The physical world starts glitching around him. He was inside the ink, but now, the ink is inside him. He stands up, his body completely replaced by a pitch-black silhouette with glowing white eyes. He hears Nero's cries echoing from above. He looks up and sees the two thugs standing at the edge of the pit. Nero is still crying, but now those tears of sadness turn into pure shock. K raises his hand, his fingers warping into shadowy claws. A massive pillar of dark energy erupts from the vat, shaking the entire building. The thugs look like they just saw a ghost rise from the dead. The entire toxic vat is completely bone dry. K absorbed every single drop. Out of the empty pit steps a creature of absolute shadow. The green-haired thug is shaking so hard he might wet his fancy vest. He screams in terror as a massive shadowy hand reaches out to swallow them whole. Cut to the next morning, and the alleyway looks like a wrecking ball had a personal issue with the architecture. An eyewitness is screaming to the cops, claiming a giant black hand just manifested out of thin air and turned the entire facility into a puzzle with missing pieces. On the ground, the two B-rank thugs are being loaded into stretchers. But they aren't just beaten up, they are completely gray. A blue-haired girl with glasses notes that they've lost every single drop of their color. Standing next to her is the red-haired investigator, looking bored but dangerous. The local supervisor runs up, sweating buckets, when he realizes a high-ranking colorist is on site. He asks what brings such VIPs to the slums. The red-haired guy calmly asks to be shown around the disaster zone. They walk into the crater, surrounded by shattered pipes and concrete dust. The red-haired investigator touches the black residue on the ground, his eyes narrowing. His assistant notes that they've been tracking large creatures outside the walls, but for one to suddenly spawn inside the city limits where only small, harmless vermin usually live, it makes absolutely zero sense. They need to track this thing before it causes a mass panic. And looking at the absolute path of destruction leading out of the city, they've got a long walk ahead of them. Meanwhile, deep inside a dark, damp cavern, K is slowly groaning as he regains consciousness. Something warm and wet is licking his face. It's Nero. K sits up, hugging his pet, overjoyed that the little guy is safe and sound. He lets out a sigh of relief, but then he looks down at his hands. His skin is back to normal, but something is very, very wrong. He remembers those thugs throwing him into the toxic ink waste. He remembers the pitch-black vortex, the voice, and the terrifying power that surged through him. His eyes go wide. He raises his hands, feeling a strange dark warmth buzzing under his skin. He touches his head. His hair is now pitch black instead of white. How is any of this scientifically possible? And more importantly, why is it so incredibly dark in here? He can't see a single thing past his own nose. He asks Nero for a little assistance, and Nero obliges, spinning in the air like a glowing disco ball. Nero's head lights up with a blinding white glow, revealing dozens of glowing eyes staring back at them from the shadows. K freezes. The cavern is crawling with high-level monsters. He looks around in sheer panic, recognizing the rocky terrain. This isn't the city outskirts. This is the Black Forest, a B-rank danger zone deep inside the forbidden Black Lands. Before he can even process how he got teleported here, the creatures start swarming. K grabs Nero and books it, sprinting down the cavern tunnels. Nero is squealing, floating right next to him, like a terrified GPS. A giant shadow snake leaps out of the dark, snapping its jaws inches from K's face. K dodges, thanking Nero for the warning, and keeps running. He climbs up a steep rock wall, trying to put some distance between him and the pack. Nero flies ahead, lighting up the path. But as K runs, he notices something crazy. His lungs aren't burning. His legs aren't heavy. In fact, he feels absolutely incredible. He's leaping over massive crevices and scaling cliffs like he's playing Assassin's Creed. His body is literally overflowing with raw physical energy. Nero squeaks, warning him of another threat ahead. A massive, shadowy wolf leaps out of the brush, jaws open to tear K's head off. K can't dodge in time. He raises his arm in a desperate block, closing his eyes and preparing for his arm to get ripped off. Crack. A sound of shattering bone echoes through the forest. But it's not K's bone. The wolf's teeth literally shatter against K's forearm like they hit a steel wall. The wolf looks at him, utterly confused by this hacker. It lets out a whimpering yelp and runs back into the bushes. K opens his eyes, checking his arm. Not even a scratch. He thought he was a goner, but his physical specs are off the charts. He looks at his hands, a smirk spreading across his face. This is the power of color. Nero squeaks happily, but the ground suddenly starts violently shaking. Hud. Hud. Massive footsteps echo through the trees. A towering, one-eyed cyclops steps into the light, looking for a snack. K recognizes it instantly, a high-tier predator from the deep, black forest. The monster roars, smashing its fist into the ground and shattering the rock. Nero screams, flying back in terror. K gets knocked back by the shockwave, landing in the dirt, but instead of panicking, he looks up and smiles. Somehow, he feels like he can win. He remembers all the years of being beaten, discriminated against, and treated like trash. Those days are officially over. He doesn't need to run anymore. He remembers the feeling from the ink pit, the pure, raw void of the black aura. He channels it, and black flames start erupts from his body. As the dust clears from his insane, giant-killing punch, K looks up at the sky. For the first time in his life, he sees the beautiful, clear blue sky and the vibrant green trees of the forest. This is the real color of the world, but his moment of awe is cut short. The black aura suddenly starts violently flaring up, and K's face twists in sheer agony. He falls to his knees, gasping for air as his body starts violently rejecting the power. A beam of light shoots from his chest, and his dark energy starts rapidly leaking out. Nero flies down, panicking, as K clutches his chest. K realizes the terrifying catch. The more he uses this power, the more it drains his life force. At this rate, his heart is going to explode from the sheer strain. Suddenly, that creepy, echoing voice returns inside his head. "What are you doing?" The text in the void whispers to him. "The prey is right in front of you. Eat it quickly. You don't want to die, right? It's simple. Reach out your hand." K's vision starts tunneling. He has no choice. With the last of his strength, he drags himself over to the dead Cyclops and places his trembling hand onto the monster's cold skin. Suddenly, a massive vortex of black energy erupts, and K literally begins to inhale the Cyclops' entire life force. Nero watches in absolute, wide-eyed shock as the massive monster's corpse is drained of all its color, turning into a brittle, gray husk. The dark energy surges back into K's body, refilling his tank and stabilizing his heart. K falls back, gasping for air as his skin returns to normal and his heartbeat slows down. He looks up at the sky, letting out an exhausted laugh. Phew. I'm going to survive. We start right back at the local engine grease headquarters, where Mari is currently minding her own business, designing blueprints, when a highly suspicious, shadowy silhouette walks through the front door. Honestly, if you enter a workshop looking like a discount Grim Reaper, you deserve whatever happens next. Mari looks down at those heavy boots marching in and immediately calls him out for looking like a straight-up burglar. She pulls out a giant wrench, threatening to send him back to the lobby, and this man really just stands there, letting her panic. He finally pulls back his hood, telling her to take a deep breath. Surprise! It is our guy, rocking a brand new custom pitch black hair upgrade. Mari is completely stunned. Her brain is processing the update, trying to make sense of the new avatar, and she immediately asks what on earth happened to his entire look. As he explains the entire tragic backstory, Mari starts shaking with rage, completely losing her mind because of the corrupt thugs who tried to dissolve him. She literally grabs a hammer and a wrench, ready to go pull a John Wick, while K has to physically hold her back and tell her they are already handled. She calms down, just relieved that her favorite colorless underdog is still breathing, but then she realizes the absolute mathematical impossibility of what just happened. Surviving the toxic sludge is one thing, but gaining the color black is a major red flag, since that is the literal trademark color of the horrific monsters outside the walls. K is not stressed though. He just wants to borrow some drip for the exam. Mari sighs, realizing he is once again asking for financial support, but she grabs his hand anyway because she is the ultimate supportive sister. She drags him into the back room, promising she has the exact starter gear to make him look like a proper combat contender. Cut to the local coliseum, where the vibe is absolutely packed, with hundreds of young hopefuls trying to pass the S-Rank Dawn Pioneer exam. Some random background NPCs are already sweating, completely terrified of the scale, talking about how S-Rank is the absolute pinnacle of their society. These guys are the actual hope of the Shining City, the elite of the elite, and the competition today is looking incredibly sweaty. We have got noble heirs, famous bounty hunters with high-tier elements, and rising stars who have already made a name for themselves in the streets. But the guy getting the absolute most hype from the peanut gallery is Gale, also known as the Gale Sword, a certified prodigy with bright green hair. Rumor has it he can solo boss-level creatures without even breaking a sweat, though his massive ego and violent streak got him kicked out of his last guild. Some candidates are whispering about him, but Gale is just built different. He walks past the chatter, completely unimpressed by the crowd. He sighs, thinking the overall level of this year's batch is pathetic, scowling because he expected a real challenge from an S-rank trial. He crosses off every single face in his head as complete fodder until his eyes land on one specific person standing quietly off to the side. Ellie Cyan, the second daughter of the legendary Cyan family. Her icy aura is actually decent enough to catch his attention, and Gale smiles, wondering how she will react when he takes the top spot. Before he can cook up a weird internal monologue, the speaker system goes off, announcing that the S-rank trial is officially commencing. The arena goes dead silent. A single high-tier pioneer steps up to the main balcony, looking down. The crowd immediately starts losing their minds, because this is a famous S-rank colorist. He has got those glowing yellow eyes and a massive mechanical exhaust set up on his shoulder. His passive aura alone is making the candidates feel the sheer weight of the gap. He welcomes them with a very dry, professional tone, looking down at the hundreds of recruits who showed up today. He says he does not care if they are here for money, glory, or simple survival, because out in the toxic wilderness, none of that matters without raw skill. So to weed out the weak immediately, they are starting with a tournament bracket. Survival of the fittest. Plain and simple. If you cannot win here, you are just monster food out there. The proctor calls out the very first matchup, number 126 versus number 286. The crowd gasps, realizing Gale is stepping onto the dirt in match number 1. Gale smiles, thinking the universe just handed him a free warm-up session, already planning how many pieces he is going to slice his opponent into. But when he looks across the arena, he just sees a hooded kid standing in the most awkward, non-threatening stance imaginable. He looks like a low-tier NPC who got lost on his way to the market. Gale decides to get this over with, drawing his blade with a sharp ring of steel and starts summoning massive glowing green wind blades in the air. The atmospheric pressure begins to drop as he builds up his magic. The spectators are genuinely impressed, whispering about his genius control as 4 giant green energy swords float menacingly around his body. Gale looks at Kay, telling him to try and block this if he values his life, kicking off the ground with a massive stomp and launches forward like a green hurricane, ready to shred him to pieces. Kay just stands there. The wind vortex closes in, and Kay throws a simple, straight physical punch. The raw physical impact creates a massive concussive explosion. The wind blades shatter instantly, like cheap glass. The entire concrete wall on the far side of the Colosseum craters inward, leaving Gale embedded in the rubble, completely unconscious. Kay looks down at his hand, genuinely startled by his own output, as the smoke clears and the entire stadium goes dead quiet. But then the spectators start pointing in absolute horror. They are not looking at the broken wall, they are looking at his hair and his aura. Because as his hood falls back, a thick, dark mist of black mana is swirling around him. Kay looks around, completely confused by the terrified reactions of the crowd, realizing he might have accidentally shown his hand a little too early. The tournament rolls on. Another challenger steps up, launching a massive rock at him, but Kay charges straight through the debris and sends him flying with a single clean strike. The proctor calls the match. Another fight, another absolute beatdown. It is not even a competition anymore, it is just a speedrun. The yellow-eyed proctor watches from the high balcony, looking deeply intrigued, commenting that this black-haired kid is easily the most promising recruit they have seen in years. But before he can start drawing up a recruitment contract, a familiar voice calls out. He turns around and spots 2 people walking up the steps. Team Leader Red and his blue-braided assistant have officially entered the chat. The proctor asks what brings the city's top detective to a basic recruit exam. Red shrugs, complaining about the massive headache of his current investigation, but then his eyes shift down toward the active battlefield. The proctor tells him he arrived at the perfect time to witness a genuine anomaly. And the moment Red looks down at Kay's dark aura, his lazy expression vanishes. The proctor explains that this kid has been sweeping every match with a completely unregistered color. The assistant looks nervous, asking Red if this could be the creature they are hunting. Red stares, noting that a kid with black mana appearing right after the factory went boom is too much of a coincidence. But instead of calling in the guards, he decides to pull up a chair and keep watching. Down on the field, Kay looks at his hand, feeling the rush of his winning streak, but he knows his black mana is currently a ticking time bomb that drains his life if he overuses it. Suddenly, a massive burst of cold air sweeps across the entire Colosseum. A colossal glacier of pure ice erupts on the neighboring platform, as Ellie Cyan casually freezes her opponent solid, without even blinking. Kay watches her, realizing the high society elites are not just empty hype. Ellie steps off her stage, walking straight past him. The tension in the air is heavy enough to crush an NPC. She stops, giving him a cold, piercing glare that suggests she is not used to sharing the spotlight, and Kay just sweats under her gaze, wondering why she is looking at him like he stole her lunch. She turns and walks away, leaving him standing there in silence. The speakers blare again, announcing the conclusion of the first stage. The yellow proctor thanks everyone who managed to survive, looking down at the battered candidates who actually made the cut. But because they are running way behind schedule, they are skipping the break. The failures are told to pack their bags, leaving the remaining recruits looking completely exhausted. The proctor begins to announce the second stage of the test, but Red steps forward with a lazy grin, interrupting the announcement. He tells the crowd that the next stage is going to be run personally by him. The candidates immediately look like they just saw a ghost. They recognize him instantly. Colorist Red, one of the most destructive fire users in the city. His reputation is so terrifying that even his S-rank colleagues refuse to pair up with him on hunts. The yellow proctor warns him that the captain is going to give him a massive lecture, but Red does not care. He steps up to the edge, looking down at the remaining candidates. He tells them the test is incredibly simple. He releases his red mana, instantly trapping every single candidate in a massive, glowing orange flame sphere. Red explains that he has recreated the exact atmospheric temperature of the Black Lands. The toxic wilderness is full of extreme volcanic zones where human lungs turn to ash. So compared to that, he says this heat is basically just a warm kitchen stove. All they have to do to pass this stage is endure the heat. The recruits are already screaming in pain, their spheres glowing a violent red. Some of them try to use their elements to block it, but the fire is too dense. The yellow proctor watches Red, secretly amazed by his absurd level of magic control, shaping dozens of high-intensity spheres without losing a single drop of energy. Red stands in the center of his own firestorm, looking completely in his element. Suddenly, a massive blue ice crystal cracks through one of the spheres. The ice expands rapidly, and Cyan shatters her heat bubble into tiny frozen fragments. Red raises an eyebrow, genuinely impressed by her raw power. She completely bypassed her elemental disadvantage, proving why she is a true prodigy. But then, Red's eyes drift back over to the mysterious black mana kid. Kay is still standing inside his sphere, looking steady, but not breaking through. Red sighs, thinking the boy might just be a physical type one-trick pony. But inside that bubble, the situation is actually a complete disaster. Kay is sweating bullets, panicking because his mana reservoir is nearly dry. He burned way too much color during his tournament speedrun, and now his dark aura is physically leaking out of his pores. If his color runs dry right here, his hair will turn white, revealing his identity as a colorless miner. He knows exactly what happens to illegal colorless anomalies who sneak into S-rank exams. Lab rat status. He needs to refill his fuel tank right now, but there are no monsters to feed on. Then he looks at the flaming barrier itself. It is made of pure, high-density elemental mana. He has never tried to absorb active, hostile magic directly from a living high-tier colorist. But with no options left, he reaches out and slams his bare hand against the burning wall. Absolute absorption activates. The red flames turn pitch black and get violently sucked straight into his hand like a dark vacuum. Up on the balcony, Red's lazy smirk completely disappears. He looks down, his jaw dropping in genuine shock. Kay stands in the center of a roaring vortex of stolen red embers and black shadow, looking like a high-level raid boss who just entered his second phase. The other candidates are looking at him in sheer terror, while Kay internally sweats, realizing he just blew his cover in the most spectacular way possible. So, the first stage of the exam is officially over, but instead of celebrating, the entire stadium is currently having a collective existential crisis. Cyan is standing there staring at Kay, remembering all the pressure her high society family put on her to be the absolute best, and how she could never risk disappointing her terrifying older sister. And yet, looking at Kay's raw, unfiltered output, she realizes that if they actually went all out in a real fight, she might not walk away with the W. She tells herself to stop overthinking it, but before she can even process her competitive anxiety, team leader Red casually slides in and grabs our guy. Red is smiling like he just found a cheat code in a single-player game, whispering that he wants to have a very cozy, very private conversation about this black color. Kay is sweating bullets, asking about the rest of the exam, but Red just hand-waves it. He tells him he already passed, leaving Kay completely flabbergasted and shouting about finally becoming a real pioneer, while Red's S-rank colleagues yell at him for ruining the schedule. The yellow-haired proctor has to step up to the microphone, announcing that except for Cyan, everyone else is getting sent straight to a makeup exam. Ellie doesn't even care about the announcement. She's just watching Kay get dragged into the dark tunnel. A few minutes later, we hear the heavy metal door of a car slam shut, and Red tells Kay to stay put while they take a little drive out of the clean city center. Kay is looking out the window, and his face instantly goes pale because Red has driven him straight to the ruined, crushed concrete graveyard of the industrial district. Red casually points at the massive crater, mentioning how a very strange incident happened here recently. He talks about two high-class pioneers who were found completely drained of their color, and how local eyewitnesses claimed to see a massive, terrifying shadow beast. Then he turns his head slowly, locking his eyes onto Kay's face, pointing out that a kid with a color that absorbs other elements showing up right after is a bit too convenient. Kay looks like he is about to have a physical panic attack. He realizes this lazy, red-haired slacker has had him figured out since minute 1. He considers running, then remembers the guy standing in front of him is a literal living legend. Red just laughs it off, saying he was only testing our guy's reaction speed. He admits that as an investigator, his job is to find the culprit, but as a combat veteran, he is way more interested in the absolute absurdity of Kay's magic. He explains that normally, different elemental colors can never mix together, yet Kay's black void completely ignores those rules, vacuuming up his fire barrier during the test. Kay tries to formulate a lie, but his brain is currently running on dial-up internet. Red tells him they need to run a quick live fire diagnostic. He rolls up his sleeve, stretching out his hand, and tells K to try absorbing his actual S-rank flame mana directly. K is horrified, telling him it is way too dangerous, but Red just tells the rookie to stop worrying about him. He drops the lazy tone, telling him to stop talking and just do it. We get a quick world-building interlude, showing that the color black is heavily outlawed because it represents the unchecked, devouring force of the toxic black lands. If a human actually possesses this power, they are considered a walking natural disaster, and the city authorities are fully prepared to put them down if they step out of line. K decides he has no choice, reaching out and grabbing Red's wrist. He warns him that if things go sideways, he is not paying for the medical bills. The moment their hands meet, a massive black vortex tears open. A torrent of high-density red flame begins surging up K's arm. K's eyes instantly go wide with panic. It feels like pure, boiling lava is being pumped straight into his veins. He screams out in agony, completely losing control of the flow. He realizes the sheer, terrifying scale of Red's power, the kind of strength that earns you a statue in the city park. Red watches calmly, noting that K's void is acting like a starving stray dog, eating everything without stopping, though high-level colorists could probably resist the pull. But he realizes the kid is holding back a lot more than he let on in the arena. He watches to see how K actually utilizes the stolen fire, and suddenly, a massive shockwave of black and red energy erupts. Red is forced to step back as the dust settles, and he looks up to see K's entire right side mutating into a jagged shadow beast. The red fire veins are flaring off his mutated claw, making him look like an absolute monster. Red narrows his eyes, realizing he officially has his confirmation. This kid was definitely the one who flattened the industrial sector. He decides he needs to put out this fire before the rookie completely loses his mind, igniting his hand with a dense circle of orange flames to subdue him. K is growling like a wild animal, the dark void threatening to take over. Inside K's head, a chaotic red text box of demonic voices is screaming, telling him to consume more, to take all of it, and let the hunger run wild. K is physically clutching his head, screaming at the voices to shut up. He exerts every single ounce of his willpower, forcing the dark mana back down. He commands the beast inside him to stay crushed, unleashing a small outward pulse of red sparks as the transformation shatters. Red stands there, completely speechless. He cannot believe a rookie actually suppressed a wild void mutation with pure mental strength. K collapses to his knees, gasping for air and realizing he almost ended his own subscription to life. He looks up at Red, totally embarrassed that he just went full demon mode in front of a cop. He stands up, holding his arm and muttering about needing to study his new skill tree. Red just smiles, telling him the test was an absolute success. He says high-reward plays always require high-risk investments, but then he casually drops the bomb that his official job is still to find the culprit of the factory disaster. And right now, the primary suspect is standing directly in front of him. He explains that once the rumors of a black mana user get out, the council will easily point the finger at him. He mentions the property damage is worth several 100 million credits, and they will probably turn K into a lab experiment. K is internally screaming, realizing he is completely, utterly cooked. Then Red offers a very convenient lifeline, suggesting K join his personal squad. He warns him that he is not doing this for free, and K will owe him some serious favors. K doesn't even hesitate, pulling a perfect 90-degree bow and offering his physical labor. Red gets this highly mischievous, villainous grin on his face, asking if he really means anything. We open deep in the barren, gray-scaled wasteland of the Blacklands, where a wild monster is currently running for its life as a massive, multi-wheeled S-class exploration vehicle rumbles past. K is looking out the circular window, realizing this is his official debut as a pioneer. He is feeling the main character energy, but then a very annoying voice calls him Black Hair. He turns around to see Gale, who is looking extremely salty. Gale tells him to stop looking out the window and sit down, because he is being a distraction. This green-haired kid is wearing a visual mask of pure, unadulterated cope, while Ellie Cyan sits silently next to him, completely ignoring the noise. K is thinking back to how he even ended up in this metal box in the first place. Flashback to Red, telling him he has a very specific, unexplored area picked out for their first trip. K was looking incredibly stressed about a private deployment with a manipulative S-rank, but Red reassured him that he wouldn't be alone, showing him a map of the rookie deployment. He told him the Dawn Pioneering Corps was setting up a massive joint expedition, and that K just needed to show up at the coordinate point on time. K was relieved, thinking it would be a normal, safe group project. But back in the present, he looks at his teammates and realizes the universe lied to him. It turns out that because Red completely derailed the second stage of the exam, the proctors had to run a massive makeup bracket to keep the noble families happy. A bunch of rookies passed, and Ellie Cyan specifically requested to join Red's squad. Gale is still ranting, claiming he only lost the first round because his guard was down. He swears that next time, K won't get lucky, waving his fist like a cartoon villain. He claims he would have crushed K right there in the vehicle if they weren't on duty. Lavian is sitting at the front desk, giving Gale a very tired look through her glasses. Ellie Cyan finally opens her mouth, telling Gale to shut up because he's just going to get knocked out again. She calmly states that K is completely out of Gale's league, which causes Gale's veins to pop. She then looks at K, declaring that she will be the one to challenge him first. K is totally confused, asking when they ever agreed to a duel. Ellie just tells Gale to wait his turn in the loser's bracket, leaving our guy caught in a high-tension anime split screen of green and blue auras. He decides the best course of action is to just look down and stay quiet. The massive exploration truck finally pulls up to their destination, the Dawn Pioneer Outpost, which looks like a massive industrial fortress. The rookies step out, looking at the bustling military-grade setup. K is amazed, realizing how different S-rank operations are compared to his solo miner days. Suddenly, a finger pokes his cheek, breaking his train of thought. It is Mari, who has a massive smile on her face, and right inside her jacket pocket, a very familiar shadow cat pops its head out. K is thrilled to see Nero, taking the shadow blob into his arms. Mari explains she managed to get hired as a support mechanic for the outpost, which is a massive career upgrade. Before they can catch up, the loudspeaker announces assembly time. The recruits are ordered to gather at the main gate for immediate deployment. K hands Nero back to Mari, asking her to keep his partner safe. Mari hugs the shadow cat, telling K to avoid doing anything incredibly stupid. She tells Nero not to be sad, but the shadow cat is currently having an emotional crisis. It reaches out its tiny shadow hand, grabbing K's sleeve, and Nero literally flies out of Mari's arms, clinging to K's back. Mari is shocked, seeing Nero melt directly into K's shadow like a custom liquid accessory. K looks down, realizing his shadow cat has officially unlocked the co-op storage feature. He decides to roll with it, marching toward the assembly area. Dozens of armed recruits stand in neat rows under the high spotlights. A loud voice commands everyone to prepare for entry into the Black Lands. Arancia, the bright orange-haired squad leader, delivers the safety briefing. She warns them that Area 21 has reported high-tier activity, including a dead A-rank beast. But as she is talking, a scout runs up, calling her name. He frantically reports that Chief Red has taken his assigned rookies and completely abandoned the main platoon formation without permission. Arancia's eyes go wide with pure exasperation. She pushes up her goggles, letting out a massive sigh because of Red's chronic inability to follow rules. She orders her squad to move, praying the slacker senior doesn't get the rookies killed. Meanwhile, deep inside the pitch-black caverns, Red is leading his personal, illegal field trip with K, Gale, and Ellie. K is sweating, asking if it is actually safe to deviate from the main army. Gale is complaining, asking why they even dragged a useless colorless kid along. Gale and Ellie immediately start bickering about who gets to inherit Red's S-rank training tips. Red just chuckles, telling them that while he isn't going to hand-feed them, they won't get seriously hurt as long as they stay close to him. He flashes his signature lazy smile, telling them to pick up the pace. Suddenly, a pack of shadow beasts leaps from the dark walls. A massive fanged predator lunges straight at Ellie Cyan. Ellie draws her rapier, unleashing a massive fan of freezing ice energy. She lands gracefully, observing the suffocating atmosphere of the real Blacklands. She notes that the creatures are relentless, unlike the static training targets back home. She checks the blue mana gauge on her weapon, realizing she has to manage her output. She looks over at K, who is standing near a dead beast, and she realizes he is completely empty-handed. She walks up to him with a confused look, asking why he isn't using a spoit weapon to fight. K blinks, looking incredibly clueless. He admits that he doesn't actually own one of those. He explains they were way too expensive for a miner, so he figured he would just go barehanded. Gale's jaw literally drops to the floor. We get a quick explanation, showing that a spoit is a baseline magic weapon used to inject destabilizing colors into monsters. Without a spoit, managing to kill high-tier beasts is practically impossible. Gale is having a mental breakdown, realizing that the kid who easily one-shot him did it with 0 weapons, using purely his bare fists. He looks at his own expensive windblade sword, remembering the heavy punch that cratered him into the concrete. He grinds his teeth, his pride completely shattered. He glares at K, swearing to eventually crush him with his own hands. Red watches the drama unfold from the back of the cave, holding his lantern. He smiles, loving the fact that he has 2 competitive geniuses fueling our guy's growth. He mutters that things are about to get way more interesting, urging his personal squad of rookies to push deeper into the unexplored dark. The wild shadow wolves are finally cleared out, and Red decides to call a quick 10-minute halftime break. Gale immediately sits down, pulling out a small tube of glowing green paste, and complaining about how fast he is burning through his elemental reserves. K watches him from the side, realizing Gale is casually chugging a bottle of premium personal ink just to top off his mana tank. We get a quick explanation, showing that this stuff is alchemically refined RGB fuel, custom-made for elite colorists, meaning it costs more than a decent apartment in the inner city. K is sweating bullets, watching Gale and Ellie just casually drink liquid money like it is tap water. He He sighs, realizing his bank account is way too sad for high-tier alchemical consumables, so he decides to take matters into his own hands and walks over to the dead shadow wolves. He kneels down, reaches out, and activates his absolute absorption directly on the monster corpses. A giant vortex of dark mana surges into his hand, refilling his void gauge to 100% in about 3 seconds. He lets out a satisfied sigh, completely healed and energized, while Ellie and Gale just stare at him like he just ate a raw battery off the floor. Gale asks if he is actually insane, pointing out that eating raw monster color directly is the fastest way to get a one-way ticket to the graveyard. Before Kay has to explain his highly illegal biology, Red claps his hands, announcing that the break is officially over. He leads them deeper into the damp cavern, his lazy smirk returning. They turn a corner and stop right at the edge of a massive swirling dome. It is a pitch-black barrier, humongous in size, blocking the entire tunnel. The rookies are completely stunned, asking what kind of anomaly they are looking at. Red smiles, telling Kay that this exact barrier is the entire reason he brought him on this illegal field trip. To demonstrate, Red ignites his hand with a high-density circle of orange flames, launching a massive fire beam straight into the black dome. The impact splits the air with a heavy rumble, but instead of breaking, the red fire is violently sucked into the dome's surface. Red explains that trying to break this thing by force is a complete skill issue. It just eats the attack and gets even tankier. He looks at Kay, pointing out that this absorption mechanic is basically identical to the rookie's forbidden black color. He reveals that behind this barrier lies the path to ancient ruins, and inside those ruins is their actual target, Stella fragments. Ellie and Gale look completely lost, admitting they have never heard of a Stella in their entire lives. Kay stays quiet, but his expression goes dead serious. Red shrugs, promising he will give them the lore explanation later, and tells Kay to step up to the plate and start vacuuming. Kay walks up to the edge of the swirling black sludge, stretching out his bare hand and pressing it directly against the barrier. Absolute absorption activates, and a massive dark vortex begins spinning around his body. Red smiles, watching the black dome start to thin out. The barrier is physically dissolving into Kay's palm like water down a drain. Kay is holding his ground, but internally, his system is ringing alarm bells. The ground beneath their feet begins to violently shake, the cave walls vibrating with a heavy rumble. Gale covers his ears, complaining that the noise is loud enough to wake up every sleeping beast in the sector. And right on cue, the darkness starts growling back. Dozens of glowing white eyes emerge from the stone pillars as a massive horde of shadow wolves swarms the platform. Ellie and Gale draw their weapons, ready to defend their position. Red tells them to handle the security detail, while Kay keeps focusing on the barrier. He commands the rookies to sweep them all out, stepping back with his lantern. Gale charges forward, his sword splitting the air with sharp green wind blades that slice through the front line. Ellie follows up, her thin rapier creating massive spires of jagged cyan ice that freeze the remaining beasts solid. Red watches the clean teamwork from the back, nodding in approval. He notes that his rookie investments are actually performing quite well, not even needing him to step in and carry the match. He ignites a few small orange fire embers around his shoulders, just in case, while Kay keeps channeling the dark vortex, his white hair nearly returning from the strain. Inside Kay's head, the panic is setting in again. He realizes this barrier isn't just basic mana, it carries a highly volatile, dark force that feels exactly like his own void power. He knows if he loses focus for even a microsecond, the barrier might reverse the flow and eat his color instead. He grinds his teeth, commanding his void to push harder, declaring that in a pure power struggle, he is the stronger monster. With a final sharp crackle of black lightning, the last of the barrier is sucked dry. Kay collapses forward, panting heavily as he looks down. The barrier is gone, revealing a massive, pitch-black, bottomless pit. Red walks up, patting his shoulder and praising his useful utility. He tells Gale and Ellie to fall back and regroup, stating there is no need to waste more color on the minor wolf mobs. But suddenly, Red's eyes go wide. He lunges forward, grabbing Gale and Ellie by their collars and violently throwing them backward. A massive, high-speed crescent of black dark energy slices across the entire cave floor. The remaining shadow wolves are vaporized instantly, leaving a deep, smoking trench in the solid stone. The rookies hit the ground, completely horrified by the sudden attack. Gale looks up, sweating bullets, as he asks what kind of monster just entered the lobby. The dust clears, revealing a massive tiled platform across the chasm. Red's face goes completely serious, his lazy demeanor vanishing into thin air. He mentions they had reports of a highly dangerous, rogue entity patrolling this deep sector, but he didn't expect the legendary wanderer to show up on their very first run. The heavy thud of a colossal dark sword echoes through the cavern, as a terrifying figure clad in a tattered black cloak steps into the light. Half of his face is mutated into a jagged black mask with a single glowing white eye, identical to Kay's void form. Red hands Kay his glowing lantern, his voice dropping to a low, commanding tone. He tells the three rookies to jump straight into the bottomless pit and find the Stella fragments on their own. Kay is horrified, shouting that they can't handle a Deep Ruins raid without an S-rank carry. Red doesn't even argue, literally raising his hand and pushing all three of them off the edge. Kay, Ellie, and Gale scream as they plummet into the dark abyss, leaving Red standing alone on the cliffside to face the half-masked boss monster. The giant dark sword begins to crackle with black lightning as Red ignites his hands with S-rank fire, preparing for a catastrophic clash. Meanwhile, Kay is falling through a seemingly endless void of black wind. He slams hard against a solid concrete surface, groaning in physical pain as he raises the lantern. He stands up, holding his bruised side, and shines the light forward to check his surroundings. The moment the beam hits the dark expanse, Kay's eyes go wide with absolute, speechless shock. He is standing on a massive highway bridge, surrounded by colossal, ruined concrete skyscrapers and modern office buildings. He looks at the post-apocalyptic underground skyline, whispering, "What is this place?" Kay wanders through the concrete desert, looking up at the shattered glass of the modern high-rises. He cannot believe a literal 20th century city is buried miles beneath the dirt of this fantasy world. Ellie and Gale finally catch up to him, complaining about how dark it is. The green-haired kid is already bickering with Ellie, blaming her for getting them lost in the rubble. Kay interrupts them, asking if they have any idea what kind of civilization built these massive structures. Gale looks around, sweating as he admits he has never seen this level of ancient architecture in any historical textbook. He scowls, pointing out that finding a tiny stela fragment in a ruins this massive is basically like searching for a needle in a haystack. Kay sighs, internally wishing his loyal shadow cat Nero was here to act as his mineral radar. Suddenly, a tiny, high-pitched cue echoes from his cloak, and Nero pops his round shadow head out, floating right in front of Kay's face. Kay's heart skips a beat. He is completely panicking because he just exposed his illegal shadow pet to 2 elite pioneers. He freezes, trying to think of a lie to explain the high-value black market creature on his shoulder. But then he realizes there is no point in hiding Nero forever if they are going to be working in the same squad. If he can prove Nero is a massive utility asset rather than a dangerous beast, they might actually let him keep him. He clears his throat, calling Gale and Ellie over for a quick meeting. He smiles, declaring that he just found them a guaranteed cheat code to locate the stela fragment. The logo pops up as we see the high society nobles staring down at a round black blob. Kay explains that this little guy is his personal trained companion, and he has a passive skill that tracks down high-density ink. Ellie Cyan is currently holding Nero in her arms, her icy noble mask completely melting as she squeezes the cute shadow cat. While Gale is having a massive theoretical breakdown, claiming a rare, obedient shadow creature like this is mathematically impossible. Kay just tells Nero to show this green-haired non-believer what he is actually capable of. Nero squeaks, leaping out of Ellie's arms and flying into the air. His body begins to compress, spinning into a tight, dark spiral, and he explodes into a blinding, high-intensity white light, acting as a literal floating light bulb. Gale and Ellie stand there, their jaws hitting the concrete floor in absolute disbelief. Nero projects a long, swirling white beam of energy that snakes through the ruined highway, pointing them in the exact direction. Gale grinds his teeth, completely unable to cope with the fact that the broke, colorless kid has a legendary tier pet. They start marching down the path, following the glowing trail through the shattered concrete pillars. Kay walks alongside Nero, asking if he can feel the unique frequency of the stela fragment nearby. Nero nods his head, his white eyes narrowing with serious focus as they descend into a dark, underground subway tunnel. He flies ahead, his light illuminating the rusty steel tracks and collapsed ceilings. Suddenly, Nero stops, his light beam pointing straight down into a massive, reinforced steel bunker entrance. Kay shines his lantern over the heavy blast doors, realizing they have reached the bottom of the map. The atmosphere feels incredibly heavy, cold air escaping from the seams of the metal. Kay hesitates, but Gale smirks, asking if the rookie is already too scared to enter the boss room. Kay scowls, telling him to shut up as he steps forward and pushes the heavy doors open. They walk into a massive, high-tech hangar bay filled with old server racks and glowing blue lines. The architecture looks like a top-secret modern military facility rather than a fantasy dungeon. Ellie looks around, noting that the sheer scale of this subterranean lab is far beyond the city's current engineering capabilities. Nero suddenly squeaks, his light trail pointing at a massive, metallic cargo capsule in the center of the room. The capsule begins to hiss, thick white steam shooting out of the pneumatic valves. With a heavy metal clack, a massive, retro-futuristic iron robot drops onto the concrete floor, cracking the tiles. Kay leaps back, his combat instincts screaming as the massive machine raises its heavy iron head. The robot stands over 8 feet tall, thick copper pipes and steam exhausts flaring on its shoulders. Gale draws his sword, realizing this is definitely not a normal biological creature. In the center of the robot's chest plate, a circular glass core is visible, filled with a swirling, liquid gray ink. The robot's single glowing white eye begins to wear, locking on to the 3 intruders. Suddenly, a bright, digital scanner beam sweeps across the room, analyzing their elemental colors. A digital HUD pops up over Ellie, registering her ice element as hex code WSTAC 81CFF4U, a registered blue element. The scanner shifts to Gale, registering his wind mana as hex code WSTAC 7DA97CU, a registered green element. But the moment the laser sweeps over Kay, the HUD turns a violent red. It reads his void aura as hex code #000000H, pure, absolute black. The robot's internal speakers crackle, a cold robotic voice echoing through the chamber. Color of the Black Witch detected. Classified as an S-rank threat, beginning immediate removal. The robot's heavy iron arm piston punches forward, creating a massive sonic boom. K is barely able to cross his arms in time, the raw physical impact launching him 50 feet across the hangar. He slides on his knees, grinding his teeth in pain, as his forearms burn from the shockwave. Gale and Ellie jump in to cover, launching a flurry of wind blades and ice spikes directly at the machine's joints. The attacks hit with a loud metallic ring, but they don't even leave a scratch on the heavy iron plating. The robot swipes its massive arm, shattering the ice spires into tiny frozen fragments. K runs back into the fray, realizing his normal physical punches are completely useless against this high-density metal armor. The machine raises its heavy fist, preparing to crush him into a paste, but Ellie slides underneath, her rapier deflecting the heavy strike with a brilliant flash of blue mana. Gale lands a heavy wind slash from the side, but his blade bounces off the robot's shoulder like cheap plastic. Ellie yells that their elemental attacks are completely bouncing off because the machine is made of an unknown, magic-resistant alloy. Kay looks at the swirling glass container in the chest, realizing the liquid ink core is the power source. He dodges a heavy foot stomp, the concrete floor shattering beneath him as the air splits. He realizes he cannot afford to play passive anymore. He needs to use his actual color. The robot turns its eye back to him, its chest vents shooting hot steam. It swings its arm down like a massive hammer, but Kay slides to the left, channeling his black void energy directly into his right hand. He knows coating his entire body in the black beast form will drain his life force instantly, so he concentrates the entire void aura into a single, high-density point around his right fist. The black smoke wraps around his knuckles, crackling with dark energy. He leaps off the ground, launching himself straight at the machine's chest. He throws a straight, black aura punch directly into the circular glass core. The glass shatters with a deafening crack, the black void violently devouring the liquid gray ink. The robot's eye instantly goes dark, its massive steam vents letting out a final, sputtering hiss as it collapses into a pile of dead metal. Kay lands gracefully, letting out a heavy breath as his black hair settles back down. He looks at the broken iron corpse, totally relieved that he didn't trigger a full mutation rampage. He spots a small metallic orb rolling out of the shattered chest cavity. He picks up the ancient high-tech core, smiling as he thinks about how much Mari is going to love analyzing this sci-fi engine. Gale runs up to him, absolutely fuming as he yells at Kay for holding back his boss-killing move until the very last second. Kay sweat smiles, lying that the black fist trick drains 90% of his mana pool, so he can only use it as a last resort. Suddenly, a heavy mechanical clunk echoes from the back wall of the hangar. A hidden blast door slowly slides upward, revealing a pitch-black corridor. Nero squeaks, flying straight into the dark doorway without even waiting for the team. Kay runs after him, shouting for his Shadowcat to wait up. He stops at the entrance, staring into a strange, swirling black distortion field that looks like liquid oil floating in the air. Ellie warns him that the portal carries the exact same dangerous frequency as the dome barrier they saw above, but Kay is too curious, slowly reaching out and pressing his bare fingers against the swirling black liquid. The moment his skin makes contact, the doorway violently erupts. A massive, high-intensity gravity vortex tears open, pulling all three of them forward. Kay, Ellie, and Gale are sucked straight into the dark void, their screams echoing through the lab. They tumble through a pitch-black expanse, falling onto a cold, hard stone surface. Kay groans, rubbing his head as he sits up in the absolute darkness. He raises his hands, trying to summon a small drop of his black mana to act as a flashlight, but when he reaches deep into his core, his chest feels completely hollow. Gale stands up next to him, grabbing his chest in sheer, vegetative horror as he realizes his vibrant green color has been completely erased. Meanwhile, way above the monster-infested dirt, the local bureaucracy is having an absolute meltdown inside the Eastern Administration Office. The high-level director slams his hands on his desk, looking like his blood pressure is currently reaching atmospheric levels. He screams at his assistant, asking if they have tracked down Team Leader Red, only to find out the S-rank slacker is currently running an illegal field trip with a highly volatile rookie. The director is literally losing his mind, screaming about the color black being taken into an active deployment zone. He rants that Red is going way too far this time, S-rank legend or not. He points out that when the black shadow monster flattened the industrial ward, they had to cover it up with a mountain of lies to keep the citizens from panic selling their property. Now the city council is screaming that the forbidden black tide is starting again, and he is the one who has to get chewed out in the meetings. He turns around, begging for some helpful excuse from the woman casually sitting in his guest chair. Meet Camellia, the captain of the Dawn Pioneer Corps, currently drinking tea with the energy of a manager who showed up just for the free snacks. She tells him to relax, pointing out that Red is the most reliable safety device the city has, and he definitely wouldn't bring Kay along without a plan. She calmly sips her tea, stating that what the city needs right now is not fear, but trust. Then she takes a sip, making a face like she just drank straight pool cleaner. She complains about how bitter it is, while the director dumps a whole bowl of sugar cubes into his cup, wondering how she even survives on that diet. He yells at her to focus on the conversation, and Camellia just waves him off, saying she is not deaf. She drops the playful tone, noting that everyone is terrified of the color black, because of the legendary Black Witch, who nearly wiped out humanity during the first Black Tide. The historical flashbacks show how humanity had to reclaim the toxic black lands inch by inch, sacrificing millions of lives to build the walled city. She explains that with the sudden surge in strange phenomena lately, they need every single drop of firepower they can get. She tells the director to go convince the high-level council to utilize K as an asset, even if his void color is considered a historical taboo. The director sighs, holding his head and muttering that it is way easier said than done. He looks down at K's official profile papers, wondering if the future of the entire Shining City is actually going to revolve around this nameless, colorless kid. Cut right back to the pitch-black void, where the rookies are currently having a terrible time. Gale is grabbing K's cloak, screaming about his green wind mana being completely erased. He demands to know why K still has his black color active, and K just sweats, guessing it is because his void color is built different. Gale collapses, gasping for breath, and complaining that his entire body feels like it has been hit by a heavy debuff. K looks at him, wondering why the noble prodigies are having a physical crisis while he feels completely fine. But then, K feels a bizarre, high-frequency static buzzing inside his ears. He focuses his eyes, and suddenly, he can see a faint, glowing core of magic swirling inside the rookies' chests. The pitch-black air around them begins to whisper, a chaotic echo of distorted voices filling the space. Gale draws his sword in a panic, swinging at the empty air and screaming for the hidden ghosts to show themselves. K listens to the whispers, realizing this voice is incredibly familiar, but slightly different from the demon inside his head. Suddenly, a giant, shadowy female silhouette with long hair materializes from the dark. Ellie and Gale freeze in sheer terror, their minds completely failing under the pressure of the hallucination. Gale mutters that it is a high-level creature, but the silhouette has no physical mass. The shadow woman reaches out, stretching a single long dark finger toward K's chest. K is completely paralyzed, unable to move as the finger touches his heart. His eyes go wide, and his entire consciousness is violently pulled into a torrent of ancient memories. A giant, swirling violet and blue stargate opens across a ruined modern city. Massive, god-level dragons and black shadow giants are tearing the skyscrapers to pieces under a blood-red sky. A horde of faceless, white-eyed monsters stands beneath a giant black sun, looking up at their leader. We get a close-up of the Shadow Woman's cold, glowing white eyes. The vision shifts, showing a younger, white-haired K looking up at the sky. K is internally struggling, trying to process if these apocalyptic scenes are memories or real-time visions. A warm, gentle voice echoes in the white space, telling him he needs a name. The silhouette of a smiling young man appears through a screen of rainbow static, saying, "K, that is your name." The voice tells him to go find his own light and color, and K snaps back to reality, falling to his knees and clutching his head as the vision shatters. He is sweating bullets, panting as he tries to make sense of the high-level sci-fi lore he just witnessed. But the name that keeps echoing in his skull is Lumiel. Before he can even stand up, Gale starts screaming again, swinging his sword like a wild animal at imaginary targets. The green-haired kid has completely lost his mind to the dark influence, screaming about killing everyone, while Ellie is curled in a ball, crying and begging her older sister for forgiveness. The visual representation of their trauma is incredibly heavy, showing black tears running down their faces as they relive their worst nightmares. K realizes his teammates are genuinely not okay, and if they stay in this pocket dimension any longer, their brains will turn to soup. Suddenly, a bright cue breaks the heavy atmosphere. Nero floats down from the ceiling, looking completely unaffected by the elemental drain. He wiggles his round body, pointing his tail toward the far end of the dark corridor. K understands the signal, realizing Nero has found the exit path. But first, he has to do something about the two screaming noble heirs currently having a panic attack on the floor. He asks Nero if he can use his light source ability to act as a magical barrier. Nero squeaks, releasing a massive, blinding dome of pure white light that traps Ellie and Gale inside. The black smoke hovering around their heads evaporates instantly, and their breathing starts to calm down. K tells them to stay put inside the safe zone while he goes ahead to speedrun the objective. He charges down the long, empty concrete highway, following the white light trail. He is running at superhuman speed, but the corridor feels like a procedural, endless hallway. The creepy whispers start echoing again, filling the dark air. The voice says, "No color can ever stain you," and K grumbles that he is sick of hearing these cryptic lines on repeat. Suddenly, a brilliant star of pure white light erupts at the end of the tunnel. K kicks off the ground, sprinting toward the source of the energy. The light is so intense he has to block his face, and he stops right in front of a giant, ancient stone altar. Hovering in the center of a massive glowing cross is the target, the Stella fragment. K looks at the swirling rainbow energy, noting that its shape is completely different from the crystal diagrams he saw in the textbook. He figures each fragment must have a unique custom skin, and reaches his hand out to grab the glowing orb. The moment his fingers touch the surface, a massive vortex of multicolored elemental mana erupts. K's entire body lights up like a neon sign, his absolute absorption automatically activating for a split second before he manages to slam his willpower down and stop the drain. He pulls his hand back, gasping, but the glowing orb is safely in his palm. With a sharp glass shattering sound, the entire pitch-black pocket dimension crumbles away. They are back in the gray-scaled ruins, and Kay walks over to Gale and Ellie, asking if they are feeling any better. He proudly holds up the glowing rainbow sphere, showing off the completed quest item. Gale and Ellie look at the tiny orb, amazed by the sheer density of the elemental colors swirling inside. Gale asks if Kay's body is actually fine after holding that much raw energy, and Kay just laughs it off, saying he is perfectly healthy. Suddenly, a giant white mouth opens up in the background. Nero literally flies down from the ceiling, opens his face, and swallows the Stella fragment whole in a single bite. Kay's face goes completely pale, his jaw dropping to the floor. Gale and Ellie look like they are about to have a synchronized stroke. We open right on Kay trying to perform a rescue operation on his shadow cat, screaming that Nero just ate their ticket out of poverty. Gale literally grabs Nero by the tail, shaking him upside down like a clogged ketchup bottle, while Kay yells at him to stop abusing his pet. Before they can start a physical fight, the ceiling above them violently cracks. Massive concrete pillars and boulders start raining down on the platform. The entire ruins are undergoing a structural collapse, and the rookies have to scramble toward the exit gate. Meanwhile, back on the surface of the Black Lands, Platoon 21 is busy packing up their gear. Arancia, the orange-haired platoon leader, walks along the edge of a deep trench, her face dead serious. She examines the massive, smooth sword cuts sliced into the solid stone, her assistant sweating, as he notes that these clean cuts can only mean one thing. The Sword Demon, a legendary battle-crazy boss monster known as one of the Witch's Black Hands, has officially spawned in their sector. She explains that whenever this entity appears, a massive surge of high-rank beasts always follows in his wake. She immediately calls off the rest of the operation, ordering a full retreat to avoid getting her rookies wiped out. She tells her squad they secured enough raw materials anyway, so it is time to pack up the lobby. Suddenly, a massive, earth-shaking explosion rattles the entire canyon. A towering pillar of bright crimson flames erupts from the deep ravine in the distance. Arancia recognizes the high-intensity flame signature instantly. It is Team Leader Red's S-rank magic. She realizes Red is currently engaged in a life-or-death battle with the Sword Demon. And right on cue, a massive black dark energy wave is launched from the crater, heading straight toward her retreat path. She screams at her rookies to get down, drawing her colossal, steam-powered alchemical hammer from her back. She charges her weapon with a dense circle of orange spark mana, swinging the massive hammer down and creating a colossal shockwave that completely vaporizes the incoming dark slash. She lands gracefully, declaring that the main expedition is officially over. She orders her vanguard assistant to lead the remaining rookies back to the forward military outpost, while she goes to assist Red in the main boss arena. She vaults off the cliff, launching herself toward the firestorm like an orange comet. Down in the crater, the battle is reaching catastrophic scales. Red is clashing swords with the Sword Demon, the impact of their blades shattering the stone floor into thousands of floating pebbles. The Sword Demon draws a massive, ancient dark spear from his back cape, his single glowing eye locking onto Red's face through his black mask. He spins the spear, unleashing a massive, drilling tornado of pitch-black dark mana that rips through the stone. Red crosses his arms, creating a dense, cross-shaped firewall to block the drilling force, but the impact is so heavy, he is forced to slide back, his boots melting the rock. The Sword Demon doesn't even let him breathe, leaping through the firestorm to deliver a high-speed vertical slash. Red barely parries with his sword, the shock of the impact traveling all the way up his arms. He looks at the mask, realizing this entity has gotten significantly faster since their last encounter. He unleashes a massive, close-range eruption of lava-like fire to create some distance, forcing the monster to leap high into the air. But as the Sword Demon hovers in the smoke, Arancia drops from the clouds like a meteor. She smiles, calling it a nice bait attack from her colleague. She raises her colossal hammer high above her head, laughing as she tells the demon to try dodging a vertical smash. She slams the massive alchemical hammer directly onto the demon's head, creating a massive concussive explosion that craters the canyon floor. The Sword Demon is driven deep into the stone, the shock traveling through the whole valley. Arancia lands next to Red, her hammer emitting thick white exhaust steam. Red smiles, thanking her for the timely support. She tells him to stop saying ridiculous things, looking deeply stressed that she had to save his lazy skin again. But as they are talking, the rubble at the bottom of the crater begins to shift. The Sword Demon slowly rises from the dust, his tattered black cloak floating around his shoulders, completely uninjured. Red shrugs, saying that with her hammer and his fire, they can easily handle this troublesome bastard. She tells him to stop joking and go all out from the start, igniting her hammer with a massive orange magic circle on the floor. She declares they are going to break another one of the Witch's Black Hands, right here. We get a full-body splash of Arancia in her combat stance, looking absolutely badass, while the sword demon stands quietly, his dark aura flaring like ink in water. Suddenly, a weak, groaning voice calls out from the edge of the pit. Gale and Ellie are slowly dragging themselves up the cliffside, complaining about the near-vertical climb. A bruised, dirt-covered hand grabs the edge of the stone, and Kay crawls out, panting and muttering that he is never going back into that underground labyrinth. He collapses on his back, totally exhausted, while Nero floats behind his shoulder with a full tummy. But the moment the rookies emerge, the sword demon's glowing white eye shifts slowly toward them. He completely ignores the two S-rank leaders, igniting his boots with black smoke and launching himself toward the rookies at Mach speed. Red yells at them to get back, warning them not to try and fight it, but the monster is already closing the distance, looking like a black blur. Gale grinds his teeth, drawing his B-rank Spoit windsword, while Ellie draws her ice rapier, trying to build a defensive wall. They launch a coordinated green and blue strike at the incoming demon, but the sword demon simply swipes his dark blade once. The elemental clash is over in a millisecond, and both of their expensive, tempered magic weapons are shattered into tiny, useless fragments. Gale looks at his broken hilt, realizing he is about to get sliced into pieces. But before the blade can touch Gale's neck, Kay lunges across the dirt. Kay physically blocks the strike with his own body, the dark sword piercing straight through his chest. He spits a massive spray of blood, his eyes losing focus as he falls hard onto the stone floor. Gale is completely paralyzed with shock, staring at his rival's bleeding, motionless body. The sword demon moves with terrifying efficiency, knocking Gale out with a heavy elbow strike. He grabs Ellie Cyan by her throat, lifting her off the ground with one hand and holding a massive dark blade to her neck. Red and Arancia run up, but are forced to halt as the demon holds their high society noble rookie hostage. The sword demon speaks in a deeply distorted, double-toned voice. Hand it over. Ellie is struggling to breathe, her face turning pale as the blade draws a thin line of blood on her neck. Red's face goes completely dark, a shadow casting over his eyes as he stares down the monster. On the ground behind them, Kay is lying in a pool of his own blood, Nero crying and wiggling around his head. Red lets out a slow, terrifyingly cold breath. This bastard. The sword demon commands them to decide quickly, tightening his grip on Ellie's throat. Ellie groans in pain, her hands weakly clawing at the demon's iron wrist. Arancia is shaking with rage, screaming at the demon to let her rookie go. She demands to know what key he is even talking about. But then, a heavy, suffocating wave of pure, absolute pressure drops over the entire canyon. The sword demon's glowing eye violently twitches as he senses a monster-level presence rising directly behind him. He turns his head slowly, and his jaw drops under his black mask. Kay's bleeding body is standing upright, his head tilted down as a massive, towering storm of pitch-black liquid void mana erupts around his entire frame, his right arm fully mutating into a jagged shadow beast claw. The screen fades to black on this legendary cliffhanger. The sword demon is looking at our guy like he just saw a dead man walk. Because he did. Kay is standing there, completely blacked out, looking like a literal boss fight. The air around his hand is warping. He reaches out, and the sword demon actually has to dodge. Our guy just lunged with enough speed to break the sound barrier. On the sidelines, Arancia and Red are watching this unfold in real time. The sword demon tries to block, but Kay is already behind him. Arancia is screaming at everyone to get back. Red's face says it all. He's wondering if Kay just crossed the point of no return. He thinks the kid might have actually turned into one of the Black Witch's monsters. The sword demon swings. The blade hits nothing but shadow. Kay's single glowing eye is locking onto him. And right now, the boss realizes exactly what is happening. Dark jaws with teeth literally erupt from Kay's aura, snapping at his face. The sword demon draws his second blade, cutting through the shadow constructs in a desperate defensive circle. He realizes he can't capture Kay alive like this, so he decides to take his limbs first. A massive dark shockwave rips through the dirt, direct hit. Except there's no blood. The blade is stuck. Kay is literally holding the edge with his bare hand. The black aura is climbing up the steel. The sword demon is losing his mana. He's being eaten. For the first time, this S-rank threat is panicking. But before our guy can finish his lunch, Arancia drops in like a meteor. She's got her massive alchemical hammer fully charged. The impact splits the ground. The sword demon blocks it, but the sheer force throws him back. He's bleeding from the mouth. He looks at Arancia's glowing hammer, then looks at Kay. He knows he's outmatched now. He's found the key, and that's enough. He turns and books it. Arancia is absolutely livid. Chief! He's running. He's heading straight for the depths, but someone is already waiting for him. Red looks like he's done playing around. He grips his blade. Chroma, ManhwaRecap. A line of pure, condensed crimson light cuts the entire cavern in half. A severed arm hits the floor. The sword demon grunts, clutching his bleeding shoulder. Red's flame mana is burning the wound, preventing his regeneration. Red steps up. Now we can really go at it, don't you think? He launches a flurry of burning slashes, pinning the boss down. The sword demon uses his remaining dark mana to trigger a massive cave-in, melting into a dark void portal to escape. He's gone. Arancia wants to dive after him, but Red calls her off. She's throwing a whole tantrum because they lost him. But Red is looking at his blade. They aren't prepared for what's waiting in the depths. The dark wilderness itself is acting like the enemy's shield. They have to turn back. Chief! Ellie steps forward, pale and apologetic. She thinks she was just dead weight. But Red's attention is on something else. They all look at Kay. He's still standing, enveloped in dark fumes. Red is sweating. He knew Kay was dangerous, but this is a whole new level of S-rank liability. Our guy is literally standing there, absorbing the toxic mist of the Black Land through his boots. Then, the dark smoke starts to clear. Kay's hair shifts, the black fades, Red's jaw drops, the silver-white hair is back, and Kay just collapses face first into the dirt. Everyone is staring. Gale looks at him like he's a foreign exchange student who just did a backflip. He has no idea what he's looking at. Meanwhile, deep in the dark, the injured sword demon is kneeling in a pool of his own blood, still burning from Red's S-rank flames. He's trying to regenerate his arm, but it's not working. Then, a voice echoes from the ceiling. Wow, you look like absolute garbage. The sword demon's single eye narrows. It's Viper. These two creepy, green-haired twins are literally mocking him while he's missing an arm. They point at the red sparks on his shoulder. You fought Red, didn't you? And you actually survived? The sword demon tells them to shut up and get lost. The twins laugh. Well, a guy who burns his own life force to fight will probably self-destruct anyway. Then, their smiling faces turn cold. They ask if he noticed it too. The Black Witch's veil. It opened. The sword demon says nothing. He wants the key for himself. He walks away. The twins watch him go, snickering. They think he's an idiot. They don't need his help. If we keep moving creatures around like we've been doing, the clue is bound to show up. Deep in the dark, a massive, multi-tentacled shadow beast rises behind them. Shall we get ready to raise a tide? Back in the Shining City. We're in a clean, quiet hospital room. Kay is asleep in bed, and Red is standing over him. Red is looking at his cracked gold watch, feeling the weight of the situation. He promised no one would get seriously hurt, and his rookie S-rank recruit nearly died. I take full responsibility. He's holding the watch tight. Some hero I am. Ellie speaks up. She tells him they are lucky to be alive at all. She thanks Red for getting them out safe. And there's Mari, sitting by Kay's bedside. She's pale, but quiet. She is internally panicking because the most famous colorist in the city is standing in her local clinic. She has no idea how Kay ended up in a squad with S-rank investigators, but she's glad they don't seem like bad people. She's just waiting for Kay to wake up before she loses her mind. Red turns to her. You said your name was Marie? He asks her if she knows where a small creature is. We're looking for Nero. Gale's eyes go wide. He points at the bed. There! The little brat is right there! Nero is currently poking his head out from under Kay's pillow, sweating. Gale starts yelling about how hard it was to explain where the Stella fragment went. He lunges to grab him and gets hit directly in the face by a flying shadow blob. Nero lands perfectly in Mari's arms. Nero! I was so worried! She holds him tight. Red looks at Nero, narrowing his eyes. Something is off. Nero's mouth starts to glow, and he casually spits out a massive swirling rainbow orb. What the? He spat it back out! The Stella fragment. Red catches it in his hand. He looks at it, quiet. Another piece. To think how many sacrifices were made for this. Inside Kay's mind, the battle is still raging. He sees the sword demon's blade swinging down. He has to save them. His eyes snap open. He sits straight up, screaming. Where is he? He looks around. Clean walls. White sheets. No demons, just a very confused squad. Then, he looks at his hands. White skin. Silver hair. No black color left. He's fully colorless. He's panicking. If they see him like this, his cover is blown. They'll throw him back to the slums, or worse. Red looks down at him. Lift your head. Why the long face? He looks at the glowing Stella fragment in his hand, then back to Kay. I don't care what you look like. You gave a spectacular performance. Red smiles. Welcome to the Red team. Kay is frozen. Yes. Red pockets the fragment and heads for the door. I have to go deliver this to Lady Luminous. The door closes. Ellie steps up. She says she won't pry about his secrets, but asks if he remembers what happened after he went black. Kay fakes memory loss. Honestly, it's all a blur. Ellie sighs. She's not buying it, but she lets it slide. But how are you going to get your black color back? Mari grins. Oh, don't worry about that. She rummages in her bag and pulls out a dark glass jar. Found it! Black ink! Ellie's face turns pale. Are you serious? That's literal waste from the disposal site. It's poison! Kay doesn't care. He pops the cap and starts chugging it like a post-workout protein shake. The black aura instantly flares back to life. His hair turns pitch black. Phew. Now I feel alive. Ellie is staring at him like he's a biological hazard. Gale has had enough of the casual chatter. He walks towards the exit, but he stops, looking at Kay's arm. Your arm, it's back to normal. Regenerating an entire arm is high-level healing magic. A colorless rookie shouldn't be able to do that. Gale grabs Kay by the collar. More importantly, answer me. Why did you jump in front of that blade? Kay is sweating. Because you guys were in danger, and I thought my absolute absorption could stop it. Gale grips his shirt tighter. Don't give me that trash! Who said I needed your help? His face is twisted in frustration. I fucking hate your guts! Kay is just blankly staring at him. Mari is screaming at Gale to let go. Gale lets go of Kay's collar, his hand trembling. He turns his back, and he walks out without another word. Ellie watches him go, then looks at Kay. She says she'll be off as well. Let's put our match on hold for a while. She leaves. Mari sighs. Shall we head back to the workshop, Kay? Yep. Oh, right. I have a present for you first. Kay reaches into his inventory shadow. He pulls out a massive, heavy piece of metal from the high-tech ruins. It's the head of the automated guardian. Mari's eyes light up like it's Christmas. She's a mechanic. This is pure gold. Elsewhere, Red is walking down a massive, high-ceilinged cathedral. Brilliant white light is pouring from the stained glass. At the top of the grand stairs, a figure is waiting. She's surrounded by a shifting, rainbow-colored aura. Welcome back. I have been waiting for you. Red looks up, his lazy smile returning. He holds out the Stella fragment. Just as you predicted, Lady Luminous. We are now able to open the Black Witch's curtains. We open back at the workshop. Mari is currently having a full-blown mechanic meltdown over the Guardian core Kay brought home. She is looking at it like she just found a fully working PS5 in a dumpster. Kay is just sitting in the back, looking completely exhausted. He has no idea why she is this excited about a rusted metal sphere. She explains that this is ancient tech, the kind of stuff that would make the official Pioneer Corps drool. Our guy suggests selling it for cash, which almost gets him hit with a wrench. Mari wants to tear it apart to build him custom gear instead. Seeing her this happy makes Kay realize that taking down that giant robot was actually worth the trauma. He gets up to leave, but Mari stops him. She has a warning. While she was down on Shadow Street looking for refined ink to save his life, some incredibly sketchy people cornered her. Kay heads out into the streets, processing this information. He is tired, his mana is low, and he just wants to sleep for 3 days. But as he walks, he notices the atmosphere in the slums is different. There are way too many desperate-looking refugees crowding the alleyways. Usually, the underground gangs keep these people hidden, so something major must have changed. Suddenly, Nero pops out of his cloak. He is pointing frantically toward a dark, empty alleyway. Kay tells him to relax, but we all know Nero's threat detection radar is never wrong. Our guy decides to check it out. He decides this is the perfect time to test a new trick he has been practicing. He remembers how his vision warped during his awakening, letting him see hidden energy flows. He focuses his black mana directly into his eyes, activating inverted vision. And the alleyway is no longer empty. There is a massive, blinding rainbow light standing right there. Kay freezes. He only knows one person who can radiate that kind of raw light energy. The Luminous, the literal god empress of the Shining City. But before he can even process why she is here, his brain decides to start glitching. The voice is back. The dark, scratchy voice from the void. It is screaming inside his head, clawing at his skull. It wants that light. It wants to eat her. Kay grips his head, his eyes turning completely pitch black. The void is telling him to devour the god empress right now. Luminous notices the sudden spike in dark energy. She watches him struggle, completely calm. She did not even have to do anything to trigger him. She says Red told her about this, but seeing it in person is much more fascinating. She mentions the Black Witch, Nyx. She admits the city council wanted to execute him on the spot, but she personally vetoed the decision. She wants to use his forbidden power. She believes the city cannot afford to be picky if they want to survive. She steps forward, suggesting a friendly conversation. The light around her flares, snapping Kay back to his senses. He drops to one knee, gasping for air. That was the loudest the voice has ever been. She asks if he heard the whisper of the Black Witch. Kay lies, claiming it is just a random headache. Luminous smiles. She tells him to relax and thanks him on behalf of the entire city. Kay has no idea what he did to deserve her gratitude. Then she reaches out, showing him the Stella fragment. Since you retrieved this precious light, you deserve our thanks. Our guy tries to play it down, saying his team did most of the work, but she cuts him off. The team is secondary. What matters is that Kay did something impossible. He opened the Black Witch's veil. She explains that the Stella fragments are scattered across the dark wilderness, but most are locked behind the veil. The city forces are constantly dying in the outer lands, just trying to find a single exposed piece. Kay is still confused. He still does not understand why this shiny rock is so important. Luminous realizes she needs to show him instead of explaining. She tells him to keep this a secret. The light around her expands, warping the entire space. The dark alleyway dissolves, and suddenly, they are standing on a golden platform high above the clouds. Kay is panicking because they just teleported across the entire city in a fraction of a second. Luminous holds the fragment up. Watch closely. She releases the energy. A massive beam of pure light shoots directly into the sky. The sky itself splits. A shockwave of golden energy ripples across the horizon, and Kay's jaw hits the floor. The thick, black fog of the Black Lands is literally being peeled back. The darkness is retreating, reclaiming miles of habitable land for the city. That is the power of the fragment. Meanwhile, back in Mari's memory, she remembers the sketchy guys who cornered her in the slums. They knew her name, and they knew she was connected to the rookie who wields the color black. She tells Kay she ran away immediately, but he needs to be careful. Kay tells her to stay safe and walks back out into the street. He is unsettled. If people are already tracking him to the slums, his peaceful life is officially over. He realizes he is a moving target now. Suddenly, his instincts flare. He spins around. A figure is standing right behind him in the dark. He demands to know who is there. The figure vanishes into a blur of light. Kay is not letting them escape. If this is the person targeting Mari, they are getting cleared immediately. He sprints down the alleyway, chasing the residual light traces. He turns the corner and runs directly into a massive pillar of light. He covers his eyes. The alleyway is gone. He is standing in a quiet, illuminated garden. He was just in a filthy slum alley 2 seconds ago. The spatial warp is instant. A voice speaks behind him. As expected, "You are interesting." Kay jumps back, dropping into a defensive stance. He demands her name. She smiles, her rainbow eyes glowing in the dark. "I am Celestia." The next morning, the entire city is in an absolute uproar. Newspaper boys are screaming about the miracle. Luminous has successfully pushed back the dark fog and reclaimed new territory for humanity. For the first time in decades, the city can expand. Everyone is celebrating, thinking they are finally safe. Pioneers are already planning to secure mining rights to the new lands. Kay is sitting in a local cafe, reading the paper with Nero. He realizes this miracle was only possible because they brought back that single Stella fragment. He remembers Celestia's warning. The Black Hand is going to hunt him relentlessly once they realize he is the one opening the veil. But she promised the city would protect him as long as he keeps working for them. She explained that the city is burning through its resources just to stay alive, and she cannot leave her post to guard him personally. Many will fear your power or try to exploit it. She told him to keep acting like a normal pioneer to blend in. And then she sent him back. He still remembers those weird, rainbow eyes. There is something deeply unsettling about her, but he does not have a choice. He puts the paper down. He is off duty today, and he needs to figure out his next move. He remembers Mari crying about running out of ink for her workshop. Since he has some free time, he decides to do some old-school mining. He walks up to the massive gates of the gathering hall. He never thought he would be allowed to walk through these doors. This is the hub where all licensed pioneers gather to take missions. When he was colorless, the guards would have beaten him just for looking at this place. Now, he walks in proud, but the moment he steps inside, the entire room goes dead silent. Everyone is staring. The rumors about the rookie who wields the color black have already spread. They are whispering, calling him eerie, wondering what kind of monster Red recruited. They are gossiping about the S-rank reward his squad is getting. Up on the balcony, some familiar faces are watching him. Lavian is leaning over the railing, highly intrigued by the rookie. He asks Arancia how Kay performed on the S-rank field trip. Arancia admits he was impressive, but warns that his power is highly unstable and dangerous. He is someone they need to keep under constant surveillance. Lavian smiles. Kay of the Black. Fascinating. Kay ignores the stares and walks up to the counter. The receptionist asks if it is his first time and welcomes him warmly. She hands him the registration forms so he can get his official emblem, suggesting some low-risk mining missions to start. But in the corner of the hall, a group of veterans is watching him with pure jealousy. Look at that disgusting color. Is he even human? They are calling him a freak, complaining that the Dawn Pioneers are making a fuss over nothing. The red-haired boss of the Hater Squad sits quiet, his face twisted in annoyance. He is staring at Kay like he personally insulted his ancestors. That black-headed brat is an eyesore. He hates that a lucky rookie got recruited by an S-rank team on his first day, while B-rank veterans like him are ignored. He stands up, his lackeys immediately falling into line. Follow me. Let's go give this freak a proper purification. We cut to the outer mining ruins. Kay is working, chipping away at the stone, and he is absolutely cleaning out the mine. He has a massive pile of chromatic ore. The city yields have been down lately, but Kay has a literal cheat code. These ores are highly valuable, used to fuel advanced weapons and steam engines. He is already smiling, thinking about how happy Mari is going to be when he brings this back. His inverted vision is basically a hack. No matter how dark the mine is, the high-purity ores glow like neon signs in his eyes. He jokes to Nero that he might not even need his radar skills anymore. He finishes the job much faster than expected. If he brings this much back at once, it will draw way too much attention. He decides to kill some time in the quiet cave by practicing his skills, specifically his primary ability, Ink Drain. Right now, he can only absorb color through direct physical contact, and it often goes out of control. He needs to learn how to manipulate it. He picks up a high-purity blue ore. He tries to drain it slowly, but his void power immediately eats the whole thing, turning it into white dust in a second. Our guy is internally crying because that crystal was worth a week of rent. He realizes he has to be much more delicate. He remembers that when he heard those dark whispers, the colors felt alive, moving on their own. He wonders, since black is a combination of all colors, can he isolate and use individual elements? He decides to focus. He tries to mimic Team Leader Red's flame element, focusing on the memory of S-rank fire. He concentrates, his hand glowing with a faint, warm red spark. The red energy crackles and immediately explodes in his face, shattering the stone. It is definitely not as easy as it looks, but he is not giving up. He keeps practicing until the sun goes down. Eventually, he packs up, carrying 2 massive bags of ore on his shoulders. He definitely got too greedy. His back is screaming. He walks toward the exit of the cavern, only to find his path blocked. The salty hater squad from the gathering hall is standing there, smiling. Good to see you, you little rookie. Our guy is just staring at them, completely unbothered. The hater squad has our guy cornered on the path, and they are treating him like a fresh tutorial mob. Kay asks them who they are, which is the polite way of saying they are completely irrelevant to his day. The lackeys notice his heavy sacks are literally glowing with high-grade chromatic ore, and their eyes turn into cartoon dollar signs. The red-haired boss steps up, smiling like he just won a raffle. He figures if he squeezes this rookie a bit, he can steal his mining location. He orders his boys to teach Kay a lesson, warning him not to try dodging. Our guy just stands there, completely blank. He drops his sacks of ore onto the dirt. The purple jacket lackey laughs, thinking the rookie is submitting without a fight. He reaches for the bags, telling Kay to stay nice and quiet, but Kay's fist is already moving. One punch. The lackey is literally folded in half, his head bouncing off the stone floor before he even realizes his nose is gone. Kay sighs, telling them to stop wasting his time and come at him all at once. The rogue lackey pulls a dagger, screaming in rage. He lunges, but Kay easily slips the blade and drives his fist directly into the guy's jaw. The impact shakes the cave, blasting the rogue through a solid rock wall. The boss's smug smile is starting to look extremely fragile. The giant green brute tries to catch Kay off guard with a heavy slam from above, but Kay catches the massive fist with one hand. He twists the brute's wrist, flips his giant body over like a sack of potatoes, and drives a heavy punch directly into his sternum, shattering the ground underneath. 3 veterans down in about 15 seconds. Kay brushes off his cloak, completely calm. If you want someone else's stuff, you have to pay the price. Suddenly, a high-speed ruby spike grazes past his face. The impact tears through the cliffside behind him. Kay barely dodged that. He looks back at the massive crater in the rock. That projectile had enough piercing power to drill through a tank. The boss is standing there, holding his custom-refined crystallization gun. He is annoyed our guy managed to slip the shot. I could have sent you to the afterlife in one shot. He starts ranting about how he worked his way to B rank, while some rookie got an S rank spot through pure luck. He cannot comprehend why the top colorists are obsessed with a disgusting color like black. He decides he is not just going to break Kay's bones anymore. He is going to kill him and bury the body where no one will ever find it. He pulls the trigger. A barrage of glowing red crystal bullets rips through the air. Kay is running, dodging the projectiles by inches as they explode against the stone. He closes the distance, his fist ready to end this. But the boss is actually a veteran for a reason. He blocks the strike. They clash in a blur of punches and blocks, sparks flying. The boss is pushed back, grunting. He aims his gun directly at the floor. A massive shockwave of growing ruby spikes erupts from the ground, forcing Kay to jump back. Kay is impressed. That gun is not firing standard bullets. It is projecting dense crystallized mana. The boss explains his color is crystallization, allowing him to materialize ruby and hematite. Combined with his custom dropper, his ammunition is essentially infinite. He calls the black color trash compared to his crimson gems. He fires another massive volley of crystal lances. Kay takes cover, analyzing his opponent. The boss is actually skilled, and that gun is a major pain. Our guy wants to try absorbing the projectiles directly, but he remembers getting stabbed by the sword demon. If he tries it recklessly, he will get another hole in his chest. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms behind him. The green brute woke up, grabbing Kay's arms in a tight lock. The boss smiles, seeing his opening. Kay tries to shake him off, kicking back, but the giant brute holds on with everything he has left. Shoot him, boss! Hurry! The boss charges his dropper, firing a massive, high-density crystal round directly at Kay's chest. Kay's eyes focus. The impact splits the air. The boss laughs, celebrating a clean hit that should have turned the rookie's chest into minced meat. But the smoke starts to clear. Kay is still standing. The boss's eyes go wide. What? There is not a single scratch on him. Kay is staring at him, black hole-like vortexes of dark mana spinning on his shoulders and chest. He used his black veil to absorb the kinetic energy of the bullet. Our guy starts walking forward. The boss panics, screaming and firing his gun frantically. Kay just keeps walking, the black vortexes on his body devouring every single bullet like snacks. The boss's infinite ammo is suddenly completely useless. Why stop? Keep shooting. This is the skill you were so proud of, isn't it? Kay's eyes turn dark. If you're out, then it's my turn, right? The boss is shivering, calling Kay a liar, refusing to believe a rookie could walk through his best attack. He aims his gun again, his hand shaking. But Kay knows he cannot keep this up forever. The black veil is effective, but it burns through his dark mana faster than a high-end graphics card. He needs to end this. He needs to get rid of that annoying gun. He looks at the crystallized mana traces left on his hands. Mind if I borrow this for a bit? Kay focuses his absorbed crystallization mana, materializing a massive, pitch-black crystallized spear in his hand. The boss's jaw drops. What? Our guy actually smiles. He has only ever used his fists until now, which was a major weakness. But while he was absorbing the boss's ruby bullets, his body got a feel for how to shape the crystal. Thanks for showing me something useful. Kay leaps into the air, swinging the massive dark spear down. The impact splits the ground, forcing the boss to roll away. The boss tries to fire back, but Kay casually swats the crystal bullets out of the air with his new weapon. He is closing the distance, completely ignoring the gunfire. Since we are already here, be my sparring partner. He leaps, bringing the spear down again. The black crystal spikes erupt from the ground, pinning the boss. The boss is sweating. This is impossible. Kay is literally using his own specialized technique against him, but with much higher density. Let's try a different shape. The spear dissolves, reforming into a massive, pitch-black scythe. Kay swings, a clean arc-like slash that cuts directly through the boss's custom crystallization gun, slicing it clean in half. The shattered pieces of his prized weapon hit the floor. The boss is staring in absolute horror. His dropper was S-rank certified, and it just got deleted in one swing. He realizes this is not a normal fight. He is looking at a monster. Kay lets the scythe dissolve, panting. The crystallization skill is cool, but it is way too expensive for his current mana reserves. He looks at the unarmed boss. So, what now? You have no weapon left. If you want, you can come at me barehanded. Not that it will help much. The boss goes completely berserk. He is a B-rank pioneer, and his pride is currently in pieces. He unleashes his remaining mana, covering his arms in thick ruby armor. He does not need a gun to kill a rookie. He is going to use his bare hands to tear Kay apart. He launches a furious charge, projecting a storm of ruby crystal spikes. Kay stands his ground, blocking the incoming shards with his fists. The impacts are heavy, but Kay's physical stats are S-rank. He focuses his dark mana onto his right arm, materializing a solid black crystal shield. He charges directly through the storm of ruby spikes, shattering the boss's defensive crystal barrier. The shield dissolves as Kay leaps through the debris. The boss's eyes go wide. Kay's fist is already loaded. A brutal right hook connects directly with the boss's jaw. The force of the punch leaves him dazed, blood flying from his mouth. But Kay is not done. He grabs the boss by his red collar, pulls him close, and slams him headfirst into the stone floor with a massive impact. The boss lies on the ground, coughing blood, completely defeated. Kay stands over him, looking completely bored. Done throwing a fit now? I am busy enough as it is, and you are just making me waste energy. The boss looks up, his face pale with fear and hatred. He cannot accept that a rookie just demolished his entire team. He calls Kay a monster, screaming that his power is not normal. You creep me out, being born with black in the first place. He yells that anyone can see Kay as a freak. Don't tell me you've never felt it yourself? He tells Kay he can walk around acting normal, but he is just a monster wearing human skin. The words echo in Kay's mind, bringing back memories of the dark slums, of being called colorless, of being treated like garbage. The hater keeps screaming, calling him subhuman. Kay looks down at him, his eyes going completely cold and lifeless. The absolute void inside him starts to rattle. Then, Kay smiles. A cold, empty, terrifying smile. What are you even going on about? He grabs the boss by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Since you are so interested in my power, I will show you how it actually works. You tried to steal my stuff, so I should get something from you too, right? Let's make it fair. The dark mana erupts from Kay's hand, enveloping the boss's throat, as his S-rank absolute absorption starts to drain his crystallization color, leaving him screaming in agony. Our guy is currently standing in a dark cave, staring at a pile of unconscious bodies. Leaving them completely bleached of color is a massive rookie mistake. Right now, the city is curious about his black color, but if they find 4 pioneers turned into empty gray husks, they will instantly brand him a monster. He needs a quick cover-up. He starts rummaging through their pockets and pulls out a bottle of personal ink. He literally cracks the boss's jaw open and pours the red ink straight down his throat. It is the manual reset button. The ink slowly kickstarts their core, restoring just enough color so they do not die. He does the exact same thing to the rest of the lackeys. We cut to the east entrance of the shining city. The city guards are standing by the gates when they spot something bizarre near the wall. It is the hater squad, tied up like a holiday roast, looking pale and completely drained. The guards assume they just got wrecked by monsters in the Black Lands. Kay watches from the shadows, slipping through the gates completely undetected. Phew! Luckily, I wasn't caught. He walks back into the bustling streets, carrying his heavy bags of mined ore. If things get complicated, he is banking on Red to bail him out. He heads straight for the slums. He slides the door open. Mari, I'm back! Mari spins around, holding a soldering iron. She is furious because he vanished for days without a word. Kay just grins. He dumps the 2 massive sacks of high-grade chromatic ore onto her table. Mari's eyes go wide. She is looking at enough raw materials to fund her workshop for a year. She goes completely wild, jumping up and wrapping Kay in a giant hug. Kay, you are literally the absolute best. While she is celebrating, Kay's vision suddenly sparkles. It is the same phenomenon he saw with Gale. In his eyes, Mari's chest is glowing with a warm, brilliant golden light. He realizes that even though they both grew up in the darkest corners of this city, Mari has always been the one to smile and comfort others in the dark. That golden color perfectly suits her. Mari lets go, telling him she has a surprise of her own. She reveals she has been working on a custom weapon just for him. A custom spoit gauntlet. With the new ores he brought, she can upgrade the specifications to his heart's content. She walks over to her forge, muttering about designs. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echo from the entrance. I knew you'd be here. Kay turns around, surprised. It is Ellie, Sion, and Gale standing in the doorway. Kay immediately goes on the defensive, asking if they are here to fight again. Gale looks away, irritated. He has been training non-stop to beat him, but that is not why they are here. Ellie explains that the Pioneer Corps has officially summoned their squad. Lady Luminous herself praised their S-rank achievement. Mari immediately grabs Kay's arm and pushes him out the door. She tells him to go get his reward, promising to have the gauntlet finished by the time he gets back. Kay smiles, telling her he is looking forward to it. They arrive at the massive, white stone Dawn Pioneer Corps headquarters. An assistant leads them down a grand, high-ceilinged corridor. Kay is looking around, completely blown away by the scale. The walls are decorated with historical achievements, trophies, and legendary weapons of high-tier pioneers. They stop in front of a pair of massive double doors. They step inside the Grand Captain's office. Sitting behind a giant desk is a young, pink-haired woman. Hello, I am Camellia, the leader of the Dawn Pioneer Corps. Kay is frozen. He is looking at one of the legendary multicolor wielders in the city, a celebrity he has only ever seen in the papers. Camellia lifts a fancy teacup, smiling. She says she was shocked when Team Leader Red actually praised some rookies for once. Especially Kay, the first black color wielder, who has the city leadership sweating. She takes a giant sip of her tea and immediately spits it out with a disgusted face. Bitter. Lavian, her assistant, looks completely exhausted. She tells Camellia to show some dignity in front of the rookies. Camellia clears her throat, trying to regain her composure. She gets down to business, presenting their rewards. First are the Pioneer personal safes, containing their official bonuses. The rookies open their statements. Kay's eyes nearly pop out of his skull. The amount of credits listed is astronomical. It is enough to buy a literal house in the inner city. Next, she presents them with C-rank Pioneer badges, skipping their probationary period entirely. These badges grant them high-tier access throughout the Shining City. And finally, the Elite Color Workshop has agreed to craft custom weapons of their choice. Gale and Ellie are stunned. Even for wealthy nobles, getting an appointment at the Color Workshop is almost impossible. Camellia smiles. The Dawn Pioneer Corps is a VIP partner, and they deserve the finest gear. She tells them they can visit the Lumina district to collect their weapons later. Welcome to our Pioneer family. We need strong forces to stand against the Black Earth. Her pink eyes flash. She notes that the Stella fragment they brought back is vital to the survival of the city. Kay walks out of the headquarters, feeling like he is on top of the world. He looks at Nero. Nothing but good things are happening today. He is officially a C-rank pioneer, with enough money to change his entire life. He heads back to the slums, eager to share the news with Mari. He reaches the workshop, but notices the door is slightly ajar. Mari? He steps inside. The room is completely trashed. Tools are scattered on the floor. The forge is dark. And Mari is gone. Meanwhile, at the eastern forward base, alarms are blaring. Monsters are breaching the perimeter wall. Pioneers are fighting a losing battle against a colossal dark bull demon. They are screaming for backup as the creatures keep pouring from the fog. Up on the cliff overlooking the battle, some familiar faces are watching. Viper, the green-haired twins, are sitting on the ledge, laughing at the struggle. They think this attack is way too weak compared to the historical waves of the Black Witch. To bring down that disgusting city, we need something much more decisive. One of the twins turns her head toward the glowing wall of the Shining City. The sword demon, standing in the shadows behind them, tells them going back inside is suicide. The twins giggle, calling him stupid. They reveal there are narrow maintenance tunnels connecting the Black Lands directly to the Undercity, back in the ruined workshop. Kay is frantically searching every corner, screaming Mari's name. Nothing. The workshop is completely empty. His eyes land on the scattered tools. This was not a robbery. She was targeted. The memories of the slums and the corrupt thugs flashing in his mind. Nero pops out, making a soft sound to get his attention. He is pointing toward the work table. Kay walks over. Sitting on the table is a sleek, metallic gauntlet. The custom spoit Mari was building for him. It is finished. Kay's face turns cold. He focuses his black mana, activating inverted sight. And there it is, a sparkling trail of golden mana, Mari's unique color, leading out of the door. He realizes exactly what is happening. The underground gang that was looking for him used Mari as a hostage to lure him out. Kay's fist clenches, his black mana violently flaring around his fingers. Trash of this city. You're the ones who picked a fight with me first. He picks up the custom gauntlet. He straps it onto his forearm. The metal locks into place, fitting perfectly. The moment he channels his black mana through it, he feels the difference. The efficiency is insane. The gauntlet acts as a stabilizer, preventing his mana from leaking. Let's go, Nero. They step out into the rain. Kay tracks the golden trail of light through the dark alleys of the slums, past the crowded vagrants and broken pipes. The trail stops in front of a massive, dark maintenance entrance. It is a vertical shaft leading straight into the deep underground.
Haha! See?
I told you I was right. A group of armed thugs steps out of the shadows, surrounding him. Standing at the front is a familiar face, the corrupt green-haired wind pioneer from Act 1, the hater K drained of color in the alley. He has returned with a faded green color, looking for payback. K does not even blink. Where's Mari? The wind pioneer laughs, screaming that K turned his life into a complete wreck. He had to crawl at the very bottom of his organization just to buy enough ink to restore a fraction of his color. He says their leader, Lord Blanc, ordered them to bring K in alive, but nobody said he had to be in one piece. He orders his goons to attack all at once. K raises his custom gauntlet. A solid, razor-sharp black crystal blade materializes from the gauntlet. Trash doesn't deserve mercy. He moves. The blade cuts through their weapons in a single, high-speed flash. In a blur of motion, he decimates the front line. The Wind Pioneer is terrified, his eyes wide. He channels his remaining green wind mana, launching a desperate, crescent-shaped slash. K blocks the wind blade with his gauntlet, the black vortexes of his shield devouring the energy instantly. He closes the distance and drives his fist directly into the wind thug's face. The thug hits the floor, spitting blood. K stands over him. Honestly, I don't like hurting people. But scum who kidnap innocent people are a different story. The thugs are all laying broken on the floor. K looks at the wind thug with cold, dark eyes. Doing garbage like this, and calling yourself a pioneer? You're disgusting. He grabs him by the throat. The thug screams as K triggers his absolute absorption, completely draining his wind color once again. K drags his half-conscious body toward the maintenance shaft. You're coming with me. I need a guide. Without hesitating, he jumps directly into the deep dark pit, falling through the vertical shaft. The wind thug is screaming in terror as they plunge. K looks down at the sprawling, neon-lit underground city appearing below them. We are officially at the bottom of the food chain. Our guy is currently using his green-haired hostage as a human shield, and he is not in the mood for customer service. The thug is still trying to talk big, warning K that he is stepping into the territory of a syndicate called the Shadow. He tells K his life is basically over now that he has been marked, which is a very brave thing to say while your windpipe is currently being compressed like an empty soda can. K has one simple rule. Keep your mouth shut and keep walking before he decides to test how much pressure your neck can take. They emerge into the main streets of the Undercity, and honestly, the view is depressing. It is a subterranean city built in a massive pit, completely untouched by the divine light of the surface. Down here, the colorless do not just work the mines. They survive by doing whatever dirty work the syndicates throw at them. But for K, this dump is personal. This is the exact spot where he met Mari for the first time when they were kids. The green-haired thug is sweating bullets, but he has got a nasty little grin on his face. He thinks K is just a stupid kid walking straight into a slaughterhouse. He leads him deeper into the dark alleyways until they step into a wide, hollow concrete chamber. And surprise, surprise, they have got a welcoming committee waiting for them. Dozens of armed enforcers are lining the catwalks, trapping K in the center of a literal pit. The thugs immediately start laughing, mocking K's black hair and calling it a depressing, dirty color. Then, the guy in charge steps out of the crowd. This is the underboss of this district, sporting a top hat and looking like a discount Victorian villain. The green-haired hostage immediately wiggles free and runs to his boss, begging for help. But the boss is not looking at K. He is looking at his subordinate, specifically at the fact that the green-haired thug has been completely drained of his wind element, and in a syndicate called the Shadow, there is no union for employees who lose their color. With a quick wave of his hand, the boss slashes him down. He drops him like trash, complaining that he wasted his time. K does not even blink. He has seen enough of how these people treat each other. He looks the top hat boss dead in the eye and asks one thing. Where is Mari? The boss just laughs, telling K he should have thought twice before coming down here alone. He hints that if K keeps acting tough, it is only going to make things worse for the girl. He even cracks a joke about what his men might have already done to her. And that is the exact moment the boss's life insurance policy expires. K raises his right arm, and the custom gauntlet Mari built for him begins to hiss. A massive, swirling vortex of dark mana erupts from his hand, tearing up the concrete floor. The boss's smug grin instantly evaporates. Before anyone can react, K leaps into the air and slams his fist into the center of the crowd, causing a shockwave that sends bodies flying like bowling pins. Meanwhile, deep inside the facility, a massive orange-haired man is sitting on a couch, his eyes open as the ceiling starts to shake. A panicked scout bursts through the door, screaming that the black kid is destroying the entire entrance hub. The giant gets up. He is not happy about his nap being interrupted. Back in the chamber, the top hat boss is absolutely losing his mind, screaming at his men to block the hallway. But K is already moving at Mach speed, punching his way through the crowd so fast they cannot even track his movements. The boss is sweating, wondering if this kid is some kind of mutant. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over the corridor. The top hat boss looks up and breathes a sigh of relief. The executive has arrived. The giant looks at the pile of unconscious thugs and scolds his men for failing to capture a single teenager. He looks at Kay, his eyes narrowing. He can feel the raw density of the black mana, and he realizes this kid is actually strong. The top hat boss starts hyping him up, screaming that the giant is a former A-rank pioneer. He tells Kay it is too late to beg for mercy. The giant does not waste time talking. He charges. He moves with unbelievable speed for his size, shattering the stone floor as he lunges forward. Kay meets him head-on, throwing a straight right punch. Their fists collide, and the shockwave blows away the dust in a wide circle. The giant smirks, thinking he has got the upper hand. He raises his arm, aiming a massive overhead smash straight at Kay's skull. Kay raises his arms to block the impact, and the sheer force of the blow craters the ground beneath his feet, burying him in rubble. But Kay is not down. He shakes off the dust, his expression completely flat. The giant rushes in again, throwing a wild right hook. Kay slips under the punch, letting the massive arm pass harmlessly over his head. He reaches out with his open palm and plants it right on the giant's armored chest, activating his signature drain. The giant gasps as his eyes widen in pure shock. He can feel his elemental earth mana being violently pulled out of his core. It feels like a black hole is draining his strength from the inside out. Panicking, the giant unleashes a massive burst of raw earth energy, forcing Kay to back off. He stumbles back, panting and glaring at Kay. He realizes he cannot afford to play around with this kid's weird magic. The giant's skin begins to harden, and massive, jagged stone spikes erupt from his arms and shoulders. He is fully activating his A-rank earth element, encasing himself in a heavy, spiky stone armor. Kay stands there, observing the thick rock defense. He realizes his bare-knuckle punches are not going to cut through that density. He needs to change tactics. He taps the dial on his custom gauntlet, channeling his black mana directly into the core. The air in the room suddenly turns freezing cold. A thick, pitch-black fog rises from the floor, wrapping around Kay like a cloak. The giant freezes, feeling an ominous pressure that makes his spine tingle. In the dark fog, dozens of black crystal blades, spears, and halberds begin to materialize, hovering in the air behind Kay's silhouette. Our guy has just opened his personal armory. The black arsenal is ready. The fight resumes with an absolute bang as the entire concrete facility begins to collapse. Kay launches himself forward, raining down a barrage of black crystal weapons from the sky. The giant executive blocks with his stone-plated arms, but he is visibly sweating. He has never seen anyone materialize solid weapons out of pure, formless dark mana before. Kay grabs a massive black spear mid-air, spins it around his back, and slashes downward, chipping away huge chunks of the giant's rock armor. Without missing a beat, he lets go of the spear, grabs a dark crystal executioner's axe floating next to him, and drives it straight into the giant's shoulder, shattering the stone plating like glass. He swaps weapons again, pulling a massive scythe out of the dark void, and slashes across the giant's chest, leaving a deep, dark mark. The giant is struggling to keep up as Kay keeps swapping weapons mid-swing, aiming exclusively for his head. Every time a black weapon strikes his armor, the rock plates dissolve into fine gray sand, draining his defense. He realizes this kid isn't just cutting him, he is devouring his elemental shield with every touch. The floating black weapons around Kay look less like magic and more like a firing squad. The giant screams in frustration, his pride as an A-rank pioneer completely shattered. He gathers all the remaining earth mana in his body, channeling it into his right arm. He decides to put everything into one final strike, completely ignoring his boss's orders to capture Kay alive. The rock spikes on his arm fuse together, forming a massive, rotating stone drill point. He lunges forward, screaming his ultimate technique, Angle of Destruction. The stone drill tears through the hallway, shattering support pillars and causing a massive dust explosion. A massive shockwave ripples through the Undercity, blowing out windows across the entire block. The dust slowly begins to settle, and the giant is panting, confident he just vaporized the kid. But as the smoke clears, his jaw drops. Kay is standing in the middle of the crater, holding the massive stone drill with his bare hand, and the giant's stone arm is already beginning to rot, turning gray and crumbling into dust. The black mana is traveling up the drill, draining his life force directly into Kay's gauntlet. The giant stumbles back, realizing this kid has got way too many cheat codes active. Kay slowly walks out of the smoke, his eyes cold and empty. The giant tries to raise his fists to guard, but suddenly, his left hand stops moving. He reaches up to touch his face and realizes his entire left eye has gone completely black, blinded by the void rot. Before he can even scream, Kay is already in his blind spot, delivering a devastating left hook right to his jaw. The giant drops to his knees, spitting blood and gasping for air. He can feel his strength fading, his A-rank mana reservoir completely bone dry. The gray scaling is spreading across his chest and neck, turning his skin into cold, brittle stone. He glares at Kay, cursing him for using the black void like a cheap poison. Kay looks down at him, his silhouette twisting into a dark, creepy smile. He asks a simple question. Why should he fight fair? He grabs the giant by the neck, activating his absolute absorption for one final drain. The top hat boss watches from the corner, shaking like a leaf as his top executive is turned into a stone statue. He cannot believe his A-rank champion was just cleared out in under 5 minutes. He screams in terror, calling K a monster. The giant statue crumbles to the floor, completely lifeless. K slowly turns his head toward the top hat boss, clenching his gauntlet, and his glowing white eye tells the boss exactly what is coming next. Meanwhile, deep inside the laboratory, Mari slowly opens her eyes. She rubs her head, complaining of a massive headache. She is strapped to a chair in the middle of a dark room, illuminated by a single spotlight. A voice chuckles from the darkness, telling her he has been waiting for her to wake up. Mari looks up and spots a tall figure standing in the shadows, holding a clipboard. The man is looking at a profile of Kay, commenting on how fascinating it is that a colorless kid managed to manifest a color so late in life. He looks at Kay's picture, noting that he actually seems to have human emotions now. He says that the Kay he remembers from the old days barely even seemed human. Mari's eyes go wide. She recognizes that voice. She remembers the cold, sterile rooms, the white lights, and the terrified children huddled together. She whispers his name. Blanc. The man steps into the light, revealing his long purple hair and glowing round glasses. He smiles warmly, like an old friend, and welcomes her back. Mari is shaking, asking how he is still alive after his old laboratory collapsed years ago. Blanc laughs, admitting it was a very close call. He shows her a scar on his face, explaining how he got lucky and managed to crawl out of the rubble. He says life is unpredictable, and he still remembers everything about her and Kay. After all, they were his very first, most precious lab rats. He brags that he is much more successful now, having been promoted to an executive of the Shadow Syndicate. He tells her he has so much to show her, boasting about how much his research has progressed. He flips a switch, and the massive steel doors behind him slide open, revealing a gigantic, high-tech laboratory chamber, and the sight is absolutely horrifying. Dozens of colorless adults are chained together, being marched like cattle by armed guards. In the corners, groups of young colorless children are huddled together, crying in fear. Along the walls are massive iron cages, holding terrifying, mutated void beasts that hiss and growl in the dark. Mari covers her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes as she realizes this nightmare is still happening. A lab assistant rolls in a cart filled with glowing, colorful test tubes. Mari looks at the colorful liquid, horrified, and asks if he is still doing the same illegal extractions. Blanc picks up a bright purple vial, holding it up to the light like a prized trophy. He smiles like a complete psychopath, welcoming her to his brand new, upgraded extraction system. Meanwhile, the Undercity is currently having a bad day. Massive structural collapses are shaking the slums, and the local miners are running for their lives. They think the syndicates are going crazy again. But this isn't a gang war. It is just one highly motivated teenager dragging 2 unconscious elite enforcers through the dirt. He drops them like wet bags of cement and looks at the path ahead. He has finally reached the heavy steel vault doors leading to the main laboratory. He turns back to the top hat underboss, asking if this is the spot. The underboss is literally crying, begging Kay to let him go since he did everything he was asked. Kay is not really big on leaving witnesses. He knocks him out cold with a single quick punch to the jaw and steps forward. Nero pops out of his collar like a little shadow gopher. Our guy asks him to point out the direction with the strongest golden mana trail. Nero squeaks and points to the right. But before Kay can move, another massive wave of masked lab enforcers floods the grand stairs. Kay looks at his fading black hair and realizes he is running on fumes. He doesn't have time to fight these guys one by one, so he decides to copy a move he just learned from his last fight. He focuses his dark void mana into his right arm, shaping it into a massive, jagged black crystal drill. He lunges forward, tearing through the entire staircase like a human wrecking ball. Inside the clean, brightly lit laboratory, Blanc is humming a tune while organizing a cart of colorful tubes. Mari is glaring at him from her chair, calling him completely insane. She asks him how he can keep doing these horrific experiments. Blanc looks back, completely relaxed, and tells her there is no need to be so dramatic. He says he actually feels grateful to her and Kay because their childhood suffering is what made his current research possible. He points to a massive copper cylinder in the center of the room. Right on cue, 2 guards drag a terrified colorless prisoner toward the hatch. The prisoner begs for mercy, but the guards just beat him down with heavy clubs. They shove him inside the dark chamber and slam the massive metal hatch shut. The steam valves on top begin to hiss. Blanc smiles, enjoying the show. A thick, glowing red fluid begins to flow through the glass pipes, dripping into a sterile glass flask. Mari watches in pure horror as the container fills up. She realizes absolutely nothing has changed. He is still running the exact same butcher shop as before. Blanc holds up the glowing yellow flask, calling the color beautiful and radiant. He admits his early childhood experiments on Mari were sloppy, and he ended up wasting all the color he extracted from her. But then he had a brilliant idea. What if he could extract the latent, hidden potential inside any human soul? He says it isn't just restricted to humans. He can extract colors from wild monsters too. He believes this glowing liquid is the literal soul and identity of the victim, and he can manipulate it at will. And after years of research, he has finally created his masterpiece, Mixed. He holds up a dark purple vial, explaining that he is currently testing its various properties. For example, he recently discovered that wild beasts, which are naturally drawn to elemental colors, can be controlled if you feed them this compound. Mari is shaking with rage, asking how they can be so calm about turning living people into juice. She asks him if he really thinks the surface pioneers are just going to let him get away with this. Blanc just smiles. He says he expected this kind of reaction, but honestly, he genuinely does not see what is wrong with his methods. He claims his genius is simply too far ahead of his time to be understood by normal people, which makes Mari scream that he is nothing but a disgusting murderer. She tells him that if he loves color so much, he should just try extracting it from his own filthy body. Blanc's face goes completely blank for a second. Then, his creepy smile returns. He tells her he already tried that. Mari freezes. Blanc unbuttons his right sleeve, explaining that there is no way he would create such an incredible technology and not use it on himself. He drops his leather glove to the floor, revealing a high-tech, fully mechanical gray prosthetic arm. He says that when his research was complete, his own soul shone with a gorgeous, deep purple hue. He extracted his own color and keeps it stored in a safe vault, just in case he needs it later. Mari covers her ears, screaming at him to shut up because nobody asked for his villain origin story. Blanc chuckles, apologizing for getting carried away, but he has one more surprise for her. He knows Kay has entered the Undercity. In fact, kidnapping Mari was the perfect bait to lure him straight into his parlor. He says his enforcers should be capturing him right about now, because even with the power of the Black Void, taking on that many guards alone is impossible. He orders his men to drag Mari back to her holding cell. In the meantime, he has to prepare for a very important guest who is coming to purchase his Mixed. He turns his back, completely confident that everything is going according to plan. Suddenly, the ceiling begins to buckle. Blanc stops. The guards look up, confused. A massive, deafening explosion shatters the concrete roof. Tons of heavy rubble rain down, crushing the expensive research equipment and sending the scientists running for cover. A thick cloud of gray dust fills the chamber, and through the haze, a familiar dark silhouette appears. Mari's face lights up as she recognizes him instantly. Our guy has arrived. Meanwhile, up on the wealthy surface, the elite pioneer headquarters is currently having a panic meeting. The counselors are furious, asking why the black kid they were monitoring is currently starting a riot in the Undercity. An aide reads the surveillance report, explaining that Kay is currently speedrunning through various syndicate outposts to find a kidnapped friend. Camellia, the pink-haired Dawn leader, is casually lounging in her chair, defending her decision to keep tabs on him. She points out that they are currently short-staffed because the Black Tide is expanding rapidly at the borders, forcing them to deploy almost all their active pioneers there. Even S-rank team leader Red had to deploy to another fortress because Collector and Jester of the Black Hand were spotted nearby. Counselor Hudson suggests sending their peacekeeping forces down to the slums to secure Kay's safety, but the grumpy counselor with the monocle completely disagrees. He argues that deploying surface forces into the Undercity will only trigger a massive counterattack from the syndicates, throwing the whole city into chaos. Besides, he admits he still does not trust Kay's forbidden black element. He says just thinking about the disaster a fully grown black wielder could cause in the future gives him the chills, so he suggests using this opportunity to let the syndicates quiet him down permanently. Hudson is shocked, but the monocle guy is completely deadpan. The argument goes back and forth, but Hudson stands his ground, reminding them that Kay is the only asset who can clear the Black Dome barriers. Even Lady Luminous saw his potential. Hudson declares he will take full responsibility for the Undercity deployment. The monocle counselor just glares at him, expressing his deep disappointment in Hudson's irrational behavior. Hudson doesn't care. He tells him he will try to meet his expectations next time. The monocle counselor leaves the room, grumbling that this was a complete waste of time. Once he is gone, Camellia looks at Hudson and tells him he worries too much. She smirks, offering to lighten his burden. She decides to send 2 members of Team Red, along with the peacekeeping force, namely the ice prodigy Ellie Cyan and the wind rival Gale. She hopes that eases his worries a bit. Hudson watches them prepare, hoping they can settle everything cleanly before the city burns. Back in the destroyed laboratory, the dust is still settling around Kay's feet. Blanc is staring at him, absolutely baffled that he bypassed his entire security force. Kay is panting slightly, looking at his hands. This isn't good. The long fight and the rapid sprint through the facility have drained almost all his black mana. His hair is showing faint streaks of gray, but he forces himself to focus on his main objective. He taps his gauntlet, summoning his black crystal weapons. He triggers his arsenal of malice, launching a massive storm of dark blades across the room. Blanc yelps, diving out of the way as the blades shave off his hair. The black blades shred through the guards behind him, pinning them to the walls. The stray spikes smash several glowing glass tanks, spilling elemental ink everywhere. K doesn't even watch them fall. He is already sprinting forward. He leaps over the rubble and knocks out the two guards, holding Mari with a lightning-fast double kick. He lands smoothly in front of her, the dust swirling around them. Mari looks up, her eyes wide with relief. K looks back at her, his expression softening just a fraction, and apologizes for being late. Nero jumps out of his collar, diving straight into Mari's arms. Mari hugs the little shadow blob, thanking them both for coming to save her. Kay gives her a quick nod. Around them, the captive colorless prisoners realize the guards are down and start running for the exit, screaming that they are finally safe. Blanc slowly gets back on his feet, dusting off his coat and sighing that his little rabbits are running away. But he quickly shrugs it off, saying he can always find more raw materials later. He smiles warmly at Kay, telling him how happy he was when he heard he awakened a color. He calls Kay a unique specimen and admits he is dying of curiosity to see what his black void looks like under a microscope. Kay just stares at him, his face completely cold. He asks Mari if this is the guy from their childhood. Mari confirms it, her voice trembling as she calls him the bastard who tried to drain them dry years ago. Kay's eyes narrow as he realizes Blanc is the source of all their childhood nightmares. Blanc pulls out 3 tubes of his mixed compound, suggesting they skip the small talk and begin the experiment. He tosses the bottles at Kay's feet. The glass shatters, spilling the glowing yellow and purple fluids onto the floor. Kay looks down at the puddle, confused. Mari immediately screams a warning. That specific liquid is a pheromone that attracts wild beasts. Blanc chuckles, stepping back and pulling a heavy lever on the wall. He says he doesn't like getting his hands dirty when he fights. The iron cage gates along the walls slide open with a loud screech. Blanc smiles, declaring it is feeding time, and dozens of black, sharp-toothed void beasts flood into the chamber. The monsters catch the scent of the spilled mixid and charge straight at Kay and Mari. Kay steps in front of Mari, summoning a pair of black crystal daggers. He leaps into the pack, slicing through the first wave of beasts in a flurry of dark cuts. He manages to kill several of them, but his movement is noticeably slower than before. Blanc watches from the balcony, noting that the power of normal colors usually fades after prolonged use, and Kay's black mana is no exception. But Blanc's mechanical arm is designed to bypass that limitation. He raises his prosthetic hand, activating his extraction field. A stream of black void particles is pulled directly out of the air, condensing inside a glass tube in his palm. Blanc is practically drooling, absolutely thrilled to finally have a sample of the legendary forbidden black color. Down below, the void beasts keep coming, their numbers seemingly endless. Kay is forced on the defensive, blocking claws and teeth with his breaking crystal shields. Mari is watching from behind, her heart sinking. She can see his silver-white hair spreading fast. He is on the verge of color exhaustion. She knows that if Kay tries to absorb the life force of these toxic void beasts directly, the corruption might kill him. She looks around the room, desperate to find a way to help. Then, her eyes drop to the floor. The broken glass tanks have spilled highly conductive, raw elemental ink all over the concrete tiles. She spots a massive, high-voltage electrical console nearby. Mari pulls her screwdriver from her pocket, yanks open the panel, and starts hot-wiring the generator. She grabs 2 thick, insulated power cables, pulling them out with all her strength. She sparks the heavy brass copper tips together, creating a massive arc of blue electricity. She screams at the top of her lungs, telling Kay to jump and not touch the wet floor. Kay hears her and immediately leaps into the air, and Mari slams both live cables directly into the wet puddle of ink. A blinding, roaring blue current of high-voltage lightning arcs through the entire wet chamber, frying the entire pack of void beasts in a massive, crackling electric shockwave. The smoke is still clearing from that massive electrical shockwave, and Lord Blanc is looking at his fried monsters like a kid whose favorite toy just broke. All of his precious masterpieces are completely done for. Mari yells at Kay to seize the opening while the mad scientist is distracted. Kay slides in, placing his hands on the dead beasts, and begins his favorite meal plan. The custom gauntlet hums as it filters the residual dark mana directly into his core. Blanc turns around and sees a massive black vortex forming around Kay. And instead of running away like a normal person, he is absolutely thrilled. He points a trembling finger, muttering about how spectacular the forbidden black color looks up close. He calls Kay a bottomless pit of greed that devours everything in its path. He is literally begging Kay to share just a single finger's worth of power for his research. Kay does not answer with words. He launches himself across the room at maximum speed, aiming a direct punch at Blanc's face. Blanc blocks it with his metallic prosthetic arm, sparks flying as steel meets fist. He sighs, admitting his extraction arm isn't really built for straight combat, so he decides to take a shortcut. He loads 2 fresh vials of his green and purple mixed compound directly into his arm ports. A thick, glowing aura of corrupted magic wraps around his arm, shaping his prosthetic hand into a sharp, jagged energy blade. Blanc laughs, screaming that they actually have a lot in common. He says they are both parasites who steal colors from others for their own pleasure. He lunges, his wind-infused blade slicing through the air. K blocks with his black crystal daggers, and they begin trading high-speed blows, the impact cracking the concrete floor around them. Blanc swings wildly, creating sharp green shockwaves that chew up the walls. He keeps trying to recruit K, telling him they could be the perfect business partners. He promises K that if he joins him, they can unlock all the secrets of the world. He wants to know what it feels like to devour someone's very soul. He is completely envious that K can touch colors in their purest state. He asks if K feels joy, sadness, or anger when he devours his victims. He screams, demanding that K share his gift, and swings his glowing blade straight down. K slides to the left, his cloak whipping in the wind, plants his foot, and catches Blanc's energy blade barehanded. Blanc is shocked, but before he can pull back, K's gauntlet flashes. The glowing purple and green energy begins to swirl, draining directly into K's palm. K throws a massive counterpunch, blasting Blanc through a concrete pillar. Blanc coughs up blood, his spectacles cracked, and his coat torn. He staggers up, admitting that the gap between their raw power is way too vast. No matter what element he uses, K's void will just eat it. So he reaches into his pocket and pulls out his ultimate trump card. It's the vial of K's stolen black void mana he extracted earlier. K's eyes narrow, asking him if he has a death wish. Blanc just laughs like a lunatic, saying he would never let anyone else have this sample. He says the danger of injecting raw void mana is exactly what makes it so exciting. He plugs the black vial directly into his mechanical arm. The dark fluid drains instantly, and Blanc screams as his veins turn black. The power is overwhelming, his right eye turning wild and bloodshot. He stands up, a massive, jagged shadow claw replacing his arm, dripping with dark smoke. He is fully mutated now, barely holding his sanity together. He smiles creepily, whispering that the black color is truly gorgeous. He blitzes forward, his shadow claw tearing up the floor. K clenches his fist, meeting him head-on. Their fists collide, creating a massive black shockwave that shatters the remaining lights. They trade brutal, heavy punches, the laboratory crumbling around them. Blanc blocks K's strike, his teeth bared. He laughs, screaming that his mind has never been clearer, and begs K to work with him. K looks at him with pure disgust, telling him to shut up and stop talking nonsense. Blanc mockingly asks if K is refusing because of Mari, or if he is just having a massive identity crisis. He calls K a parasite who has no real color of his own, only emptiness. He says K secretly hates everyone who has a real color and only wants to steal their light. He tells him his whole human identity is just a lie. K's eyes go dark, his expression completely blank as the words sink in. Suddenly, a massive metal wrench spins through the air and smacks Blanc hard in the back of his purple head. Blanc stumbles, rubbing his head and yelling in confusion. Mari is standing on the upper catwalk, holding a heavy hammer and glaring down at him. She screams at him to shut his mouth, saying he doesn't know anything about K. She tells him K is nothing like a monster who treats people like disposable tools. She throws another heavy wrench, calling Blanc a disgusting psycho. She tells him K is a human being who is fighting to change, and she won't let some creep look down on him. K looks up at her, a tiny, genuine smile appearing on his face. The black mana around K suddenly stabilizes, flaring up with 3 times its original intensity. Blanc's jaw drops as he feels the sudden spike in pressure. He can't believe K's void power is still growing. K whispers a quiet thank you to Mari and disappears from his spot. He reappears directly in front of Blanc, his black fist already mid-swing. Blanc tries to raise his shadow claw to block, but the black mutation is already tearing his physical body apart. K looks him dead in the eye, his gaze cold and absolute. A single, massive line of black energy splits the panel, and K smashes Blanc straight through the laboratory floor, burying him deep in a crater 3 floors down. The concrete dust is slowly settling over the deep crater, and Mari runs down the rubble, asking K if he is okay. K nods, looking down at the ruined body of Blanc at the bottom of the pit. He says Blanc is barely holding on to his life, and he needs to end things here. He knows that if he leaves this mad scientist alive, he will just build another slaughterhouse. Blanc is lying in the rocks, coughing up purple blood. He smiles creepily, whispering that he wishes he had gotten a little more of K's color, but then his smile turns wide and nasty. He says he hasn't given up yet, and right on cue, a massive explosion rocks the facility. K grabs Mari, shielding her head as concrete chunks rain down. Blanc reveals he planted volatile color ink charges all over the extraction rooms, and his bosses just flipped the self-destruct switch to erase the evidence. The entire laboratory begins to collapse into the abyss. The floor beneath their feet splits wide open, and K and Mari fall into the dark void below. K reaches out, but the falling rubble separates them. They splash hard into a deep pool of liquid at the very bottom. K surfaces, coughing and spitting out the foul liquid. He looks around and realizes they have landed in a massive reservoir. It's a deep pool of raw, toxic black ink waste that leaked down from the extraction chambers over decades. He immediately panics, looking around for Mari. He spots her a few yards away, struggling to keep her head above the thick, acidic sludge. She is crying out his name, her skin already beginning to burn from the highly corrosive chemical waste. Before he can reach her, she slips beneath the black surface. Kay dives after her, swearing under his breath. He swims through the pitch-black liquid, spotting her pale silhouette sinking into the depths. He realizes he needs to absorb the toxic ink around her to save her skin. But the pool is too massive. Absorbing the entire reservoir will take too long, and she will dissolve before he is done. The only way is to touch her directly and extract the poison from her body. He reaches out his hand, but his own vision is starting to go dark. In the quiet darkness, a voice asks him why he wanted to gain color in the first place. He remembers the warm golden light he saw during his awakening. He sees his own monstrous, void-awakened shadow self staring back at him. He shakes his head. He remembers how empty his life was before he met Mari. He remembers their childhood, walking through the dark slums together, sharing a single lantern. He grips her hand underwater, his custom gauntlet flaring with a bright white light. A massive vortex of dark ink is sucked into his arm, clearing the space around them. He pulls her close, begging her not to die because she promised to watch him become a true colorist. He remembers her telling him that everyone has their own unique light inside. She told him he could learn it step by step, and she would help him. He remembers how she held his hand when they first emerged from the Undercity. Even with all the discrimination they faced, she always smiled, showing him the beauty of the world. He knows that if he had been alone, he would have stayed buried in the cold emptiness forever. He would have never known what happiness or joy felt like. But living with her made him understand. She gave him a reason to move forward. A reason to be human. He looks at her peaceful face, tears mixing with the black ink on his cheeks. He begs her to open her eyes. He remembers their promise to always stay together. He carries her out of the pool, laying her on the stone edge. She is completely still, her eyes closed. He checks her pulse and realizes she is not breathing. He screams, asking why her heart has stopped, even though he absorbed all the toxic ink. Suddenly, a soft, warm glow begins to emanate from Mari's chest. Kay stops, staring at the golden light. It is the exact same light Blanc was talking about. Her inner potential. The light grows brighter, pulsing like a tiny golden star. Kay realizes her soul is fighting back against the death. He places his hand over her heart, channeling his remaining mana to draw out the light. The golden energy erupts, wrapping around Kay's arms. He can feel a warmth he has never experienced before, completely different from the cold elements he usually devours. It feels familiar, full of life. It is the physical manifestation of her joy, warmth, and hope. The golden light shatters the darkness of the chamber, and her silver-white hair begins to change. It turns into a brilliant, radiant golden yellow, glowing like pure sunlight. Her eyes snap open, glowing with a bright, golden hue. She coughs up the remaining water, gasping for air as Kay pulls her into a hug. She looks at her hands, completely confused about how she survived the black ink. She notices her skin is glowing. She grabs her own golden hair, her mouth wide open in shock. She screams, asking Kay why she has a color now. Kay chuckles softly, telling her to calm down and check her body. He says they need to find a way out before the rest of the ceiling caves in. Suddenly, a small explosion echoes from the upper ledge. Nero's round head pops over the edge with a cute squeak. Mari smiles, calling his name. Then, a familiar voice sighs, saying they rushed over as soon as they heard the emergency. Gale and Ellie Cyan look down from the ledge, telling them to hurry up and climb out of the pit. When did his memories actually start? He doesn't really know. Back then, everything was just a cold, gray fog. A young boy drifting aimlessly through the dark, carrying a heavy emptiness he couldn't name. Occasionally the fog would lift, but he would always wake up in a place he didn't recognize. But it was fine, because he wasn't completely alone. He had Nero, a tiny, quiet shadow cat who kept watch over him when the rest of the world felt invisible. Then, one day, a light broke through his dark, silent routine. A man stepped out of the brilliance, introducing himself by a name that would echo through Kay's entire life. Lumiel. He was the beautiful light the boy had spent his whole existence searching for, but their time together was cut short. After they parted, the boy went back to his aimless wandering, drawn to that memory like a moth to a flame. He wondered if he would ever see that kind of warmth again. Instead, his search led him to the absolute bottom of the world, the cold, rainy alleys of the Undercity. And that is where he met her. A young, scruffy, silver-white-haired girl named Mari. She looked at his empty, quiet eyes and realized he didn't even know how to talk. She immediately scolded him for standing out in the rain, telling him to cover up before he got sick. She pointed out that the leaking pipes above were dripping with toxic, corrosive ink residue. Then she noticed the little black shape huddled in his arms. She panicked for a second, wondering what kind of weird creature he was carrying around, before deciding it was too small to be dangerous. She grabbed his arm, telling him they had to move fast before the guards spotted them, but they weren't fast enough. Two masked enforcers stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. They yelled at Mari for wandering outside her designated zone, threatening her with another beating. Then they looked at the new quiet boy and realized they just found a fresh specimen for the labs. This wasn't an orphanage, it was a human slaughterhouse disguised as a charity, and the man running it was none other than a younger Lord Blanc, who complained about his guards letting the samples run wild. He looked at Mari with a fake, polite smile, asking if she was starting trouble again. He warned the huddled group of children that even his mercy had a very strict limit. He told them that making things difficult for him would only make their own lives significantly worse. Kay stood next to her, silent, absorbing the cold reality of the room. On the surface, the city praised these places for helping the poor, but underneath, they were just prisons for abandoned children. The kids were used as cheap manual labor to refine high-purity ink blocks, but their real value was much more horrific. They were guinea pigs for Blanc's illegal extraction experiments. The security was airtight. The only legal exit was in a body bag. But Mari had no intention of dying in a dark room. Long before Kay arrived, she had been mapping out the vents and planning an escape. She was the tiny pillar of hope that kept all the other children from completely giving up. She smiled even when her hands were bleeding from the heavy tools. Day after day, they worked on unscrewing the ventilation shafts. Kay helped her lift the heavy metal grates, his quiet, efficient strength making the work twice as fast. She told him they were almost ready. In 3 days, when the guard rotations changed, they would make their run. She thanked him, her dirty face lighting up with a genuine smile. She promised him they were all going to get out of this hellhole together, and for the first time in his life, the boy felt something shift inside his empty chest. He began to care. He began to sync his own quiet existence with her bright, noisy spirit. On their last night in the prison, the children huddled together in the dark, whispering about their dreams. Mari told Kay she was heading straight for the surface to learn a trade and open her own engineering workshop. She had heard that even colorless citizens could get real jobs if they worked hard enough in the shining city. She asked him what he wanted to do once they were free. He looked at his hands and muttered a single word: colorist. Because the man who saved him, Lumiel, was a colorist. He wanted to see if he could find that same beautiful light. Mari stared at him, her eyes wide. It was the first time she had ever heard the quiet boy express a single personal desire. But Kay immediately looked down, saying it was a stupid dream. All the adults in the camp constantly reminded them that the colorless were trash, born to be crushed. He had no element, no family. He didn't even know where he was supposed to go. He couldn't understand why the other children were so happy about tomorrow when the world outside was just as cold. He told her he was different from them, empty. Mari didn't let him finish. She told him that colorless people could manifest elements later in life too. She had heard rumors that even Lumiel, the previous Luminous, started out as a colorless orphan in the slums. Kay froze. Lumiel was like him. She smiled, telling him that everyone has their own unique light hidden inside, and she would help him find his, step by step. She cheered for his dream, telling him he would regret it if he didn't even try. She said there was meaning in simply trying, and failing didn't mean the end of the world. She told him to just do whatever he wanted to do, without worrying about what the guards said. Then she grabbed his cheeks, pulling his mouth into a ridiculous, forced smile. She told him his gloomy face was draining all her motivation, and he looked much better when he laughed. They were so close to the exit, but reality didn't care about their plans. The next morning, the guards found the map. The escape was exposed. The enforcers moved in with heavy clubs, dragging the children toward the extraction chambers to silence them. Mari ran forward, swinging a heavy iron pipe in a desperate, futile struggle to protect the younger kids. She screamed at the guard to get away, but the difference in physical strength was too vast. The guard swung his club, hitting her hard across the face. Kay watched her fall. She collapsed onto the stone floor, her face bruised and bleeding. She looked up at him with her remaining strength, whispering for him to run away. She called his name one last time before her eyes closed. And in that quiet, terrible moment, something inside the boy finally broke. The guard raised his club, preparing to strike him down next. He never got the chance. The guards had been ordered to wipe out the entire orphanage to erase the evidence of their illegal experiments. They complained about the grunt work, leaving the bodies on the floor like trash. Suddenly, a hand on the floor twitched. The temperature in the room plummeted to absolute zero. A massive, suffocating pressure of pure dark energy erupted from the boy's small body. The guards turned around, their jaws dropping as they saw his face. His right eye was completely gone, replaced by a swirling, glitched vortex of multicolored, chaotic void energy. The boy raised his hand, and a catastrophic pillar of black light tore the entire facility to absolute pieces. The flashback dissolves back into the quiet ruins of the present day. Kay slowly opens his eyes, hearing a familiar voice calling his name. Mari is leaning over him, her golden eyes wide with panic. He sits up, asking what happened. She tells him she just woke up herself after the explosion. They look at the massive, smoldering crater in the center of the Undercity. It looks like the entire Syndicate facility has been completely erased from the map. Mari looks down, her voice trembling. She remembers the kids who didn't make it out of the old camp. A crowd of shouting miners is starting to gather in the distance, drawn by the noise. Kay grabs her hand, telling her they need to move immediately. If they stay here, the peacekeeping forces or other Syndicate hunters will just trap them again. They need to head straight for the surface. The Undercity is no longer safe for either of them. Mari grips his hand tightly and reminds him of the promise they made when they were kids. to be happy once they got out. Kay looks at his metallic gauntlet, holding her hand. They are standing at the edge of the pit, and Mari is helping him climb up. Gale is standing nearby, grumbling that he never expected to visit the literal bottom of the Undercity. He looks at Mari, his eyes narrowing, and asks for an explanation. He remembers her being completely colorless. Ellie Cyan steps forward, reaching out to touch Mari's glowing hair. She is visibly stunned. The sheer saturation of the gold is unlike anything she has ever seen. She admits that even the elite 3 great noble families of the surface cannot compare to this level of purity. Kay cuts the conversation short, telling them they don't have time to stand around. They are still in gang territory, and any surviving enforcers could ambush them. Gale and Ellie look at him, noticing something different about his posture. Mari immediately steps between them, trying to laugh it off, and telling them they can discuss the details later. Kay walks ahead, his cloak trailing in the dust. He tells them there is no need to worry about an ambush, because all the annoying trash in the hallway has already been dealt with. Gale looks at the dozens of frozen, shattered bodies lining the corridor and whistles. He complains about how much wind mana he had to waste just to break through the barricades. Ellie keeps her hand on her sword, warning them to stay alert. Mari looks at her newly glowing hands, still trying to process the raw strength humming under her skin. Suddenly, a rustle comes from the pile of unconscious thugs. A scarred, blue-haired syndicate enforcer crawls out, reaching for a dropped dagger. He realizes that if he goes back to his bosses empty-handed, they will execute him anyway. He decides to take at least one of them down with him, screaming as he lunges straight at Mari. Gale and Ellie draw their weapons, but Kay is already moving to intercept. They are all too slow. Mari panics, turns around, and throws a wild, instinctive punch. The impact shakes the entire floor, and the enforcer is launched across the room, cratering 3 feet deep into the solid concrete wall. Gale, Ellie, and Kay freeze, staring at the wall in absolute silence. The enforcer's legs are twitching in the rubble. Mari looks at her fist, her mouth wide open in shock. She can't believe she did that. She swears she only swung lightly. The wall completely disagreed. Before they can discuss her new S-tier physical stats, the sound of heavy marching boots echoes down the hall. A squad of heavily armored peacekeeping soldiers bursts through the entrance, shields raised. The captain barks an order to drop their weapons, before realizing who is standing in the middle of the room. He lowers his sword, expressing his relief that the rookie pioneers are safe. Ellie nods, telling him they only did what was necessary to clear the district. The captain laughs, admitting it's a bit embarrassing that there is absolutely nothing left for his men to do. He orders his soldiers to round up the surviving syndicate members, taking full responsibility for the cleanup. The group begins their long walk back to the surface. Mari stretches her arms, sighing that she feels like she has been stuck underground for a century. Ellie and Gale fall back, keeping their eyes on Kay. Ellie steps up to him, asking if something bad happened during his fight with Blanc. She notes that he has seemed completely different since they found him. Kay stops. He rubs his neck, putting on a fake, casual smile. He apologizes for making them worry, claiming he just had some minor things on his mind. He tells them it's nothing, his smile bright and empty. Ellie doesn't look convinced. She turns to Gale. Gale just shakes his head, telling her to let it go. He says everyone has a past they don't want to drag into the light, and prying is just going to make things weird. They watch the 2 childhood friends walk side by side into the surface light. Ellie quietens down, understanding his point. They exit the dark tunnels, leaving the Undercity behind them. Meanwhile, deep inside a quiet, abandoned sewer corridor, a trail of purple blood stains the concrete. Lord Blanc is dragging his ruined body against the wall, his mechanical arm completely shattered. He collapses onto his back, coughing, realizing he is actually going to die here alone. He sighs, muttering that his only regret was not seeing Kay's true form under a microscope. He closes his eyes, waiting for the dark. Suddenly, a slow, quiet footstep echoes through the dark corridor. Blanc's eyes crack open. Through the shadows, a small, dark silhouette approaches, wrapped in a faint green aura. The figure stops right in front of him, arms crossed. Blanc gasps as he recognizes the face. It's Viper, the green-haired twin from the Black Hand, smiling with her razor-sharp teeth. She steps hard on his chest, asking how she is supposed to handle this massive disappointment. She complains that she went through all the trouble of sneaking into the Undercity, only to find her S-rank business partner beaten up like a complete loser. She kicks him, asking if he is seriously dead. She sighs, pulling a glowing green vial from her cloak. She whispers that even a deadly poison can be a medicine if you know how to use it, and pours the volatile green fluid straight into his mouth. We start deep in the subterranean caverns beneath the city, where things are dusty, quiet, and definitely not okay. Out in the pitch black, the green-haired twins from the Black Hand are currently setting up their next massive disaster. The Sword Demon, looking like a tattered mummy who got lost on the way to a convention, is already complaining about their terrible punctuality. And of course, instead of delivering an evil villain report, the twins are immediately having a full sibling breakdown over who was supposed to watch whom. Our guy is just sitting on a dead beast, completely reevaluating his entire life choices and wondering why he has to work with teenagers. He cuts straight through the comedy routine to ask if they actually brought the goods. Viper smirks and pulls out a neat little box filled with glowing purple vials. It turns out, Lord Blanc actually did something useful before Kay turned him into a crater, manufacturing a nice batch of the mixed compound. The twins have their hands on it now, which is basically the worst-case scenario for everyone currently living in the Shining City. They're standing right in front of a giant shadow leviathan, ready to run a little science experiment. This thing is absolutely colossal, sleeping peacefully in the dark before they decided to ruin its day. As soon as they get close, the massive black creature starts to stir, sensing the dark mana. Viper casually hops onto its back like it is a playground ride. The younger sister is still crying in the background, keeping the comedy stakes high while they prepare to launch a local apocalypse. The sword demon is deeply skeptical, pointing out that these massive creatures only move when the Black Witch commands them. He warns her that if this beast goes into a blind frenzy, they are going to be the first ones it decides to use as a welcome mat. But Viper just laughs it off, explaining that since the Black Witch is currently taking a nap, the beast's natural instincts are highly unstable. This purple juice is essentially a high-density stimulant that will amplify those instincts to an absolute extreme. She uncorks the vial and pours the raw, glowing chemical directly onto its head, and just like that, its giant eye snaps open. It is a solid, unhinged white ring in the dark. The beast lets out a deafening roar, shattering the surrounding stone structures with pure acoustic force. Viper is absolutely loving it, looking like she just won a match in her favorite mobile game. The experiment is a massive success. Next stop, turning the Shining City into a giant pile of rubble. Meanwhile, back on the surface, the peacekeepers are setting up yellow tape and pretending they actually did something useful. The local citizens are gossiping, relieved that the local underworld gangs got wiped out but entirely clueless about who actually did it. Kay is standing in the crowd with Gale, Ellie, and Marie, trying his absolute best to look like an innocent bystander. The local captain is thanking them for their service, taking all the credit for the cleanup like a true middle manager. But before the conversation can get any more boring, a very specific presence starts walking down the street. The crowd parts instantly as a silhouette bathed in a warm, glowing red aura approaches. It is Colorist Red. He looks like he just rolled out of bed, but the sheer S-rank pressure radiating off him is still making everyone sweat. He walks straight up to Kay, asking him what kind of absolute mess he managed to get himself into this time. Red says it is incredibly rare for him to be caught off guard by anything in this city, but then his gaze shifts over to Marie, whose hair is literally glowing with a radiant, golden yellow light. Another colorless slums kid who somehow awakened a top-tier color right after Kay did. The statistics are officially broken. Red notes that there are way too many civilian eyes on them out here, which is bad for keeping secrets. He tells them to pack it up and head straight to the Dawn Pioneer Corps headquarters. Inside the massive, high-ceilinged headquarters, we are introduced to Captain Camellia, and she immediately greets Red by calling him an old geezer, setting the tone for the absolute lack of respect in this room. She is completely hyped up, staring at Marie like she just pulled a legendary 5-star character on a single ticket. She already knows Marie's name and is ready to skip all the formal introductions to get her on the roster. Red explains the historical context. Ever since the legend of Lumiel, awakeners have been the most sought-after anomaly in the city. Every single time a colorless awakens a color, they end up leaving a massive, permanent mark on history, and Marie is also a genius engineer. Camellia is basically circling Marie, inspecting her golden hair with pure, unadulterated greed. She asks Marie point-blank if she has any interest in joining the Dawn Pioneer Corps. Marie is completely overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Camellia starts aggressively pitching the job, promising she will treat her 3 times better than any other guild in the city. Marie, feeling the pressure, instinctively looks over at Kay to see what our guy thinks. Kay just gives her a calm, incredibly reassuring smile. He is letting her make her own choice, but he is backing her up 100%. Marie clenches her fists, taking a deep breath. She announces with absolute determination that she wants to join the Dawn Pioneer Corps because she has things she needs to achieve. Camellia is thrilled, immediately pulling out a pen and paper, but before she can get Marie's signature on the contract, a heavy, serious voice interrupts from the doorway. It is the yellow-haired veteran pioneer, looking incredibly unimpressed by their little recruitment session. He steps forward, stating flatly that he is completely against letting her join without passing the mandatory entrance test. They transition down to the massive underground training arena. Camellia is up on the balcony, screaming at the yellow-haired veteran for being an absolute stubborn boomer. She argues that if they delay the process, some other pioneer squad is going to sneak in and recruit her, but the veteran, who is actually Camellia's uncle, completely ignores her tantrums and keeps his eyes on the field. He asks Marie if she is ready. She is currently holding a massive, heavy piece of metal. It is a giant golden revolver-style spoit gun, which she is holding with slightly shaking hands. The uncle explains that the rules are incredibly simple. She just has to defeat the standard-issue training golem. The heavy steel gates at the far end of the arena begin to slide open with a deep metallic groan. A massive, steam-powered iron golem steps onto the field, looking like it belongs in a Victorian warehouse. The uncle warns her that if she can't even handle this baseline robot, she shouldn't even think about stepping into the Darklands. Marie is sweating buckets. She is a mechanic who spends her days fixing gears, not throwing hands with giant chunks of iron. We see a quick shot of the spectator stands. This is a highly formal testing ground where every rookie's potential is judged. The uncle acknowledges that he knows she is an engineer who has never been trained in real combat, but he says that if her newly awakened sun gold color is actually the real deal, this test should be a walk in the park. Marie takes a deep breath and steels her resolve, staring down her massive metal opponent. The uncle announces the start of the test, and the golem immediately moves. It is surprisingly fast for its size, cracking the stone floor as it charges forward. It leaps into the air, bringing down a massive iron fist directly aimed at Marie's head. Marie lets out a very undignified scream, barely rolling out of the way as the fist craters the ground behind her. The golem doesn't stop, launching a relentless barrage of heavy physical strikes that keeps Marie scrambling across the dirt. Up on the balcony, Camellia is losing her mind, screaming at her uncle for throwing a defenseless kid into a deathmatch. She is convinced Marie is going to get traumatized and sign with a different squad out of spite. Marie is panting, her glasses sliding down her face as she tries to figure out her next move. She looks at the giant, steam-hissing machine that is slowly advancing on her. She tells herself to stop doubting. She isn't a defenseless, colorless slums kid anymore. She has power. She stands her ground, raises the massive golden spoit gun, and starts channeling her sun gold mana. She decides to push her newly awakened gold color to its absolute limit, pouring every single drop of mana into the gun's core. The gun starts humming, gold electricity crackling violently along the barrel. A massive yellow warning light flares in the center of the gun, overheating. She pulls the trigger, and a colossal, blinding pillar of golden lightning erupts, completely vaporizing the golem in a fraction of a second. The gold blast is so absurdly overpowered that it literally tears a massive, smoking crater right through the reinforced concrete roof of the stadium. The entire balcony crew is completely frozen, their faces illuminated by the fading golden glow. Kay is standing there with his jaw practically on the floor. Our guy is realizing his childhood friend might be more of a monster than he is. The uncle is utterly speechless, noting that for a brief split second, her raw output actually matched his own S-rank emission level. Marie is left standing in the center of the ring, surrounded by crackling gold lightning, looking like a literal god of thunder. But there is a slight problem. She has no idea how to turn it off. Help! Someone help me! The golden lightning is splashing randomly, scorch-marking the walls and causing the spectators to duck for cover. The uncle rushes down onto the field, yelling at her to calm down and stop pouring her color into the gun. Marie is crying, waving the loaded, crackling weapon around like a loose fire hose, screaming apologies as the roof continues to crumble. We open on the next morning, where a massive repair crew is currently trying to figure out how to patch a giant, smoking crater in the roof. Marie is repeatedly bowing, offering 1,000 apologies to the construction workers who had to pull an early shift. Camellia runs over, wrapping her arms around Marie and telling her not to worry about a little light property damage. She officially welcomes Marie to the Dawn Pioneer Corps. Her entrance test is a massive pass, despite the demolition work. Gail and Ellie are looking on, probably wondering why Marie gets a pass for blowing up a building when they had to take a written exam. Camellia smirks at her uncle, pointing out that he has absolutely nothing to complain about now. He admits the test was just to keep things official. The uncle watches Marie walk away, thinking to himself that in terms of raw, unpolished output, she might be the strongest of their entire generation. He then turns to Camellia, telling her to stop calling him uncle in front of the rookies because it ruins his professional authority. He leads Marie away to finish her paperwork, leaving the main rookie trio standing in the center of the arena. Red steps up behind them, his boots clicking on the stone floor. All right, is the welcome party officially over? He looks at Kay, Gail, and Ellie with a very specific, slightly mischievous grin. You three aren't busy today, right? Gail says no, and Red smiles. Perfect timing. I've been too busy with my own work, so let's fix that. Come with me. I'm going to teach you something incredibly important. He leads them down into a deep, highly reinforced subterranean training chamber. Gail looks around, noting that the room is completely empty, with no spectators. Red says it is the perfect place to cut loose. He points to a dark, heavily armored training dummy standing in the center of the room. He explains that these dummies are modeled after high-rank, hard-shell monsters. Standard attacks won't even leave a scratch on them. Red steps forward, placing his hand on the hilt of his sword. Watch closely what I'm about to show you. If you want to survive out there in the Darklands, this is a technique you absolutely must master. He draws his blade in a single, smooth motion. There is no flashy explosion, just a clean, silent arc. He explains that no matter how well a spoit weapon is manufactured, it is not omnipotent. Eventually, you will hit a limit. You will face enemies whose armor is physically impossible to pierce, and others that regenerate faster than you can cut. His hand suddenly begins to glow with an intense, concentrated crimson light. He channels his S-rank color directly into the steel, Roma Manifestation. The blade is instantly enveloped in a massive, crackling pillar of pure, high-density red fire. Gail and Ellie's eyes go wide. They recognize this power. It is the exact same S-rank force he used to cut off the sword demon's arm. Red explains that chroma is the act of extracting the latent color within your own body and saturating your weapon or flesh with it. Once you layer your color like this, you gain an overwhelming spike in raw physical and magical stats. The crimson blade glides through the air, completely silent. He touches the armored training dummy, and it instantly slides apart, cut perfectly in half. He turns back to the rookies, stating that as pioneers, this is the standard they must reach. From now on, this is something you will have to polish as part of your basic toolkit. Remember it well. Each of you needs at least one absolute trump card. You never know what is waiting in the dark. Gale is sweating, staring at the perfectly melted edges of the dummy. He swung so lightly, and it cut like warm butter. Kay steps forward, asking if every official colorist is expected to handle this level of power freely. Red smiles. That's the bare minimum. Once you reach the peak of A rank, you will see plenty of people using it. But to go further, to become an S rank pioneer, you have to master it. Now, draw your weapons. He tells them he is going to teach them the basics of training their chroma. You know that feeling right before you release your color, when your mana is about to spill out? Normally, you let it flow. This time, don't. Imagine absorbing that color directly back into your own body or sword. It won't be easy at first. Just extract as much color as you can manage. Gale and Ellie close their eyes, concentrating deeply. Their swords start to glow faintly with green wind and blue ice mana, but the energy is highly unstable. Within seconds, both of them are turning pale, their bodies trembling from the sudden, massive drain. Gale is internally panicking, realizing that trying to hold his color inside his blade is constantly eating his stamina. He feels like he is going to go colorless. Red looks on, looking slightly pleased. How's it going? Not as easy as you thought, right? Still, for your first day, this is a great start. But talent is worthless without relentless effort. Suddenly, a heavy, cold black vapor starts pouring onto the floor, swirling around their boots. Gale and Ellie snap out of their concentration, the sudden drop in temperature, making them shiver. Red slowly turns around, his face completely blank as his eyes lock onto Kay. Kay is standing there casually, his entire right arm completely enveloped in a solid, crackling gauntlet of pitch-black smoky shadow. Kay looks down, scratching his cheek with his free hand. Actually, I've already been using this for a while. Is this what you call chroma? Ellie is staring at his arm with absolute, wide-eyed disbelief. Kay remembers his fight with the automated golem in the subterranean ruins, where he concentrated his black void mana into a single, high-density punch. Red lets out a tired sigh, looking slightly annoyed. You are really a massive headache to teach, you know that? Red looks at him, realizing that for someone who can absorb S-rank mana, this outcome is actually incredibly obvious. But right now, you are basically just cramming a ridiculous amount of raw color in there. You're at the brute force stage. Explain the next step? No, that would just give you a headache. More importantly, you are wasting too much power. You'll go colorless after 3 hits. Red realizes Kay's entire survival strategy up until now has been pure consumption, surviving his massive energy drain by constantly devouring more. Red tells Gale and Ellie to keep training, pointing them back to their stations. If you don't want to fall completely behind Kay, you'd better work twice as hard. Peer pressure is a great motivator. He pulls Kay to the side. Kay, for you, we have a much more urgent problem. Take off your spoit gauntlet. We are going back to the absolute basics. You're pouring out 100 units of power where 10 would be more than enough. Sure, the raw strength looks cool now, but eventually, this terrible efficiency is going to become a double-edged sword that kills you. You are just dumping your black color blindly, without any real, fine-tuned control. Relying solely on absolute absorption as your only fighting style is an incredibly dangerous trap. What happens if you face an opponent who can resist your absorption, or if you suddenly go colorless in the middle of a monster horde? Kay stands there in silence. Red is 100% correct. He has been skating by on raw cheat codes, and his fundamentals are completely lacking. Kay unstraps his custom gauntlet, setting it aside. All right, I've taken off the ink drain. What do I do now? Red looks down at him, his face completely serious. First, release every single ounce of raw power you can manage. We start from there. Kay closes his eyes and focuses. A massive, towering vortex of pitch-black void mana violently erupts from his body. The raw energy is wild, crackling, and completely unstabilized, blowing Red's coat back. Red watches in absolute silence. He remembers the tiny, weak puddle of dark mana Kay had when they first met in the industrial ruins. In just a few short weeks, Kay's raw mana reservoir has expanded to an absolutely terrifying degree. But without his custom gauntlet acting as an alchemical stabilizer, Kay is immediately gassed, his chest heaving as the strain hits him. Red flashes an absolutely villainous smile. Good, Kay. Keep it exactly like that. If you drop that output even a millimeter, I'll kill you. Kay's eyes snap open, his veins popping as he struggles to hold the wild dark energy. What? Red starts mocking him, leaning in close. What's wrong? Can't do it. That's disappointing. You want to be a colorist, but you can't even endure this? Kay grinds his teeth, his grip tightening as his hair starts showing faint silver-white streaks from the sudden consumption. we see a tiny, zoomed-out panel of the massive training room, where all 3 rookies are currently collapsed flat on the floor. They are panting heavily, looking like they just finished a marathon in a swamp. Kay is staring at the ceiling, wondering if he has to go through this absolute torture chamber every single day. Marie's entire stock of personal ink bottles is scattered empty across the floor. They completely drained their reserves. Red stands over them, completely fine. Good work, you 3. That's a pretty standard result for your first day. Let's start wrapping up. Gale lets out a relieved sigh, muttering that he just wants to lie down on a cold stone floor and sleep for a week. Red starts walking back toward the center of the room. What are you doing? I never said you could leave. He places his hand back on the hilt of his sword, a slow metallic slide echoing through the silent room. The real training starts right now. He flashes a terrifying wide grin, his crimson eyes glowing in the dim light. To wrap things up, we are going to do some real combat training. Come at me as if your lives depended on it. The 3 rookies look up, their faces pale with pure horror. So, sparring against team leader Red. No warm-up, no warning, just a casual, try not to die to start the afternoon. Red looks at them with the smile of a guy who definitely enjoys his job way too much. The rookies get into their stances, their weapons shaking slightly because they know exactly how cooked they are. Imagine you are fighting the Black Hand, Red says. And then he moves. He is behind them instantly, his sword splitting the air. Ellie reacts first, projecting a massive wall of blue ice to intercept the strike. Red parries the ice effortlessly, casually grading her mid-swing like a proud teacher. He notes that her reaction speed is easily the best on the team. Her balance between offense and defense is mature, but maturity doesn't mean you are invincible. Red's hand glows with high-density crimson heat. A single flash of red light splits the room. Ellie's S-rank defense doesn't even slow it down. Her ice wall is reduced to absolute dust in a fraction of a second. Never rely on a single pattern, Red warns her, looking entirely too relaxed. The next attack is already coming. Gale lunges from the side, channeling a massive gust of green wind. At the exact same time, Kay drops from above, his fist coated in heavy black shadow, a perfect, synchronized pincer movement from 2 sides, and both of their weapons hit absolute nothingness. Red blocked both attacks barehanded, without even utilizing a single drop of his crimson color. My turn, he says, a rapid flurry of steel clashing against steel. Gale is sweating buckets, his mind completely unable to process how fast this man is. 3 S-rank caliber rookies ganged up on him, and they haven't even managed to scratch his coat. Gale's mind starts to drift. The pressure is triggering memories he spent years trying to bury. The image of a gray-haired woman, with a braid, standing in a field of falling black ash. He grinds his teeth, his eyes turning bloodshot. He refuses to be the weak link anymore. He leaps into the air, summoning a massive, roaring wind vortex around his blade. It is a desperate, highly emotional strike, completely leaving his defenses wide open. Red's eyes go cold. Going all in on a single lunge, he performs a single, casual backhand swing. Gale's entire storm is dissolved instantly, and our wind prodigy is sent cratering into the stone wall like a thrown sack of potatoes. Kay tries to capitalize on the distraction, but Red is already there, planting a heavy boot directly into his ribs. The sparring session is officially over. 3 rookies, 3 absolute L's. Red stands over them, starting his critique. He tells Gale he is too easy to read when he gets emotional. Rushing in blindly is the single fastest way to get your card declined on the battlefield. Then, he turns to Kay. He warns him that his wild rampage in the Undercity was a fluke. If Marie hadn't built that custom gauntlet, Kay's body would have dissolved by now. Your efficiency is a disaster, Red says, looking down at our panting protagonist. Kay is staring at the floor, his heart racing. He is realizing the sheer, terrifying gap between a normal pioneer and a true colorist. But he didn't survive the slums just to give up during gym class. He slowly pushes himself up, looking at Red. He mentions that during his desperate struggle in the Undercity, he managed to absorb a highly specific, foreign color. A faint, cocky smile creeps onto his face. It is Marie's sun gold color, and he has been saving it for a rainy day. He clenches his fist, and gold lightning suddenly erupts, wrapping around his arm like a golden gauntlet. The sheer density of the golden electricity causes Gale and Ellie to shield their eyes. Even Red's casual expression disappears, replaced by genuine shock. Kay takes a step forward, and the ground beneath his boot completely shatters from the raw kinetic pressure. But before he can even launch an attack, the gold lightning suddenly turns inward, violently draining his remaining mana. Kay lets out a strained gasp as his hair rapidly turns from pitch black back to silver white, and our legendary Void Savior immediately collapses flat on his face, completely out cold. Red stands there, staring at the motionless body on the floor. The plan worked perfectly, if the plan was to show off a new move and immediately pass out. But Red's eyes are wide. He is looking at Kay with a mixture of awe and absolute curiosity. The crater Kay left behind just by stepping forward is massive. Gale and Ellie are completely frozen, wondering how their colorless teammate is pulling off multiple colors. Red realizes the implication. Kay is blending his black void color with Marie's gold. If he can use multiple colors, he might be on the path to becoming another Lord Luminous. Red chuckles, throwing K over his shoulder. He realizes he is going to have to start trying a little harder if he wants to stay ahead of his own student. He calls off the training session, telling Gale and Ellie to go get some rest. He carries K out of the arena like a sack of laundry. He tells the remaining rookies not to get discouraged. Despite K's freak show, their progress is still far beyond any normal pioneer. K is completely unresponsive, snoring softly on Red's shoulder. Red looks around the ruined, cratered arena, wondering how he is going to explain this to the construction crew. We cut over to the Dawn Pioneer Corps Command Center. A massive rumble suddenly shakes the entire facility. Camellia pauses mid-sip, looking toward the window with a slight frown. She is currently having tea with Marie, who is wearing a brand new, high-density tactical suit. Marie asks if she is really allowed to keep all these high-grade supplies. She looks incredibly self-conscious in her new gear, but Camellia just waves her hand. Think of it as a welcome gift, Camellia says. Something like this is pocket change for S ranks. Marie smiles brightly, bowing her head. Please take care of me. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors to the command room are slammed open. The impact shakes the tea set on the table. A panicked pioneer operator stands in the doorway, yelling for the commander. He tells Camellia she needs to look out the window immediately. Camellia and Marie run out onto the balcony, looking up at the sky. The clouds have turned a thick, oppressive dark gray. A massive, towering pillar of black ash is rising from the horizon, blotting out the sun. Camellia reaches out her hand, catching a single flake of falling black soot. Her eyes go wide, her dual-colored pupils turning incredibly sharp. A deep, ancient rumble echoes from the dark fog outside the city walls. Camellia's expression turns completely cold. This is a black wave. The emergency sirens are screaming across the entire metropolis. At the outer walls, the civilians and miners are in absolute panic, dropping their tools to run for the shelters. The guards are screaming at everyone to keep moving, but the sheer terror in the air is making order impossible. And then, the colossal silhouette of the shadow beast emerges from the fog. It is a literal living natural disaster, towering hundreds of feet over the defensive walls. With a single movement of its massive tentacles, it shatters the outer battlements like glass. The defense cannons begin to fire, bright blue elemental shells lighting up the dark sky. The crew is working at double speed, loading high-purity blue ink canisters into the heavy artillery. Back inside the headquarters, Gale is frantically buckling his armor, telling Kay and Ellie to hurry up. The doors slide open with a heavy thud. Red steps into the room, his casual attitude completely gone. Everyone, grab your gear. He says there is no time to sit around. The situation is escalating faster than the military predicted. The rookies nod, their faces serious. Red team, advance. As they rush through the corridors, Ellie notes that the sirens are the ones used for city-wide breaches. She looks out the window, watching the falling black ash drift past the glass. Her eyes go quiet. She remembers another day, years ago, when the sky looked exactly like this. A younger version of her, standing alone in the rain of ash, watching her home burn. The trauma is real, but she isn't that helpless little girl anymore. The city broadcast is blaring over the loudspeakers, ordering all pioneers to report to the front lines immediately. The streets are a mess of fleeing families, parents holding their children tightly. Where is the spawn point? Some rookie pioneers are shouting, trying to find their defensive positions. Suddenly, a massive explosion of stone and dark mana rips through a nearby building. The guard captain screams for everyone to fall back. Something far more dangerous than simple beasts has breached the line. Emerging from the smoke are the dark silhouettes of the Black Hand, their S-rank warriors leading the charge. The alarm sirens reach a deafening pitch. Gale points toward the wall. Who is that show-off? It is the Radiance Pioneer Corps, led by Blaze and Nickel, currently standing on the battlements with their banners flying. Blaze raises his massive gauntlets, his voice booming over the noise. Until everyone is safe, he shouts. The pioneers will hold this line. Gale, Ellie, and Kay arrive at the front, standing alongside the Radiance squad. Blaze laughs cockily, telling everyone to stay calm because the 5-star heroes have arrived. But the Shadow Beasts don't care about his speech. They launch a massive, coordinated leap over the barricades. The air splits as dozens of dark claws descend. The pioneers move. Steel meets shadow, and the clash travels all the way up their arms. Down in the valley, the civilian camp is in absolute chaos as the monsters begin to swarm the tents. The guards are trying to bottleneck the evacuation through the heavy stone gates. A fresh pack of high-speed Raptor-class shadow beasts dashes across the plain. The defense force fires a massive volley of elemental arrows, lighting up the dark valley. The heavy cannons use blue ink shells to freeze the ground, slowing the beasts' advance. But the tide of monsters is simply too thick. The ice barriers are starting to crack under the weight. Just as the line is about to collapse, a massive shockwave of pure energy clears the field. The elite colorists have arrived. Camellia, Red, the yellow-haired uncle, and the high-tier commanders step onto the wall. Camellia takes temporary command over all pioneer forces in the eastern region. She announces that they have confirmed a massive group of Black Hand agents heading toward the forward base. Kay's eyes narrow. The Black Hand is here, which means the Sword Demon is out there too. Phew, that was almost a disaster, a cheerful voice says from above. Our pink-hooded goggle elite drops down, looking completely unbothered by the apocalypse. He flashes a warm smile at his juniors, telling them they did a great job holding the line. He pats Kay on the shoulder, giving them the signal to fall back. The ground suddenly splits as the giant shadow beast launches another massive tentacle strike. Red moves instantly, his sword tracing a thin line of crimson S-rank heat. The tentacle is severed cleanly, vaporizing in a cloud of red smoke before it can hit the wall. The giant beast shrieks in pain, its massive jaws snapping in frustration. The black blood of the beast rains down on the stone, sizzling like acid. Kay looks up at the massive silhouette, his hand resting on his custom gauntlet. The size of this thing is completely absurd. It sweeps its tail, throwing up a massive wave of stone and debris. "Brace for impact!" Gale screams, bracing his sword against the wind. The rookies form a defensive wall, acting as a shield for the retreating civilians. Dozens of small shadow beasts leap out of the dust, their teeth bared. The battle turns into a chaotic melee, steel clashing against claws in every direction. Up on the clifftops, the sword demon is watching the entire conflict through the fog. His glowing white eye locks onto a very specific black-haired teenager on the field. "He is here," the sword demon mutters, his grip tightening on his dark blade. The key to pulling back the curtain. "Kay!" Back on the wall, Camellia turns to Red, telling him to stay close to the rookies. She warns him that the Black Hand's main target is definitely Kay. Red nods, his eyes narrowing as he looks toward the clifftops. In the dark forest, Viper is giggling uncontrollably. She is amazed that she can control a literal army of ancient beasts with just a few vials of Lord Blanc's formula. "I feel like the Black Witch herself," she smirks, her jagged teeth showing. "This is going to be so much fun." Back on the wall, Camellia projects a massive light barrier, directing the defensive formation. She orders the main force to concentrate all firepower on the giant beast. "Hold on until we return," she shouts, leading the elite squad toward the Black Hand's position. The pink-hooded S-rank Wave Rider dashes ahead, laughing as he clears a path through the monsters. Kay looks back at the inner wall, a slight sense of relief washing over him. At least Marie is safe behind the lines, helping the engineering crew repair the heavy artillery. Marie is holding a massive wrench, looking up at the dark sky with absolute determination. She has a job to do, and she is going to make sure those cannons keep firing. The heavy elemental cannons on the outer wall are firing at full capacity, unloading bright blue ice-infused shells to freeze the advancing monster horde. Behind the battlements, the artillery crew is sweating, screaming for more ammunition. Suddenly, Marie jogs in and casually lifts a stack of heavy iron ammo crates with one hand. The veteran soldiers are staring at her, currently questioning why they spent 10 years lifting weights. Marie doesn't even notice their existential dread as she runs off to support the next station. She looks over the wall, her gold eyes wide. It is her first time seeing a real monster wave, and down in the valley, the battle is pure chaos. The frontline pioneers are screaming to hold the line, their weapons clashing against claws as the shadow beasts try to swarm the barricades. Kay, Gale, and Ellie are fighting in the thick of it, clearing a path through the lesser monsters with coordinated strikes. The air splits as Gale's wind and Ellie's ice slice through the vanguard. The veteran pioneers are cheering them on, impressed by how cleanly these rookies are packing up the monsters. The defensive line is holding up surprisingly well. Kay parries a stray beast, his face calm. He thinks the situation is stable, especially with the Radiant's Pioneer Corps holding down the heavy-duty monsters on the flank. At this rate, they should be able to hold out until the main force returns. But then he looks up at the massive silhouette in the center of the dark fog. The giant shadow Leviathan is slowly but steadily advancing toward the city walls, and they don't have the firepower to stop it. They just have to hope Red and the other S-ranks finish their business quickly. Suddenly, a massive shockwave tears through the ground. Stone and debris explode into the air, throwing the rookies off balance. Kay pushes himself up, his eyes widening. A towering column of dark dust rises right in the center of their defensive line. The surrounding pioneers are screaming in panic, trying to see through the smoke. A dark, bandaged figure steps out of the dust. It is the S-rank sword demon, completely bypassing the vanguard to drop directly on their heads. His single glowing eye locks onto Kay. "I've been looking for you," he says. "The key." Gale screams for everyone to fall back and reform the line. They are completely outmatched without an S-rank colorist on the field. The sword demon raises his massive blade, ready to secure his target while everyone else is distracted. He lunges, his sword cutting through the air like a physical shadow. Kay braces himself, knowing his block is not going to hold. But before the blade can touch him, a brilliant crimson flash cuts across the field. Steel meets steel with a violent impact that shakes the entire wall. The sword demon's glowing eye narrows in pure annoyance. Team leader Red is standing in front of Kay, his sword covered in liquid S-rank fire. He tells the sword demon that his intentions were so obvious, it is almost insulting. He tells the rookies to fall back and leave this area to him. The sword demon is furious, claiming Red is always getting in his way. His dark blade begins to glow with a strange, high-density white energy. He vows to cut Red down, right here. Red looks at the glowing weapon. Interest peaked. An ancient relic, is it? He notes that the sword demon is carrying some pretty troublesome gear. But his grip on his sword hilt only tightens. "Well," Red smiles, "you need something like that, or this wouldn't be any fun." A massive explosion of red and white energy erupts as the two S-ranks clash, tearing up the stone. Kay, Gale, and Ellie retreat down the path, the sound of the duel shaking the walls behind them. But as they run, a creepy rhythmic humming sound begins to echo through the fog. Gale stops, looking around. What is that sound? A small, tattered silhouette emerges from the smoke. It is Viper, carrying her quiet younger sister. She is laughing, mocking the sword demon for hiding his targets. She walks straight toward them, her neon green eyes locked onto Kay. So you're the key, huh? She notes that if Red went out of his way to protect him, Kay is definitely the prize. Kay's body goes stiff. Another high-ranking member of the Black Hand, right in their path. Gale grinds his teeth, his hand shaking on his sword hilt. They are in no condition to run. All they can do is try to hold out until Red finishes his fight. Viper smirks, claiming that even their amazing chief can't save them every single time. She lunges forward, her body moving with terrifying speed. Kay barely has time to raise his arms as she closes the distance. Viper slams her hand down, a heavy shockwave of dark energy cratering the ground. Kay is pushed back, his feet sliding across the stone. He is gasping for air, shocked by her raw physical strength. She is smiling, her shark-like teeth gleaming in the dark. Suddenly, Ellie rushes in from the flank, her rapier glowing with ice blue mana. She screams at Viper to get away from Kay. Gale follows right behind her, launching a sharp gust of green wind. Both attacks hit Viper directly, slicing through her cloak. But Gale and Ellie's expressions immediately turn to horror. Viper didn't even try to dodge. She just stood there, letting their blades cut her skin. A bright green, glowing fluid splatters from her wounds, coating their swords. Kay screams at them to keep pressing her, knowing she is trying to bait them. But Viper just floats backward, laughing like a maniac. She notes that they are quite persistent for rookies. Gale is panting, looking at his sword. What is with this girl? She isn't even fighting back, just letting them hit her. And down in the fog, her younger sister is still sitting quietly, humming that same creepy tune. Viper sighs, looking at Kay. Is this really your level? How boring. She snaps her fingers. Time's up. Gale and Ellie suddenly freeze, their hands dropping. A strange green vein-like pattern begins to crawl up their arms, their hearts racing violently. Both of them suddenly cough up bright green fluid, falling to their knees. Their color is being rapidly drained, their eyes turning dull. Gale is gasping for air, his skin turning a sickly gray. Viper explains that her green color is a lethal alchemical poison. Now that you are addicted to our color, she smiles, you are basically dead already. Gale and Ellie are on the floor, completely paralyzed as the green toxin spreads through their veins. Viper continues to gloat, explaining that they are now nothing more than her puppets. She boasts that she and her brother can handle both freedom and poison at the exact same time. She begins to walk away, entirely convinced the battle is won. But behind her, Kay steps forward, grabbing Gale and Ellie's shoulders. A massive, swirling vortex of pitch-black void mana erupts from his hands. Viper stops, her neon green eye widening in shock. Gale and Ellie suddenly gasp, the green veins on their skin rapidly disappearing. Kay is standing over them, his black hair swirling in the dark wind. He notes that her poison is still just another form of color, which means his absolute absorption can eat it like any other mana. Viper is speechless. He absorbed the color? She looks at him, her mind racing. That dark, devouring aura is not normal. It is the exact same pure black power as the legendary Black Witch. She realizes Kay's connection to the witch is far deeper than they originally suspected, but her shock quickly turns to obsession. If she can secure him, she can get whatever she wants. Kay stands in front of his recovering teammates, his face deadpan. Gale is still weak, muttering that they are still in a terrible spot. Kay tells them to focus. As long as he keeps devouring her poison, her alchemical advantage is completely neutralized. Viper's smile returns, but it is much more chaotic now. She claims that even if he can neutralize her poison, he is still just a rookie. Fine, she says, try and endure this. She lunges, appearing directly in front of Kay's face. Kay's eyes widen. She's fast! A heavy green shockwave splits the air as her claw sweeps down. The impact shakes the entire platform, throwing up a cloud of stone. Viper launches a relentless barrage of physical strikes, her claws clashing against Kay's blocked arms. Kay is forced back, his arms shaking from the pure kinetic force. Even with his black chroma activated, her strikes are cracking his defenses. And on top of that, she is completely ignoring Gale and Ellie, focusing 100% of her aggression on him. She laughs, stating that she can easily crush him with raw physical power alone. Another heavy wind sweep forces Kay to drop to one knee. Kay's guard is about to break, his black mana starting to flicker. Gale screams in anger, refusing to let her ignore them. Are we joke to you? He yells, charging with his sword. Ellie Cyan is already moving, her rapier tracing a massive circle in the air. She vows to buy Kay some time to recover. She projects her signature defense technique, Frost Wall, and then she layers it, triple layer Frost Wall. A massive dome of solid blue ice encases them, separating them from Viper. Kay falls back, panting. Thanks, that was seriously close. Ellie is sweating, warning him that this wall is not going to last more than a few seconds. Outside, Viper is already slamming her claws against the ice, deep cracks spreading across the blue dome. They realize they cannot stand up to her in a standard head-on fight. And if they make a single mistake, They'll just get poisoned again. Gale looks at Kay, his face serious. If you hadn't detoxed us, we would be dead already. He asks if Kay can use that power. The yellow crackling power you used in the arena. Kay nods, but admits he isn't used to it yet and will need some time to concentrate the sun gold mana. Gale and Ellie step in front of him, drawing their weapons. We'll buy you as much time as you need. Just focus on gathering that power. Kay drops to one knee, closing his eyes as gold lightning begins to crackle around his body. Outside, the triple ice barrier completely shatters with a deafening crash. Viper screams that they are wasting their time, her claws reaching through the ice dust. Gale and Ellie lunge forward to intercept her. Viper is annoyed, claiming she doesn't care about small fry. She launches a massive green shockwave to sweep them aside. But Gale and Ellie brace their feet, their eyes determined. They are panting, their bodies on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion. If we fall back here, Gale thinks, it is over. Both of them activate their chroma, green wind and blue ice coating their blades. Viper smirks, slightly impressed that these small fry can still manifest S-rank techniques. But even then, she says, her claws glowing with toxic light. She attacks, her claws clashing against their weapons with a flurry of sparks. She mocks them, stating that a half-baked trick like chroma won't save them. Gale's mind is starting to go blank from the massive mana drain. Ellie Cyan is grinding her teeth, forcing herself to absorb more ice mana to keep her blade coated. Viper has had enough. She sweeps her arm, releasing a massive toxic shockwave. Both Gale and Ellie are blown back, coughing up blood as their chroma vanishes. They collapse on the stone, their weapons slipping from their hands. Viper stands over them, her claws raised to finish them off. But suddenly, a brilliant flash of gold lightning splits the sky. A massive, thunderous bolt of yellow electricity strikes the ground directly between them, throwing Viper back. Gale and Ellie open their eyes, gasping for air. The ground is smoking, covered in crackling gold current. Viper pushes her hair back, her jaw dropping. Standing in the center of the lightning is Kay. His form has completely changed. His black hair is crackling with brilliant yellow electricity, and his eyes are glowing solid, pupilless gold. He is using hybrid chroma. He lunges forward, his speed completely different from before. Viper barely has time to raise her arms. Kay slams his gold lightning fist directly into her chest with an earth-shattering impact. Viper is sent flying across the arena, crashing through several stone pillars. Kay doesn't let up, appearing above her instantly to launch a follow-up strike. Viper blocks, but she is spitting blood, her mind racing. His physical stats are officially S-rank, but she notices something. This power is forcibly wrung out of him. It will flicker out soon. She looks down into the fog, wishing her coward of a sister would actually help her. She thinks about the Stella fragment. As long as she can secure the key, her plans are safe. She remembers the promise of freedom, holding her brother's hand in her memories. She smiles, claiming she has plenty of time left to play. She raises her claws, preparing her final toxic strike. I'll be taking the key now, she says. But before she can move a single inch, a massive, catastrophic explosion of S-rank liquid fire obliterates the entire background. Viper is thrown back by the sheer heat, her eyes wide with shock. No way! She mutters. Through the roaring wall of fire, a single silhouette walks out. It is Team Leader Red, looking like an absolute demon of death. His boots click on the stone, his sword dripping with crimson fire. Kay is gasping for air, his gold lightning rapidly fading as he reverts to his colorless state. Viper is trembling, staring at what Red is holding in his hand. It is the severed, tattered head and cloak of the S-rank sword demon. Red tosses the mask onto the floor, his red eyes glowing in the dark. You useless piece of trash, he says. The hunt is officially over. Kay falls heavily onto the stone, his body smoking as the golden lightning completely burns out. He is gasping for air, barely able to keep his eyes open. He has officially drained his entire reservoir, meaning his survival is now entirely in the hands of his S-rank boss. Viper is backing away, her neon green eyes wide with panic. She realizes she made a massive error by trusting the tattered sword demon. Taking on Red in her current state is a fast way to get her card declined permanently. She looks toward the exhausted rookies, planning to use them as human shields to buy herself a clean exit. But Red is already moving. He is in front of her instantly, his red eyes glowing in the shadow of his hair. Just where do you think you're sneaking off to? He says. He swings his blade, and a massive crimson wave cuts through the air. Viper lets out a strained scream as her toxic poison is completely burned away by the heat before it can even touch his coat. The impact throws her onto the floor, completely shattering her remaining defense. Kay and Ellie are watching from the sideline, completely speechless. She is writhing in pain, realizing how badly she lost the matchup. Her poison is completely useless against a guy whose fire can vaporize chemicals on impact. Red casually walks over to the tattered remains of the sword demon, picking up the glowing crescent relic sword. He looks at the blade, completely unimpressed. The maintenance on this is appalling. He notes that if they keep swinging it so roughly, it is going to shatter in no time. The near-dead sword demon is coughing up blood on the floor, unable to even lift his head. Red tosses the relic aside, deciding his standard steel blade is much more comfortable. He turns back to Viper, his red eyes narrowing. Viper, it is your turn. Viper is trembling. Her shark-like teeth grit as Red approaches. Down in the fog, her humming younger sister suddenly stops. She starts crying, begging Red to stop hurting her sister. A brief flashback reveals the two twins as street orphans, being beaten by guards in the slums. The younger twin screams, her eyes turning solid green as she unleashes a massive cloud of toxic mana. The green shockwave is dense enough to force even Red to brace his feet. He looks at the rising green storm, slightly surprised. Kay, Gale, and Ellie are shielding their faces as the toxic wind cuts across the platform. What is this all of a sudden? Kay grunts, his silver hair blowing in the wind. The younger sister is using her own life force, wrapping Viper in a protective green cocoon. Viper looks at her sister, her eyes softening. I'm sorry, sis. You shouldn't have to hurt. You always hated being in pain. She clenches her fists as the green poison fuses directly into her body. The green cocoon collapses into a dense liquid armor. Red looks on, his expression turning cold. This is why the black hand types are so annoying, he mutters, always pulling out some weird phase 2 transformation. Viper's body undergoes a massive mutation. Awakened fusion form, Venom. Her skin turns pitch black, covered in glowing neon green veins. She looks at Red with absolute malice, claiming she didn't want to use this form here. It's all your fault, she screams, and the ground beneath her completely explodes. She lunges from the ceiling, her claws cutting through the air like liquid blades. Red parries the strike, the impact throwing up a massive shockwave of red and green energy. The stone floor beneath them is split in two, deep cracks spreading across the battlements. The wind pressure almost blows the rookies off the platform. Viper launches a high-speed barrage of strikes, her claws clashing against Red's fiery blade. Red blocks easily, but his face is serious. The sheer density of the poison she is releasing is starting to contaminate the air. Kay and the others are already on their limits. If the battle drags on, they are going to get caught in the crossfire. Protecting someone while fighting is way too troublesome, Red thinks. He decides he has no choice. A strange S-rank mental chain within his mind breaks with a clear cracking sound. A massive, white-hot pillar of fire erupts from his body, lighting up the entire wall. The rookies are pushed back by the sheer, suffocating heat. Kay is staring at Red's right arm, which is completely encased in solid glowing red lava armor. It is S-rank Chroma, Mindscape Manifestation. Red raises his sword, which is turned into a massive, three-pronged pillar of absolute crimson flame, extreme blaze brilliant blade. Viper stops her charge, her eyes wide, as she looks at the massive S-rank weapon. She stands in silence for a long moment, evaluating her options. Slowly, she raises her hands. All right, she smiles creepily. I'll stop here. Red doesn't lower his blade. And what kind of game is this now? Viper asks him if he will let her go, offering a tactical retreat. She points out that if he wastes his S-rank mana here, he is just shaving time off his own life force. Besides, she notes, that giant shadow leviathan over there is still heading straight for the city. Red stands in silence, letting her walk away. The negotiation is complete. Viper casually grabs the collar of the near-dead sword demon. She mocks him for getting absolutely packed up by Red, but she still pumps a small dose of her green color into his neck to keep him alive. She warns him that her healing poison is agonizingly painful, so whether he survives is down to his own willpower. She looks back at Kay, giving him a playful wave. Remembered your name, huh? She smiles. Let's play again sometime. She slams her fist down, opening a black void portal on the floor. And just like that, the Black Hand members vanish into the dark. Kay collapses onto his back, gasping for air. We made it! He remembers Lady Luminous's warnings about the Black Hand. He is realizing the sheer, terrifying scale of the conflict he is caught in. If every Black Hand operative is a monster like Viper, this is going to be a massive headache. Red turns his back, his flame armor slowly dissolving. We move immediately. This isn't over. The giant shadow leviathan is still slowly lumbering toward the city walls, and the other S-rank colorists are currently tied up in their own battles at the forward base. We are the only ones left who can deal with this thing, Red says. He looks back at his team of rookies with a smug grin. You all can still fight, right? Kay is staring at him with a deadpan face, wondering if this man has ever heard of labor laws. Suddenly, a massive golden bolt of lightning cuts through the sky. A thunderous rumble echoes from the battlements. A giant circle of bright gold energy begins to gather right on the outer wall. The beam is so powerful, it lights up the entire valley. Red and the rookies look toward the wall, their faces completely frozen. A colossal bolt of sun-gold lightning strikes the giant leviathan directly in the chest, making it shriek in pain. The beast's massive eye is wide with pure shock. It begins to list to the side, its colossal body losing balance. Down on the wall, the soldiers are cheering. Standing in the center of the smoking artillery platform is Marie, holding a massive golden spoit gun. Kay is staring at her, completely dumbfounded. Marie? Meanwhile, back at the shining city cathedral, the holy mists are glowing with a warm, rainbow light. Lady Luminous stands in front of the giant white tree, the colorful cores floating in the branches. She raises her hands, her rainbow eyes glowing softly. A gentle shower of glowing light petals begins to fall over the city streets. She is performing the purification ritual, completely neutralizing the toxic black ash falling from the sky. With this, the citizens won't be corrupted, she says, looking over the cityscape. She notes that now only the giant leviathan outside remains. She turns around, apologizing to the two high-tier primaries for calling them out so suddenly. The blue primary says they must stay cautious, regardless of the wave's size. The green primary notes that Celestia has the hardest job, constantly maintaining the city's massive barrier. That's exactly what us three primaries are for, she says, looking highly confident. Still, she finds it a bit anticlimactic that only a single giant beast showed up. She suggests opening a separate investigation to find out why the beast moved while the Black Witch is asleep. She looks through the crystal window, spotting a sudden flash of crimson fire on the horizon. Geez, she sighs. Senior Ignis is still out there on the front lines. She wonders if Red still doesn't trust them to handle things. The blue primary scolds her, asking why she keeps calling him by his real name instead of his honorable title, Red. The green primary sticks her tongue out, claiming titles are outdated and totally lame. Celestia cuts through their bickering, asking if there has been any movement from the city council. The green primary notes the atmosphere has been weird lately, with Councillor Ludwig actively pushing to purge Kay's black color. Ludwig's faction has been crossing the line, strengthening their ties to the Undercity gangs. She asks Celestia if they should issue some kind of official warning to the council. Celestia smiles gently, telling them to let them be. She notes that the council is trapped in their own fear from the previous wave. But to protect this city, we need Kay, she says. His black color is special. She looks at her glowing hand. Luin, I don't think I can do things the way you did, but I will protect this city, no matter what sacrifices it takes. File that name away, guys. Ludwig isn't the only threat here. Back at the outer wall, the giant leviathan is throwing its massive tentacles against the barrier. The artillery soldiers are firing a constant stream of red grenades, but the shells are barely scratching its armor. The captain is screaming for everyone to keep firing, but they are completely out of heavy ammunition. The beast looms over the battlements, its massive maw opening. It begins to gather a massive, terrifying sphere of black void energy in its throat. The air pressure drops, a black hole-like vortex spinning in its mouth. The soldiers on the platform are frozen in pure terror. Marie is standing near the cannons, her eyes wide. What is that? The beast is about to fire a colossal void beam directly at their station. The black beam shoots forward, cutting through the air like a laser. But the moment it hits the city's outer boundary, Celestia's rainbow barrier flares, completely deflecting the blast. The soldiers look up, completely unharmed. The barrier is glowing, with a brilliant, seven-colored mist. The veteran captain yells at everyone to get a grip. This is the blessing of Lord Luminous. He shouts that as long as the divine barrier is up, the city is completely safe. So don't be afraid. The soldiers cheer, their morale instantly restored. Marie is watching from the back, completely amazed by the scale of the barrier, but her expression quickly turns serious. Everyone is working so hard to protect this city, she thinks. She looks at the giant beast outside, which is preparing another strike. I need to find some way to help too. She spots a massive, heavy Spoit machine gun lying abandoned on the floor. She remembers her power from the entrance test. She grins, grabbing the heavy handle. I'm sure this will help. She connects her personal ink canister to the gun's valve with a heavy click. She steps up to the edge of the wall, screaming at the soldiers to step back. She starts channeling her newly awakened sun gold color into the gun's core. The weapon begins to hum violently, gold electricity crackling along the barrel. The beast's massive eye looks down, sensing the sudden spike in energy. Marie grinds her teeth, her veins popping, as she forces more gold mana into the gun. I can still pull in more! She decides to gather every single drop of her color to release it in one massive blast. The gun's core glows like a miniature sun. She pulls the trigger. A colossal golden laser beam shoots forward, completely vaporizing the giant leviathan's central core in a fraction of a second. The beast doesn't even have time to scream. Its massive body is instantly reduced to a hollow, smoking carcass. The entire defensive platform is silent, the soldiers looking at her with their mouths open. Marie lets out a tired sigh, her golden hair blowing in the wind. She is feeling incredibly dizzy from the sudden drain. She looks at her personal ink canister, which is completely empty. The soldiers suddenly erupt into deafening cheers, throwing their helmets into the air. A new hero is born! Marie is blushing, trying to calm them down. Up on the cliff path, Camellia and Red are watching the celebration. Camellia is running over, looking completely shocked. What's going on here? She looks at the giant, hollowed-out beast carcass. Who did this? Red smirks, patting Marie on the head. Our junior really exceeded all expectations. Marie is just glad everyone is safe. Down below, the cleanup crew is starting to gather around the beast's giant corpse. The guards are warning everyone to be careful. The carcass is highly contaminated with toxic dark mana. I hate creature corpse disposal the most, one worker grumbles, shoveling the black soot. The corporate managers are looking at the beast, sighing because they can't even harvest the rare color crystals inside due to the contamination. The crystal is pitch black, completely corrupted. Camellia is walking down the path, congratulating her team for getting off with almost no damage. She notes it is lucky the Black Hand decided to pull back. She asks Red where the rookies are. Red looks toward the giant corpse, his face deadpan. The kids are fine, but we see a quick shot of Kay, Gale, Ellie, and Marie walking toward the back of the beast, with Nero peeking from behind Kay's cloak. Camellia looks at them with a raised eyebrow. What's wrong? Red just shrugs. I'm sure they'll handle whatever they need to do. The rookies walk up to the base of the massive carcass. Suddenly, dozens of tiny round black shadow blobs begin to pop out of the dirt, letting out cute squeaking noises. They are all flocking straight to Nero, who is sitting on a rock looking like a proud king. Marie and Ellie are instantly squealing. Adorable! Gale is deeply annoyed, wondering why there are so many of these little freaks here. Ellie notes that these small creatures are attracted to the giant corpse's residual energy. She asks Kay what they are doing here. Kay scratches his head, explaining that Nero kept pestering him about coming to this specific spot. Whenever Nero insists on guiding us somewhere like this, Kay says, something good always ends up happening. Suddenly, a massive giant eye snaps open right in the center of the dark flesh. Gale screams in terror, jumping back. I thought that thing was dead. He yells that they need to contact Red and Camellia immediately, but Nero and Kay just stand there, completely calm. Nero's giant cartoon eyes are locked onto the beast's hollow core. Kay takes a step forward, looking into the dark opening. Marie asks if it is actually dead, still clutching her gun. Nero lets out a small squeak, pointing toward the center of the dark mass. You're saying we need to go over there? Kay asks. Marie warns him to be careful, pointing out that touching the corrupted flesh barehanded is incredibly dangerous, but Kay just shrugs his shoulders. I'll be fine. He climbs into the hollow opening, looking around the pitch-black interior. He focuses his dark mana into his optic nerves, inverted sight. His vision shifts, and a brilliant, blinding white light flares in the center of his view. Deep inside the dark flesh is a massive, pulsing white sphere. It is the giant creature's central mana core, completely pure and untouched by the black corruption. Kay realizes this is exactly what Nero wanted to show him. He reaches out his hand, feeling the immense, high-density energy radiating from the core. He knows that if he absorbs this, it will do more than just refill his empty mana tank. It is going to trigger a much more permanent, tangible change in his power. He plants his palm directly onto the core. No reason to hesitate. A massive, terrifying vortex of dark mana erupts from his hand. The black wind is so intense, it completely wraps around the giant beast's corpse. The cleanup crew down below is screaming in terror as the giant monster body is rapidly sucked into the dark vortex. Camellia and Red are staring at the platform, completely dumbfounded. Kay, what did you do this time? Within seconds, the giant carcass is completely devoured, leaving behind absolutely zero contamination. But then, a massive, sparkling rain begins to fall from the sky. Thousands of glowing, multicolored crystals are dropping onto the stone like confetti. The miners and cleanup crew are running around, screaming in absolute joy. They are top-grade color crystals, the uncle says, holding a bright blue gem. They have zero toxicity. Camellia is holding a bright gold crystal, her eyes turning into literal dollar signs. She realizes Kay absorbed all the toxic waste, leaving behind pure, high-value resources. She immediately turns to her uncle, screaming at him to grab every single crystal before anyone else can touch them.
Out of the way!
This is all ours! The battle is officially won, and our guild commander is currently speedrunning corporate embezzlement. The sirens have finally stopped. The public broadcast echoes through the towering gears of the shining city, and everyone is breathing a massive sigh of relief. The giant shadow Leviathan is dead, the eastern gate is secure, and the average citizens are already back to complaining about their daily work quotas. Meanwhile, at the Dawn Pioneer Corps headquarters, our energetic pink-haired Commander Camellia is currently face down on her desk, completely defeated by the only monster she can't punch. Paperwork. The rookies walk in, and Gale immediately asks the question we've all been thinking. How is Kay completely fine after vacuum inhaling a colossal S-rank shadow corpse? Kay just shrugs. He's honestly more confused than anyone else, but he notices his forbidden black mana has stabilized. It's going to be a lot harder for him to accidentally bleach out into his silver-haired colorless form now. Camellia groans, muttering about how Kay's quick cleanup was the only thing that saved the city from a decades-long environmental disaster. She also aggressively defends her decision to hoard all the giant color crystals that rained from the sky, claiming it was a purely tactical move to save their budget. But then her expression shifts. She smiles, telling them that the entire Pioneer Guild is currently losing its mind over their squad. They're being buried in transfer requests and scout offers from every major faction in the city. Ellie Cyan keeps it humble, pointing out that against real Black Hand executives, they would have been completely cooked if Red hadn't drilled them on Chroma beforehand. Speaking of our favorite lazy red-haired mentor, where actually is he? Ravia casually mentions he went to see Lord Luminous, which instantly makes the rookies freeze. You see, Chief Red isn't just a highly skilled investigator, he is one of the three primaries, the absolute pinnacle of military strength in the Shining City. Before they can even process this massive reveal, the door kicks open. Red strolls in like he didn't just walk out of a holy temple. He shrugs off his meeting as a boring routine report, but then he drops a bomb on Kay and Marie. Lord Luminous wants to see them. Right now. Marie starts panicking because they don't even know the way to the inner sanctuary, but Red just smiles. They don't need to walk. A massive, rainbow-colored magic circle erupts under their feet, and the space around them completely tears open. Red's parting words are to not be too nervous since they've technically met him before, and within a fraction of a second, the rookies are teleported miles away. Marie is dizzy, trying to comprehend the sheer scale of a teleportation spell, when a gentle, echoing voice welcomes them. Standing before them is the supreme spiritual leader herself, Celestia. Marie's brain completely short-circuits. She is internally screaming, completely overwhelmed by the sheer aura of Lord Luminous. Celestia is practically glowing, her rainbow-colored pupils holding more raw elemental power than anything they've ever seen. She looks down at Marie, calling her an adorable child, and praises the incredible sun-gold lightning strike she used to vaporize the Leviathan. Marie stammeringly asks if she was actually watching her, and Celestia smiles, saying it left quite an impression. She tells Marie her light is incredibly clear and beautiful, and that she has more than enough potential to become a legendary colorist. Celestia looks out over the city, musing that if bright children like them gather to push back the dark mists, humanity might actually survive. And because Marie performed such a praiseworthy deed, she deserves a reward that money simply cannot buy. A color as vivid and rare as Marie's sungold deserves a fitting lineage. Celestia taps her staff on the stone floor and formally grants Marie a legendary house name. The Gold family line was completely severed during the tragic Fourth Black Wave, but from this day forward, Luminous proclaims that Marie is the official new head of House Gold. Marie's face instantly reverts to a complete cartoon outline. Her brain has officially left the building. Celestia chuckles, telling her there's no pressure, and she should just keep living her best life. Then Celestia turns her multicolored eyes to Kay. She apologizes, explaining that she should have granted him a noble name as well, but his forbidden black color is far too controversial to celebrate publicly. Kay nods. He's perfectly happy staying under the radar. It's much safer that way. Celestia notes that the council will complain about her unilaterally naming a new househead, but Marie's sheer power makes her more than qualified. She calls it a strange twist of fate for the golden light to reappear now. Kay thanks her for looking out for them, but Celestia's smile turns slightly cryptic. Everything in this world comes with a cause. She taps her staff, sending Marie back to headquarters first. She wants to talk to Kay alone. The space ripples as Marie vanishes. Kay stands in the massive, quiet chamber, his hand instinctively reaching for his gear. He knows whatever Celestia wants to say to him privately, it's not going to be a casual chat. He asks what she wants to discuss, and Celestia points her staff directly at his feet. She says there's someone else who should be participating in this conversation. Kay realizes he's been caught. He tells his shadow to come out, and our tiny round shadow blob Nero slowly peeks out, trembling and crying. Celestia smiles warmly, observing the ancient, deep shadow creature. She looks directly into Kay's eyes, telling him that what they are about to discuss next must stay strictly between the two of them. Meanwhile, deep in the dark, jagged ruins of the Black Lands, a man in tattered clothes is violently screaming, his body convulsing in a pool of boiling green poison. Viper stands over him, smiling like she's watching a cute puppy. She's impressed he actually survived her S-rank toxin. She mocks his desperate attachment to life, but then her attention is drawn to the high cliffs above. Four towering, dark silhouettes stand on the rocks, looking down at her like judge and executioner. The elite High Council of the Black Hand has officially arrived. The monstrous, blue-eyed Black Hand Asura steps forward, his voice rattling the stone. He demands to know how a low-tier executive like Viper managed to move a colossal shadow leviathan. Viper scoffingly compares him to the deceased sword demon, refusing to hand over her secrets. But the massive, red-eyed Black Hand executioner raises his giant battle axe. He warns her that they are on the verge of a world-ending event, and her flashy, unauthorized solo stunts are putting their entire plan at risk. If her little circus causes any more problems, he will execute her himself. Viper's smile turns incredibly sharp, her shark teeth bared as she tells him to try it. The executioner reminds her that her venomous form is nearly exhausted, and she is on the verge of splitting apart. Before they can tear each other to pieces, a pale hand waves them down. The blindfolded, blonde Black Hand Watcher giggles. She tells the council she knows exactly why Viper acted on her own. Viper's face completely drops. The Watcher's mouth pulls back into a horrific, wide grin, uttering a single name, Kay. She calls Kay the key that can pierce the cosmic veil, mocking Viper for keeping such a massive prize all to herself. Viper screams at her to shut her mouth, while the rest of the council demands an explanation, but the Watcher just giggles, saying she doesn't want to spoil any more secrets today, or Viper really might murder her. She shivers with delight, completely obsessed with peeking into people's private files. Viper is shaking with pure rage, baring her claws. Then, a cold, mechanical voice cuts through the tension. The towering, bucket-headed Black Handmeister steps onto the cliff. He looks down at Viper, telling her he will let her solo stunt slide this single time. but he warns her that she is just a single piece on their massive board, and the grand design must not be disrupted. Viper reluctantly lowers her hands, silent. The Meister looks out into the dark fog, stating that their allies in the Undercity are making perfect preparations. The massive tunnels they are carving directly beneath the shining city's foundation are almost complete. The city wrapped in holy light will soon rot from its very roots, and once the foundation fails, the entire metropolis will collapse in on itself, leaving nothing but pitch-black decay, a dark, quiet path. Kay is walking on a surface of liquid colors, his footsteps echoing in a deep void. He wonders if this is just another dream, looking around at a vast, empty expanse. But the darkness clinging to his boots feels strangely familiar. He has stood in a place like this before, looking down into a deep abyss. He feels like something massive is about to return to him when a distant, echoing voice warns him, "Don't. Not that way. This way." The voice tells him he is looking for a beautiful light, pointing him toward a shining star above, while a massive, terrifying wall of writhing dark eyes and tentacles lurks in the deep waters below. Kay's eyes snap open with a gasp. He sits up in bed, breathing heavily, only to get violently lick-attacked by a very happy Nero. Kay groans, telling the little shadow blob he's getting up. He stretches, yawning loudly as the morning sun streams through the window. He tries to remember the dream, but the details are already slipping away like water. He opens his bedroom door, still slightly half asleep, and looks out over the bustling rooftops of the shining city. Meanwhile, in the adjacent wing, Marie is currently struggling. She is aggressively brushing the long, cyan-blue hair of a completely unresponsive Ellie Sion. It turns out, the highly disciplined, cold ice prodigy of House Sion is a complete, brain-dead slug in the mornings. Marie has to physically throw her clothes at her, yelling at her to get ready before they are late. Outside the courtyard, Marie and Ellie finally run out, waving apologetically. Gale is leaning against a wall, complaining that they couldn't possibly walk any slower. Ellie keeps bowing and apologizing, while Kay notes it's wild that they are all suddenly living under one roof. Kay looks up at their massive new headquarters, still trying to comprehend how much money Chief Red actually has to buy a fortress of this size. It all started when Kay was looking for a new workshop for Marie after her old place was completely wrecked. Red, who had been listening from a distance, casually walked over with a smirk. He proposed that the entire Red team simply move into a massive estate together. His reasoning was completely practical. Tracking down lazy rookies during an emergency is a massive hassle, and having them all in one place makes running his brutal training drills significantly easier. Back in the present, Kay tells Ellie not to worry about it, but asks if a high-ranking noble is truly comfortable living in a communal barracks. Ellie assures him she's fine, while Gale explains how noble families actually work. In the Shining City, a noble scion who does absolutely nothing is legally treated as expensive deadweight. Unless you are the primary heir chosen to lead the house, you are expected to join the Pioneer Corps and pull your own weight to prove your worth. Marie asks Gale how he knows so much about noble inheritance, and Gale instantly turns red, snapping at her to stop chatting and get moving. The squad heads into the Lumina district, arriving at the massive, steam venting facility known as the Color Workshop. Gale instantly groans as they step into the courtyard. The entire place is completely packed with elite colorists waiting in a massive line. Gale tells Ellie to use her Sion family name to get them priority treatment, but Ellie strictly refuses to abuse her family's authority for personal convenience. Before a fight can break out, a sharply dressed orange-haired attendant approaches them, welcoming them to the workshop. It turns out Red's purple-haired secretary, Miss Ravia, had already called ahead. The attendant guides them past the massive crowd and directly into the VIP showroom. Marie's eyes turn into pure stars. The glass displays are filled with high-tier, master-crafted weapons and custom armor that make standard spoits look like mass-produced toys. The attendant tells them to take their time while he prepares their private consultation, but then he hesitates, leaning in close to Kay and Marie. He whispers a quiet warning. Currently on the premises is another member of the three great houses, Claude of House Yellow. Ellie immediately recognizes the name, her expression turning cold. She explains that Claude is widely known as a complete menace, infamous for verbally and physically abusing his servants. He carries every terrible nickname in the book: Mad Dog, the Disgrace of Yellow, and the Noble Degenerate. The attendant thanks them for their understanding and leaves to prepare their order. Marie is still happily looking at the shiny gear, completely unbothered, but as the squad walks through the main hall, the surrounding nobles immediately recognize Ellie. The crowd whispers in hushed, respectful tones, noting how incredible it is for a daughter of House Cian to be working alongside a primary. Several wealthy nobles immediately try to crowd around her, trying to secure business ventures and play nice. Ellie politely greets them, instantly adopting her flawless, disciplined noble posture. They continue to shower her with praise, making Marie and Gale realize just how massive her family's standing actually is. But the commotion draws the attention of someone lounging in a velvet chair. Claude of House Yellow looks over, his yellow eyes narrowing. His yes-men tell him it's probably nobody important, but Claude's eyes lock onto Marie's golden hair. He senses her elemental aura. It's yellow, but it's subtly different, incredibly vivid, bright, and pure. He stands up, a heavy gold ring catching the light as he pushes his chair back. He walks directly over to Marie, looking down his nose at her. Marie freezes, realizing this is the spoiled mad dog the attendant just warned them about. Claude smiles arrogantly, commenting that her color looks even better up close. He stares deeply into her golden eyes, declaring that her elemental caliber passes his personal inspection. Marie's eyebrow twitches. She asks him what he's talking about, and Claude sneeringly asks which family she belongs to, noting that if she had yellow mana of that caliber, he would have recognized her. He then realizes she has no noble crest, chuckling that she must be a mere commoner, scraping by in the slums. Marie is clenching her fist so hard her knuckles are turning white, desperately wanting to punch his teeth in. Claude casually reaches out his hand, telling her she can die in the Black Lands or come serve at his estate. He reaches to grab her shoulder, but a gloved hand slaps his arm aside with a loud smack. Kay steps directly between them, his dark eyes completely devoid of warmth. The yes-men freeze in sheer disbelief. Claude is trembling with rage, asking Kay if he has a death wish for daring to touch a noble. He raises his hand, preparing to channel his yellow lightning to educate Kay on social ranking, when Nero suddenly launches out of Kay's collar like a little black missile. The shadow blob latches directly onto Claude's nose, biting down with a screech. Claude screams, violently flinging the creature to the hard wooden floor. Kay's eyes go completely pitch black. Claude looks up, his expression turning to shock as he senses the massive, cold void aura erupting from the quiet kid. Kay moves with S-rank speed, his fist compressing the air as he delivers a massive, jaw-shattering punch directly into Claude's face, sending teeth and gold jewelry flying across the showroom. The impact shakes the whole room. Claude of House Yellow flies backward like a broken doll, smashing straight through several wooden display shelves in a spectacular shower of splinters and glass. The entire showroom completely freezes. Marie and Gale look on in pure, unadulterated shock. Claude's high society yes-men start screaming for a healer, looking at their golden boy on the floor, who is currently napping in a pile of ruined luxury merchandise. Kay, completely unbothered, ignores the screaming and calls Nero back to his hand. He checks the little shadow blob over, making sure the kid didn't lose any of his round, adorable fluff. Kay casually apologizes to Marie, muttering that he might have let his temper slip for a second. Gale just stares at him like he's an alien. If you're going to hit a high noble like that, you might as well have finished the job and sucked all his color out. The lackeys finally find their voices, pointing trembling fingers at Kay. Do you have any idea what you've just done? They start screaming standard NPC dialogue about how they're going to make sure Kay never draws breath in this city again. They even try to turn it into a political issue, screaming that a cursed black colorist shouldn't even be allowed to walk the streets of their clean, illuminated city. Marie is immediately having none of it, her golden hair flaring as she snaps back at them. She points her finger, delivering the ultimate flex. I was talking directly to Lord Luminous yesterday, all right? I am the head of House Gold. The lackeys call her a liar, claiming House Gold was wiped out ages ago, but the shouting match is suddenly cut short. A high-heeled click echoes on the stone floor, and the atmosphere in the room drops to absolute zero. The crowd gasps as they recognize the silky cyan blue hair. Lady Alicia of House Cyan? The crowd of snobby nobles starts whispering, realizing that if things escalate between two of the three great houses, this workshop is about to become a war zone. The lackeys think their savior has arrived. They run to her, begging her to keep her low-born dogs on a tighter leash. Ellie Cyan doesn't even look at them. She just stands there, cold as glaciers, and says, "Be quiet." She tells them very calmly that before they drone on about handling the rabble, they need to figure out their own place first. The lackeys try to stammer that Claude is the heir of House Yellow, but Ellie casually shuts them down. Let them lodge a complaint. She looks down at Claude, who is still napping in the rubble. You truly can't imagine House Yellow risking a clash with House Cyan over one single problem child, can you? She tells them they aren't even worth dealing with, and commands them to get out of her sight. If you have a problem, she adds, her ice blue eyes flashing, then act like nobles and issue a formal duel challenge instead of flapping your mouths. The surrounding nobles in the crowd whisper in agreement. Claude's reputation is trash anyway, and there's absolutely nothing to gain from turning House Cyan and Team Leader Red into permanent enemies. The lackeys realize they are completely outclassed. They hurriedly pick up their broken boss and drag him out of the room. Kay looks at Ellie, offering a quiet, sincere thank you. Ellie tries to maintain her stoic Ice Queen posture, but her fingers start nervously fidgeting. She blushes slightly, repeating Marie's words from before. We're a team now. When things get rough, we help each other out. She looks up, a tiny, genuine smile breaking through her cold armor. In other words, that makes us friends. Marie is so happy she instantly hugs her, and Ellie's cool composure completely melts into an embarrassed, cute mess. The aristocratic crowd decides they've seen enough and awkwardly disperses. The store clerks finally run out, holding their heads and crying over the millions worth of broken luxury spoits on the floor. They scream, asking who could have done something so terrible. Our team instantly adopts the universal face of pure innocence. Gale is smiling, Marie is whistling, and Kay is looking at the ceiling. Classic. With the drama handled, they finally head into the actual forge of the workshop. The attendant explains that this is where the finest spoits in the Shining City are born, and that their top master artisans will be working personally to craft custom gear just for them. Since Red already prepaid for all their usage rights, they can customize whatever they want. Gale complains that Kay's void mana breaks every weapon he touches, so this is going to be incredibly expensive. Marie is in absolute alchemical heaven, her eyes turning into pure gear shapes as she looks at the heavy industrial machinery. She asks Kay if it's really fine for her to use all his custom credits to process her own materials. Kay shrugs, telling her he's perfectly satisfied with what he has. He lifts his arm, looking at the custom black stabilizer gauntlet Marie designed for him in the slums. Marie is touched, immediately running over to talk shop with the local blacksmiths about alchemical screws, her golden hair bouncing with pure, hyperactive joy. Kay walks around the display cases, looking at the mass-produced weapons. It's refreshing to see the real deal, but then his eyes lock onto a simple, unadorned dagger on display. It has no flashy decorations, no gold trim, just clean steel. He picks it up, wondering what makes it special. Suddenly, a gravelly voice speaks behind him, praising him for having an eye for quality. Kay turns around, asking the old gray-haired man with goggles who he is. The old man casually drops the price, 10 million lux. Kay's face goes pale. He immediately tries to put it back. Kay insists he was just looking and is perfectly happy with his current gauntlet. The old man's eyes narrow as he stares intensely at Kay's wrist. He asks to take a closer look, and Kay, slightly confused, holds out his arm. The old man rubs his thumb over the metal, noting that the rough finish was engineered that way on purpose. His eyes widen as he examines the core. He tells Kay that the power core is built from a high-grade ancient relic, meaning Kay has been walking around with a stabilizer worth far more than the 10 million lux dagger. Kay explains that his forbidden black mana breaks any standard spoit, so this custom piece is the only one he can use. The old man, thoroughly intrigued, asks who the master craftsman was. Kay points over to Marie. The old man stares at Marie, his expression turning to pure, silent disbelief. That girl made this? On her own? He turns back to Kay, his tone turning dead serious. He commands Kay to never go to anyone else for gear. I will personally look over your gear. I'll be waiting. Kay, totally lost, just nods and agrees. Marie calls out that they're done with their orders, and Kay says goodbye to the strange old man, heading toward the exit. The clerks bow politely, thanking them for choosing the workshop. Once the rookies are gone, the shop clerks sigh in exhaustion, leaning against the pillars. One suggests grabbing a drink after work, but his coworker suddenly spots someone walking up behind them. The clerk panics, his eyes nearly popping out of his skull. He stammers, "Master, have you been here this whole time?" It turns out the old man with goggles is the actual supreme master craftsman of the entire workshop. He barks at the clerks, repeating his command to send those kids straight to his private forge next time. The master looks down at the blueprint schematics of Kay's gauntlet and Marie's raw alchemical engineering, his face pulling back into a wide, excited grin. It's been a while since I've seen something this entertaining. Outside, the team walks down the sunny street. Gale asks what they should do while they wait for their new weapons to arrive. Ellie steps up, offering a very practical suggestion. Marie is a genius mechanic, but she has zero training as a pioneer. She doesn't know how to survive or fight in the toxic Blacklands. Marie is caught completely off guard, her face turning pale. Marie groans, absolutely hating the idea of studying, but Ellie smiles warmly, promising to teach her well. They head back to their towering new base, and the training arc officially begins. Marie practicing with her massive golden gun, blasting target dummies in the yard. Gale watches from the window, looking on with a smirk. Marie gets frustrated as the heavy gun kicks back, but Kay gently taps her head, encouraging her to keep trying. Ellie and Kay sit her down, teaching her how to read the complex, hazardous maps of the outer zones. Nero sits on the table, acting as a paperweight. Red stands in the yard, casually watching them train, while Kay's dark void mana and Gale's windstorms clash in the background. To repay them, Marie bakes fresh bread and cooks a massive breakfast for the entire squad. They sit around the table like a real family. This is the good stuff. Late into the night, Marie and Ellie study under a single lamp, laughing and sharing notes. The next morning, the sun rises over their base. The custom delivery finally arrives. Ellie draws her new ice rapier, Gale grips his wind-attuned green blade, and Kay smiles, looking down at his stabilized gear. With this, I'm ready to head back out into the Black Land. We return to their massive base. Red stands at the front of the room, smiling lazily. He asks if everyone had enough time to rest. He checks out their new custom gear, noting the impressive output of the Sion rapier and Marie's golden revolver. He smiles, noting that a little rest did them good. Everyone looks much more energetic. He pulls a massive blackboard across the floor. In that case, warm-up time is over. Let's officially begin Red Team's mission. He explains their top priority, recovering the shattered Stella fragments. Previously, these fragments were locked behind impenetrable dark mists, but since Kay has stabilized his Black Void trial, they can track the distorted points in space around Kay's energy signature to locate them. Red's smile fades slightly, his expression turning serious. He drops a massive piece of bad news. I will no longer be able to accompany you on every expedition. The rookies immediately panic, but Red tells them to calm down and let him finish. He shows them 2 high-level dispatch papers, an SS-rank defense mission and an S-rank rescue mission. As one of the 3 primaries, his personal schedule is constantly packed with world-ending emergencies. If he doesn't handle these high-level threats, the city's entire infrastructure could collapse. But since the Black Hand is actively hunting K as the key, letting the rookies explore the Black Lands alone is far too dangerous. That's why he brought a solid reinforcement to fill the gaps while he's away. He opens the door. The rookies look up, shocked, as a familiar orange ponytail walks into the room. It's Arancia, the S-Class platoon leader who survived the ruins alongside them. Red explains that at least one S-Class colorist will rotate in to act as an escort on their expeditions. He waves goodbye, telling them to listen to their senior and to not cause any more trouble while he's gone. He smiles warmly as the door closes behind him. Arancia chuckles, muttering that Red is acting like a nagging dad as he gets older. But her expression softens, noting that he always goes out of his way to shoulder the heaviest burdens alone. His personality hasn't changed a bit. She flashes back to her own rookie years, remembering a messy-haired, younger version of herself, bruised and angry in an alleyway, while a younger Red smiled down at her, handing her a wanted poster. Red has always been the one saving people from the dark. Arancia taps the board, snapping them back to attention. She explains that Lady Luminous has sensed faint ripples of a stella fragment near ManhwaRecap, a heavily fortified outpost on the edge of the Black Land. Since they don't have precise coordinates, they will have to sweep the outer unexplored zones to find it. The team shouts in agreement, and they officially set out for their new forward operating base. The train tracks transition across the map, heading deep into the gray, dusty mountains. They arrive at ManhwaRecap. It is a massive, noisy industrial fortress filled with heavy steam pipes, crane towers, and temporary barracks. The local miners and defense crews watch as the massive transport vehicles arrive, yelling at everyone to unload. The heavy tires screech against the dusty stone. Armed guards patrol the metal catwalks, keeping a close eye on the gray fog outside the walls. In the crowd, some miners whisper about hearing a sinister buzzing sound coming from the unexplored outer zone lately. Keep that in mind. The red team steps off the transport, looking out at the vast, desolate landscape. Kay looks up at the gray, ash-covered sky. It almost feels like an eternity since they last stepped into the Black Lands. They walk past rows of temporary tents and industrial chimneys spewing white steam. Arancia puts her arm around Kay, telling him that since he's already a veteran at this point, he needs to take the lead on this expedition. Kay is caught off guard, asking if she's going to take charge. Arancia tells him they can't hide behind her forever. The only way to get stronger is by facing danger head-on and taking a few hits. She will simply provide support from the back. Suddenly, the local miners spot her. It's her! It's really Miss Arancia. They immediately try to crowd around her, begging her to help them clear a difficult request. But Arancia sighs, putting on her goggles and telling Kay to just start moving. They walk through the busy camp to get a feel for the area. The outpost is filled with weary-looking travelers, merchants, and low-class miners. Suddenly, Kay spots a pioneer sitting against a wall, coughing violently. A miner is yelling at him, asking why he went into the deep zones and risked getting corrupted by erosion. The sick pioneer coughs, desperately begging for clean ink to survive. In a nearby tent, a shady-looking researcher is inspecting a bizarre, writhing black specimen, hoping to publish it in the Academy journals to win praise from the nobles. Kay watches silently, realizing how desperate people are on the frontier. Marie points out a massive crowd gathered around the main quest board on the wall. They walk over, but as soon as they get close, the crowd starts whispering. A miner spots Kay's dark hair and panics. Oh crap, it's the Black One! Isn't he that guy from the news? Another miner scowls, telling Kay to get lost because his cursed dirty black color is ruining everyone's mood. Gale instantly snaps, stepping up with his hand on his hilt, while Marie suggests they shut their mouths with a beating. Kay stops them. He expected some hostility, but he didn't expect the frontier pioneers to be this aggressive. The miners realize they are from the S-Class Dawn Corps, wondering what they are doing up north. Suddenly, the crowd parts as a massive shadow looms over them. Kay looks up, his eyes narrowing. Standing before them is a towering, broad-shouldered man with royal blue hair, a blue coat draped over his shoulders, and high-tech iron gauntlets. He sneers at Kay. So you're the boy with the black color, who's been making a name for himself lately. Marie and Gale immediately step forward, telling him to back off if he's planning to be rude. Kay holds out his arm, keeping them back. He wants to handle this peacefully. The blue-haired man introduces himself. He is S-rank Pioneer Valen, leader of the A-rank Sweet Corps. He leans down, whispering in Kay's ear, "The requests in this region are handled by our Corps, kid. You'd better look for work elsewhere." Before a fight can break out, a cold voice interrupts them from behind. "That's enough. I can't watch this childish posturing anymore." Valen and his lackeys turn around, their faces going pale. Arancia walks up, her amber eyes glowing under her goggles. "Arancia?" Valen stammers, sweating. Arancia folds her arms, mocking him. "Since when did pioneers start dividing the Black Land into my territory? Did you happen to get a land deed from the land itself?" Valen grinds his teeth, but Arancia's S-rank aura is far too oppressive. He warns her not to let her seniority go to her head, but she casually dismisses him, calling him a bootlicker. Embarrassed and outclassed, Valen commands his men to leave, walking away in frustration. Gale scoffs, calling them a complete buzzkill. Arancia tells Kay not to let it bother him. Territorial disputes among rival pioneer corps are incredibly common on the frontier, but before they can march, a group of frantic civil officials runs around the corner, shouting Arancia's name. They crowd around her, holding high-risk emergency request papers and begging her to hear them out. Arancia aggressively tells them to stop bothering her. Kay watches her get swarmed, thinking that being famous on the frontier looks like an absolute pain. Arancia screams at the officials, telling them to get lost because she already said no. Elsewhere, deep in a dark, rocky canyon, Arancia leads the rookies away from the crowded outpost, stepping into the gray fog. Marie notes that normally, Arancia would have accepted the civil request without a doubt, remembering the teary-eyed officials who looked so strangely fragile. Arancia agrees, but she points out that this is their very first Stella mission, and as their temporary exploration leader, her absolute priority is keeping them focused. She looks back at them, a warm, nostalgic smile on her face as they walk deeper into the dark. "Very well then, juniors, let's kick off our first mission." She raises her lantern, guiding them directly into the unexplored, dangerous territory of the Black Land. Deep in the desolate, ash-covered valleys of the Black Land, two figures walk through the silent, cold fog. Team Leader Red and the Green Primary are taking a walk down memory lane, remembering the chaotic old days when they were active rookies together, constantly clearing out messes on the frontier. The Green Primary gets immediately flustered, yelling that she is eternally respectable now and that her wild rookie past was entirely in service to the city. She clears her throat, telling him to forget the embarrassing memories and focus on the experiment. They stop in front of a small, glowing circle of cleared land. Red explains that ever since Kay devoured the Shadow Leviathan here, this specific spot has stayed completely clear of the dark fog. Normally, even if they clear the mist with holy light, it comes back, but Kay's purification has left a permanent blank spot. Red reveals they tried to reproduce this effect using Kay's barrier technique, but the experiment yielded absolutely nothing. That's because Kay's devouring void is fundamentally based on direct physical contact. If he cannot physically touch the barrier with his bare hands, his absolute absorption simply will not trigger. Red looks out at the dark horizon, noting that Kay is carrying a power that not even he fully understands, and that his growth potential is practically infinite. He also notes that Lady Luminous clearly knows the full truth of Kay's nature, but is intentionally hiding it from them for some grand plan. But whatever the secret is, they have a job to do. Red asks her to confirm that the coast is clear of any syndicates or wild beasts, and the Green Primary smiles, pulling out a massive, glowing alchemical chest. She is incredibly excited, calling this the most fascinating experiment of her career. She turns the heavy locking wheel on the front, and a brilliant, multicolored pillar of holy light shoots into the sky. Inside the chest is a pristine, glowing stella fragment, preserved in a sealed case. She brags about how much work she put into securing this fragment, explaining how difficult it was to convince Lady Luminous to let her run a live field test in the Blacklands. Red reaches down, his fingers hovering over the glowing relic, and picks it up with a calm smile. But as soon as the raw, pure light of the fragment touches the air, a thunderous, guttural roar echoes through the dark canyons. A colossal swarm of high-rank shadow beasts emerges from the fog, drawn to the light like moths to a flame. The Green Primary casually steps up, telling Red she will handle this minor inconvenience. She reaches for the glowing green potion vial at her hip, releasing her S-rank green chroma magic. The green energy swirls in the air, forming tiny glowing dandelion seeds that drift toward the charging pack. She extends her hand, her eyes glowing, and detonates the seeds. The tiny seeds explode, rapidly growing into a massive, towering forest of thick, crushing green vines that wrap around the shadow beasts, crushing their skulls and tearing them to pieces in seconds. Red stands in the center of the green vortex, completely unbothered by the violence around him. He looks at the Stella fragment, muttering that this experiment has to succeed if humanity is to have any real future. The walled city cannot protect them forever, and they must prepare for the worst-case scenario. He plants the fragment into the stone floor, whispering a quiet prayer that this lonely little tree will successfully take root and push back the darkness. Meanwhile, cut back to the red team. Nero is currently peeking over a pile of rubble, staring at a strange gray brick. Marie reaches down, lifting the heavy metal object out of the dust. Her cheeks puffed as she complains about how dirty the ruins are, though she secretly loves exploring. She holds it up to Kay, yelling that she found a weird artifact that looks exactly like an ancient camera. Nero floats over, curious, and Marie explains that people in the olden days used this to capture moments in time. She accidentally presses the button, and the camera releases a massive, blinding flash of light, blinding both her and Nero. Kay warns her to stop playing with ancient junk before she triggers an explosion. Kay looks around at the collapsed concrete buildings. Just looking at the colossal scale of the ruins, you can tell how incredibly advanced the Radiant civilization must have been. They notice several other pioneer groups nearby, using flashlights to rummage through the debris. Everyone is far too busy collecting profitable relics to notice anything else. Arancia explains that on the frontier, you cannot afford to be picky. If you want to survive, you grab food, equipment, and anything useful. Pioneers slowly push back the dark, opening new paths to expand the city's borders, and their destination is located deep within the massive, dark structure ahead. They stop at the edge of a deep trench, looking down at a buried entrance. Arancia warns them that most of the ruins are buried deeply and reminds them that they must stay alert because these ancient chambers contain far more than just monsters. She points to a glowing security console on the wall. The ruins are filled with deadly ancient traps ready to trigger, and there are many cases where even S-rank pioneers died instantly because they let their guard down. Marie is horrified, but Arancia pats her shoulder, telling them to stay sharp as they head into the dark. As they step through the threshold, a loud mechanical click echoes, and the security systems suddenly flare to life. A swarm of skittering shadow beasts drops from the ceiling, their teeth bared as they lunge. The squad immediately moves. Gale wind-slices a beast in half, while Marie fires her golden gun, but the shadow beasts are incredibly fast, dodging Marie's shots. She groans, realizing these moving targets are on a completely different level from the static practice dummies she trained on. A shadow beast lunges at Marie from her blind spot, its jaws wide open. Marie freezes, unable to react as the monster closes the distance. But a brilliant, freezing cyan blue wind slices through the air, and Ellie Scion dashes in, her rapier moving with perfect precision as she instantly freezes and shatters the monster into million ice shards, saving her. Ellie keeps her eyes forward, lecturing Marie that long-range gunners must never rely solely on rear commands, or they will miss rapidly approaching threats. But then she looks back at Marie, a warm, confident smile on her face. My ability works perfectly in conjunction with yours. Feel free to go all out. I'll cover the front. Marie smiles back, thanking her. With the first room cleared, they catch their breath. Gale looks at a glowing elevator shaft, asking how far down they have traveled. Ellie explains they are currently on the 7th underground level and have made it here without taking a single break. Kay looks at his hands, realizing something weird is happening. Normally, after fighting back-to-back, his void mana would have left him exhausted, but his body feels incredibly light and strong, his black mana flowing smoothly. It's as if strength keeps coming. Arancia leans on her giant steam hammer, looking at them with an impressed smile. She tells them their coordination puts most veteran pioneers to shame, and confesses she didn't expect them to make it this deep in less than a day. She mutters, wondering where Red managed to find such monstrous rookies. Then, her expression turns serious. She points her finger toward a dark, massive doorway, blocked by a dense, writhing black fog. Beyond this point lies the veil of the Black Witch. She warns them that the density of the fog inside is completely abnormal, enough to rot their minds in seconds. She commands them to not move a muscle without her orders as she takes the lead. They walk down the corridor toward the door. As Kay passes a metallic pillar, a hidden, ancient security camera suddenly whirs, turning its lens directly toward him. Kay stops, sensing a mechanical gaze locking onto his skin. The camera's red scanner flashes, reading his jumps track 00000 next, black mana. ManhwaSummary ManhwaS. The console blares a deafening siren. ManhwaSummary massive, heavy blast door slams down from the ceiling in a flash of sparks, separating Kay and Ellie from Arancia, Gale, and Marie. Gale and Marie scream in panic, banging on the metal wall. Arancia yells at them to get back and slams her S-rank steam hammer into the door in a massive, fiery explosion. The impact shakes the corridor, but the heavy blast door doesn't leave a single scratch, absorbing the flame. Arancia groans, realizing the door has triggered its ancient energy conservation mode. Before she can strike again, the security console blares a cold, mechanical warning. Dunsirser Insir K looks on, as metal nozzles slide out of the walls, glowing with white-hot energy. Arancia screams through the glass, telling Kay and Ellie to destroy the floor beneath them because this plasma incinerator will vaporize them in seconds. Kay asks if he can absorb it, but Arancia yells that this isn't normal fire. Never underestimate ancient technology! We have no idea what kind of attack it will launch. With 5 seconds left on the countdown, Kay nods, his expression turning dead serious. He yells at Ellie to stay close to him. He compresses his black void mana into a high-density point on his right fist. The nozzles hiss as the white plasma fire begins to vent. Kay roars, driving his fist straight into the concrete floor, and shatters the foundation in a massive explosion of rubble. The floor completely collapses, and Kay and Ellie plunge into the bottomless abyss below, narrowly dodging a colossal pillar of incinerating white plasma fire that vaporizes the entire corridor behind them. Kay lands on a soft, dusty floor, coughing in the dark. Nero pops out of his shadow, acting as a bright light source. Kay looks around at the absolute, suffocating darkness, muttering, "Are we inside the veil now?" Deep in the subterranean ruins, Marie is screaming through the smoke-filled corridor, her voice echoing off the scorched metal walls. Arancia and Gale stand over the melted ruins of the blast door, coughing in the heat. The blast door and the hole Kay punched have been completely sealed by the molten incinerated slag. Arancia grinds her teeth, warning them that if they try to force their way through this molten structural wall, the entire sector will collapse on top of them. She groans in frustration, realizing Kay and Ellie are completely cut off and they have no way to reach them. They stand in the quiet corridor, the wind whistling through the dark maintenance shafts. Suddenly, Gale looks down a secondary corridor, telling Arancia he has found another way. He explains that the airflow is different here, suggesting a secondary maintenance ventilation shaft that leads down. Arancia commands him to lead the way, while Marie watches in awe of his wind-tracking skills. They run down a dark corridor, arriving at a massive, steel-plated hatch sealed with heavy metal bars. Arancia walks up, her fingers gripping the thick steel plates, and rips the metal doors open with her bare hands in a shower of concrete dust. She praises Gale for his quick thinking, noting that this secondary passage might allow them to bypass the sealed incinerator zone and reach Kay and Ellie. They jump down the hatch, sliding down the pipes at high speed. Meanwhile, deep below, Kay is walking through the pitch-black corridor. He looks around, noting that they are inside the curtain of the Black Witch, which looks exactly like the pocket dimension they entered in Area 21. He got separated from Ellie during the massive fall and needs to find her quickly. He wonders if he should just absorb the curtain, but as he reaches out his hand, there is no solid reaction. The fog is formless, meaning he cannot physically grab it to perform his absolute absorption. He notes he'll have to get rid of the core from the outside once they escape, but is surprised by how massive this subterranean zone is. Nero suddenly lets out a warning chirp, his glowing eyes looking down the corridor. Kay runs forward, spotting a pale figure kneeling in the dirt. "Ellie, I found you! Thank go!" But his voice trails off. Ellie is kneeling, her body trembling as she clutches her head. Surrounding her are floating, dark whisper loops. Kay realizes she is suffering from the exact same psychological corruption they faced in Area 21. He calls Nero over, ordering him to project his brilliant white light barrier to cleanse her mind. Nero floats over, projecting a warm dome of light over Ellie, but inside her mind, the dark whispers are screaming. Lexlers unwa slurs. She grips her new ice rapier, her knuckles turning white as her sister's faceless, mocking shadow looms over her. "For my sister! I have to prove it." Kay's eyes widen as he senses her flaring, unstable mana. He screams at Nero to get back, but it is too late. Ellie lunges forward with dead, hollow eyes, executing a high-speed, lethal thrust that slices directly across Kay's chest, drawing blood. Kay skids backward, clutching his chest in pain, trying to comprehend what just happened. He realizes her symptoms are different from before. Her eyes are pitch black, which means this is a high-level dark infection identical to the S-rank Black Hand's corruption. Before he can recover, Ellie dashes in again, her rapier executing a flurry of blinding, lethal slashes. She moves with terrifying speed, her blade leaving trails of frost in the dark. Kay is forced to perform a high-speed dodge, barely evading her blade as it grazes his cheek. He realizes that leaving her like this will permanently shatter her mind, and he has to bring her back before the corruption takes over completely. If he can just get close enough to place his hand on her skin, he can perform his absolute absorption to purge the dark infection. But her rapier strikes are far too dense, making it incredibly difficult to close the distance. Kay parries a strike with his gauntlet, but then a realization hits him. Why isn't she using her freezing ice elements? That's because, inside this hallucination, she thinks she has already lost her color. She is fighting purely on raw physical instinct. Tapping into his black void, Kay moves with bold, high-speed agility. He slips inside her guard, evading her downward slash, and drives his shoulder straight into her chest. He activates his gauntlet, compressing his black void mana, and tackles her directly to the stone floor. He reaches out his hand, pinning her arms down, and places his palm firmly onto her shoulder. "I caught her!" He looks down at her hollow, black eyes, yelling at her to wake up, and initiates a deep absolute absorption, draining the dark corruption. We enter Ellie's inner mindscape. She is a little girl crying in a dark, empty void. Standing over her is the towering, faceless silhouette of her older sister. Little Ellie is crying, asking why her sister is talking to her so coldly, whimpering that she only wanted to help. Her older sister stares down at her with glowing, disappointing eyes, and little Ellie curls into a ball, apologizing over and over, begging for forgiveness, and promising to do better next time. The blue light of her memory flows out of her soul and directly into Kay's chest. Kay witnesses her deepest, most painful trauma. Kay opens his eyes as the memory fragment fades, wondering what that painful connection was. It was Ellie's raw memory. The blue light of her memory and Kay's warm golden light swirl together, merging in his chest. Ellie's eyes snap wide open, and she gasps back to consciousness, her chest heaving as the dark whispers are sucked away by Kay's palm. She clutches her head in pain. Kay asks if she is awake, telling her she was in serious trouble a moment ago. Ellie looks at her hands, her voice trembling as she apologizes, asking what she was doing. Kay reassures her that it's okay, and he's just glad she's back. She rubs her temples, saying she can still hear them faintly, but feels like she just woke up from a horrific nightmare. She looks at Kay, timidly asking if Kay saw anything while she was unconscious. Kay awkwardly scratches his cheek, admitting that it kind of just happened. Nero suddenly floats over, wrapping himself around her neck like a warm, glowing scarf, and Ellie hugs the little shadow blob tightly. Nero projects a bright, warm light, and the remaining whispers in her head completely vanish. She smiles, thanking Nero. Kay looks down the corridor, telling her they need to get out immediately because staying inside this curtain for too long is dangerous. They walk down the silent path. Ellie remains quiet, looking at the ground. Suddenly, she speaks up. Kay. She asks why he isn't asking her anything about what he saw. She confesses that she is actually a weak, pathetic person, constantly living under her sister's shadow and eating herself up with shame. She admits her strong, perfect noble persona is entirely fake, and confesses she was absolutely terrified that he would find out she was weak and turn away in disappointment. Kay looks at her, letting out a soft sigh. He tells her he doesn't understand noble family drama, but to him, she is a reliable companion he can trust his back to more than anyone. He tells her that everyone has things they want to hide, just like they don't ask him about his own dark past. He gestures to his gauntlet and his slum's origin. He smiles warmly, telling her that they've been inside the curtain for too long anyway. Let's get out of here quickly. It seems people only have bad thoughts when they are here. Ellie looks up, her eyes soft, as she whispers a quiet, sincere thank you. They reach the edge of the dark curtain, and Kay performs a quick drain to open a path, the dark fog parting before his bare hand. They step through the threshold, and Ellie sighs in relief, glad to have escaped that dark labyrinth. But as they look out, Kay's jaw drops. They find themselves standing in a colossal, beautifully illuminated cathedral hall, filled with rows of giant glass cylinders containing high-purity, glowing alchemical crystal resources. Ellie gasps, realizing this is a massive research and production facility from the ancient civilization. If they can move this to the surface, the city would be supplied for months. But Kay's eyes lock onto the floor. There are massive, fresh claw marks and blood splatters across the pristine white tiles. Suddenly, a loud mechanical crash echoes from above, and a massive green wind slice sweeps across the room. Arancia, Gale, and Marie crash through the ceiling, fighting off a massive, skittering swarm of pitch-black shadow spiders. Gale wind slashes several beasts, screaming that there is no end to their numbers. Arancia yells at him to stay focused, because these monsters are the type to press with sheer numbers. She slams her hammer, vaporizing dozens of spiderlings, but her expression turns grim. Man, that appearance, I can tell what it is just by looking at the hatchlings. She scowls, muttering that of all times, an incredibly annoying monster built its nest here. Kay and Ellie draw their weapons, looking up at the ceiling, as a colossal shadow looms over the entire hall. A towering, heavily armored spider-scorpion beast, with giant razor-sharp scythe claws drops from the dark ceiling. The A-rank creature Arachne has officially arrived, and our team is completely surrounded in its nest.